A silhouette cuts through the morning mist. Just a young man on his daily run, but he carries a heavy burden. His name is Juin Gong. In Korean, those words literally mean main character. His parents christened him with that title, praying to the heavens he would become a legend. He strides into a shop where everybody knows his face. Since childhood, that name made him a laughingstock, a walking punchline for the masses. Did the mockery break him? Not a chance. He ignored the noise and stepped into his true sanctuary, a hardcore gaming den. He smirked at the blonde cashier, telling her to cut the comedy. He demanded the new release. Little did he know, she was one step ahead. She pulled the copy from its hiding spot. They instantly geeked out over the masterpiece, Night Saga R.E, an epic clash between humanity and the abyss. Players choose their destiny, the human hero, Locke, or the Demon King's eldest scion, Zephyr Ragnarok. It is a world of endless adventure and brutal grinding, a cycle of war that never ends. Touchdown at home base. He tore into the packaging with trembling hands. Headset locked. Cartridge engaged. Link start. As the loading spiral hypnotized him, he mapped out his conquest. Just a casual 8-hour marathon to relax. But then, the world fractured. Reality dissolved. His eyes snapped open. Harsh sunlight stabbed through a broken roof. The familiar ceiling of his room was gone. He lay on a rough cot in a world that felt too real. Looking down, his breath hitched. That was not his body. A thunderous voice shattered his confusion. Still sleeping? Suddenly, a monstrous ogre tore through the tent flaps. The beast barked orders, citing a brutal schedule. Juin Gong froze, paralyzed by the 4K resolution of this nightmare. He stammered about the graphics. The ogre looked bewildered. Graphics? That is when the terrifying truth hit. He was talking to an NPC. His mind reeled. No trailer had ever promised artificial intelligence this sophisticated. He asked the monster its name. The ogre looked betrayed. "It is Karak," he grunted, before dropping the bombshell. He scanned his stats, and bile rose in his throat. Even fodder monsters boast 10 points. He was sitting at a pitiful 5 across the board. An absolute disgrace to the royal bloodline. He checked his skills. Conquest level 1. And something else. Protagonist setting adjustment level 1. Cold sweat dripped down his spine. If that meant what he hoped it meant, Karak roared, demanding haste. Juin Gong stumbled outside, and his jaw hit the dirt. A battalion of ogre warriors stood in jagged formation. The air was thick with the scent of iron and blood. This was a war zone. He asked Karak why the tension was so suffocating. The ogre rolled his eyes. "We have to exterminate the Scarlet Lightning filth." The color drained from Juin Gong's face. Wait, this was actual combat? His survival instincts screamed in panic. No tutorial, no safety net. The Scarlet Lightning orcs were staging a coup, and he was the sacrificial lamb sent to crush it alongside the 7th prince and 8th princess. But the math did not add up. Why was his royal squad only 10 soldiers strong? Karak sighed, the weight of babysitting evident. "I told you yesterday. It is just a patrol mission." The ogre eyed him with suspicion. "Did you eat a poisonous mushroom?" Ignoring him, our MC toggled his HUD. Boom. Minimap online. A game-changing advantage. He vowed to keep that cheat sheet open 24/7. Suddenly, a hidden trail flickered on the interface. A secret event? Karak checked his crude parchment map and groaned. "That route takes an eternity." Juin Gong smirked, confidence returning. "Trust me, I know a shortcut." The squad hesitated, then followed. They hacked through dense thorns and scaled treacherous cliffs. The shortcut was brutal labor. Our hero was gasping for air, but they finally found it, a stone door buried in vines. Massive double handles barred the way. Between wheezes, he heard Karak mutter, "How did you know this was here?" "Are you a wizard?" the ogre pressed. Juin Gong managed a weak grin. "As if." But he looked ready to collapse. "You okay?" Karak asked. Juin Gong cursed internally. He never expected a level 1 body to be this pathetic. He pointed to the door, but suddenly his body erupted in golden light. His jaw dropped. Round 2. System notification. Level up. You have to be kidding. He leveled up just by hiking? Every stat jumped by 2, plus bonus points to spend. The mechanics were broken in the best way possible. He let out a strange squeak of joy. Karak yelled at him to focus. Juin Gong jogged to the opening gates. He had zero clue what nightmare lurked inside, but he was not alone. And more importantly, he possessed the ultimate weapon. Protagonist plot armor. The tunnel loomed pitch black ahead. Karak guessed dwarves dug it. Shutra paused in his tracks. Wait, since when did dwarves exist in this timeline? The ogre beside him set the record straight immediately. Nah, they're long gone, but they used to run this entire place. Shutra pressed him, desperate for intel. Did they migrate from the demon realm, or just vanish into thin air? Karak shrugged, totally clueless. But suddenly, the entire squad froze dead in their tracks. Ahead of them, a massive pile of loot, treasure chests, and gear littered the path. Gold fever hit the ogres instantly. Their eyes lit up with greed. They mocked the dwarves for being stupid enough to abandon such high-tier weapons and began hoarding everything, lugging heavy steel like it was a feather. Meanwhile, our main character zoned out, his mind diving deep into strategy mode. The system UI flashed a crimson warning. His level, strength, and mana were way too trash to equip any of this high-level gear. But Shutra didn't care. Loot is loot. He'd figure out the inventory mechanics later. He tapped an item, visualizing the concept of absolute storage, and poof, it vanished. An ogre dropped instantly, dead on the floor. Through the dust, an orc stepped out. But this was no ordinary. It was the general of the Scarlet Lightning tribe, Kaichan. It was a setup. They'd been camping this spot the whole time. Charge! The orc horde swarmed in. Shutra, however, stood paralyzed. Error, 404 inches his brain. Fight or flight. He needed XP. He crept toward an orc locked in combat, looking for a cheap kill steal. He swung his sword snap. The blade shattered like glass on impact. Dead silence fell over him. The orc slowly turned, snarling right in his face. Shutra scrambled, sprinting for his life with the beast hot on his heels. He tripped, eating dirt hard. The HUD flashed critical red. Health, 1 out of 15. Mana, 5 out of 5. Game over. No moves left. He let out a pathetic shriek as the orc raised its weapon to end him. But clang! An ogre intercepted the blow. It was Karak. Kid, do you have a death wish? Move! Get out of here! Karak roared, locking blades with the enemy. Shutra stood there, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, a blinding golden light pierced the darkness. A voice boomed, declaring him the fated existence. A spectral woman manifested with a ruthless command. Conquer, enslave, rule. Shutra was bewildered, and just as quickly, she vanished. Back in the physical world, the ogres were getting stomped. Kaichan strutted back to his lines, arrogant and bored. He couldn't believe they tried to raid this spot with such a pathetic squad. Are they brave or just brain-dead? He waved to his army. Wipe them out. Don't waste my time. But then, he paused. Skill, under the king's banner. A level 11 skill. A massive area of effect buff. The ogres roared. They could feel the strength surging through their veins. Morale skyrocketed. It was payback time. Weapons? Who needs them? They tore into the orc lines with bare fists, smashing enemies like ragdolls. Kaichan stepped back, rattled. What is this power? It defied all logic. He glared at the source of the magic, screaming, Die, Sutra! With a roar, he hurled a massive volley of boulders at the prince, desperate to shatter the spell. The squad roared at their flawless synergy. Sutra injected Karak with a massive power buff, sending him barreling toward Kaichan like an unstoppable freight train of destruction. Pure, unadulterated terror washed over Kaichan. He didn't even have a split second to react. Snick. Karak severed his head in a single, brutal stroke. Witnessing their leader fall, the orc army's spirit crumbled instantly. They tried to flee, but the ogres showed no mercy. They hunted down every last runner. No survivors allowed. A system ping flashed before Sutra's eyes. General's merits credited to the king. Then came the dopamine hit. A cascade of notifications flooded his vision, screaming that he had leveled up. The rush was intoxicating. He grinned from ear to ear. Karak clocked the sudden mood shift, wondering just what kind of power boost Sutra had actually snagged. That mysterious strength had the ogre buzzing too. He glanced at the prince, convinced this royal was the secret catalyst behind his newfound power. Back at base camp, the atmosphere shifted heavy. Sutra sat alone in his tent, his mind practically spiraling into chaos. He frantically scrolled through the system menu, but the logout button? Gone. Completely missing in action. He forced a deep breath, fighting to keep a panic attack at bay. His brain crunched the data and spat out two theories. Theory 1. He was stuck in the virtual reality dive. Maybe the servers back in the real world crashed hard, or some catastrophic bug had bricked the login system. If that were the case, a patch or server reset should boot him out eventually. But Theory 2? That one sounded straight up delusional. What if this wasn't a game at all? What if this had become his actual reality? An isekai scenario straight out of the web, novels, and comics he used to binge read. He mulled over the possibility of being transported into the game's universe, or a dimension that mirrored it perfectly. The graphics were too high resolution, the textures hyper-realistic, and the NPCs weren't just spouting pre-written lines, they were having full-on, dynamic conversations. But the smoking gun? The censorship pixels were missing. He did a quick equipment check downstairs just to confirm. Yep, fully rendered. All the evidence pointed to one terrifying conclusion. He was definitely in another world. The thought of permanent death in this place sent a chill down his spine. No respawns here. But hey, there had to be a silver lining, right? At least he didn't spawn as some ugly orc or a brain-dead ogre. He rolled a natural 20 on his background, born as a prince with a platinum spoon in his mouth. Suddenly, Carrick barged into the tent, catching Shutra off guard. Got a minute? The big guy didn't want to chat. He wanted a spar. Why the sudden interest? Shutra asked. Carrick kept it 100. Since he was following Shutra now, he needed to know if his leader could actually swing a sword, or if he was just dead weight. Is this really necessary? Shutra sighed. Carrick tossed a blade at his feet. Relax, your highness. I'll nerf myself. Won't even use half my strength. Shutra let out a dry laugh. Bold words to say to royalty. He gripped the hilt, his eyes narrowing. Don't hold back, Shutra roared, lunging forward. Carrick braced for impact, expecting a heavy blow. Clang. When the sword connected, awkward silence followed. Carrick just stood there like a statue while Shutra wailed on him. It was getting embarrassing. The ogre was actually getting annoyed. He literally couldn't even feel the hits. It was like being attacked by a mosquito. Fed up, Carrick swatted back, sending the prince stumbling backward until he hit the dirt. Panic flashed on the ogre's face. You good, boss? Shutra groaned, dusting himself off. Dude, warn me before you hit that hard. Suddenly, ding! A system window popped up. Skill acquired. Basic swordsmanship. Wait, what? He racked his brain. Then it clicked. This was exactly how he unlocked telekinesis earlier. The mechanic was pain-based. He unlocked skills by literally getting his butt kicked. Carrick started walking away to grab some grub, thinking the session was done. Not so fast, Shutra called out. He wasn't done farming XP yet. He dropped into a combat stance, eyes burning with determination. Round 2. Let's go. Shutra launched himself forward again. Carrick casually deflected the strike, but something was different. The prince's form was sharper, cleaner. Carrick frowned. If he could move like this, why was he flailing around like a noob just 5 minutes ago? Skills don't just jump tiers mid-fight. Right? Shutra hopped back after the exchange, a wild grin plastered on his face. The guy looked like he was having the time of his life. How was that one? Shutra panted, before pivoting to the real question. By the way, what's your level sitting at? Last I checked, 21, Carrick grunted. Shutra glanced at his own stats. Oh yeah, he could work with this. He would close that level gap in no time. See, everyone in this world had levels, but unlike him, they were flying blind. The locals needed clunky evaluation spells to see stats. But Shutra? He had the ultimate cheat code. A live HUD. Being able to view stats in real time and min-max specific attributes, that was a broken advantage. A cheat code. It was time to grind. Shutra dove back into the fray. Carrick actually flinched this time. The orc could feel it. Shutra wasn't just getting stronger. He was evolving into a speed demon, leaving mere mortals in the dust. Suddenly, the lore of Night Saga flooded his mind. The demon arc. The entire plot revolved around Zephyr, the overpowered protagonist who ruthlessly outclasses his own siblings. It's a brutal marathon to the finale, where Zephyr claims the Demon King's throne. But one specific plot point stood out like a jagged knife. The infamous Purge of Year 517. The moment Zephyr snaps and slaughters every single one of his brothers and sisters to secure the crown. And the key word there is all. That death sentence included Shutra. Right now, the calendar reads, Year 512. That gave him a 5-year countdown before his scheduled execution. He needed a survival plan fast. The only way to survive the protagonist? Become stronger than the protagonist. Later, Carrick stomped up, looking annoyed. There you are, the orc grunted. I've been searching the whole camp for you, Shutra asked casually. What's the situation? Carrick stared daggers at him. You totally forgot about the strategy meeting, didn't you? The entire command team is waiting in the main tent. Cut to Shutra, sipping tea with 2 other VIPs, the air thick with awkward tension. You guys are early, Shutra bluffed smoothly. Across the table, the 7th prince, Chris Moonlight, raised an eyebrow. Since when are you so polite with us? Chris was pushing for that happy family vibe, insisting Shutra drop the stiff formalities. The 8th princess, Caitlin Moonlight, wasn't exactly sold on at first meetings and all, but Chris wasn't hearing it. He insisted Shutra use their first names. These two were the offspring of Elaine Moonlight, the 4th queen and matriarch of the lycanthropes. Back in the game, they were absolute nightmare-tier boss fights. But the lore was tragic. A year before the day of massacre, they were scripted to die at the hands of Zephyr and the Demon King's other heirs. They were walking tragedies. Then there was the dark secret of Caitlin Moonlight's lineage. She is an illegitimate child, a stain on the royal bloodline. Right now, she was grilling Shutra on why he went rogue against the enemy, instead of sticking to the plan. She had given him strict orders to stick to stealth patrol. Shutra shrugged it off, explaining he never expected an ambush from that angle. Caitlin scanned him, her eyes filled with something unexpected, genuine concern. She asked if he took any damage, reminding him to watch his back since he was the squishy one of the group. Shutra blinked, confused by the sudden warmth. Since when were the Demon King's spawn this tight-knit? Chris chimed in, warning him that he was in for a serious lecture. If he pulled a stunt like that again, Shutra couldn't process it. They were actually nice? Then, a light bulb went off in his head. Lycanthropes are basically walking batteries of life force, oozing with raw aura. If he exploited their biology as a shortcut, he could snag some skills and unlock aura mastery on easy mode. He looked them dead in the eye and dropped the bomb. I need a favor. I need you to blast me with your aura. The siblings froze, totally dumbfounded. Their collective reaction was a flat, say what? Meanwhile, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, the orcs were getting slaughtered. The ogres were dominating the battlefield. Suddenly, a massive ogre tank bulldozed through the front lines. The smaller ogres hyped him up, cheering wildly. With a single swing, the giant deleted several orcs from existence. One foolish enemy tried to rush the titan, landing a tiny scratch on his arm. The giant glared, freezing the attacker in pure terror before smashing him into oblivion. The enemy's body disintegrated instantly. The giant roared, ordering his army to wipe them all out. He promised a massive bounty for whoever racked up the highest kill count. The troops went feral, fueled by the promise of loot, fighting with zero restraint. While the battle raged, Shutra's mind snapped into a void. Floating there was a woman radiating goddess energy, surrounded by a mysterious entourage. He racked his brain. These NPCs weren't in the Night Saga lore or the character files. The woman drifted toward him, and suddenly he was engulfed in blinding golden light. He jolted awake in his bed, totally disoriented. Was it a fever dream? Bam! Karak's ugly mug was inches from his face, asking if he was awake. Shutra nearly jumped out of his skin. He yelled at the orc for the jump scare, but Karak just shrugged, noting he looked healthy. Then the orc got curious. Why did Shutra ask the princess to beat him up? Shutra had nagged them until they agreed. Karak's eyes went wide as he pointed at Shutra's body. He was glowing. System alert. Aura level 1 obtained. Shutra could feel the power humming under his skin. Karak asked if getting hit was the secret trigger to awakening aura. Shutra gave him a cryptic non-answer. Then Karak leaned in, whispering, "Was that power boost why Shutra had infinite stamina during the brawl with the Lightning Tribe?" Shutra just nodded. Yup. Karak looked at him like he was staring at a legend-tier warrior. Shutra demanded a situation report the moment consciousness returned. Karak nodded, his expression grim as he delivered the update. The main army had utterly annihilated the Lightning Tribe. Shutra paused, his mind racing. He had assumed this was a three-man raid involving himself, Chris, and Caitlin, taking down the Scarlet Lightning Tribe alone. Karak let out a rough laugh. Impossible. That tribe was a massive, sprawling force. This prompted Shutra to ask the heavy question. Who led the charge? Karak dropped the name like a bomb. General Vandal. Shutra's eyes widened in shock. General Vandal. An absolute fortress of a man and one of the strongest units in the entire game. In his past life as Zephyr, Vandal had been his most trusted right hand. He knew Vandal's drop tables, his cravings, and the exact intricate details of his talent tree. However, the recruitment condition was brutal. He had to defeat Vandal in a one-on-one duel. A suicide mission for most. But with his meta-knowledge, stealing Vandal from his past self was entirely possible. Shutra grinned, a predator sensing prey. This was a hidden side quest worth grinding for, and for once, time was on his side. Target acquired. General Vandal. Meanwhile, back at Caitlin's base, the siblings were losing their minds. Shutra had achieved Aura Level 1 in just 24 hours. Chris was still reeling from the shock. He muttered aloud, wondering if this monster potential was some hidden trait of the Gandharva bloodline. It was far more detailed than their own military intelligence. Kid, you are a genius, Chris muttered, awe coloring his voice. Since the Scarlet Lightning scouts they slaughtered were already dead, the enemy had zero clue their secret tunnels were compromised. Chris realized they could stage a perfect ambush using this god-tier intel. But before the slaughter could begin, there was one more mission Shutra needed to handle. The chambers were stripped bare, a total ghost town. Whoever moved out had taken everything not nailed down. Likely the work of the dwarves. Shutra questioned the empty loot hall from their last run. Karak shrugged, figuring the dwarves just left behind what they considered trash. Deeper they went. Karak stiffened. Something was incoming. Shutra heard the skittering too and immediately checked his minimap. He knew exactly what was on the menu. Opening his inventory, he grabbed a specific flash spell item. Better safe than sorry. Eyes shut. On my signal, he barked. The squad tensed up, bracing for impact. Hundreds of glowing eyes pierced the gloom. Rock spiders poured out of the cracks like a living flood. Pure nightmare fuel. Classic dungeon trash mobs. They swarmed in dozens and packed a nasty paralysis venom. The second they rushed, Shutra yelled the command. He launched the potion skyward. It shattered instantly. A blinding white light flooded the tunnel with the intensity of a supernova. The stone spiders shrieked, frozen stiff. Light was their kryptonite. Creatures of the dark could not handle the flash. "Wipe them out!" Shutra roared. The ogres went beast mode, smashing through the paralyzed arachnids like wet paper. Shutra observed the chaos. He knew mob logic. Where there is a swarm, there is a boss. He signaled Karak. Time to headhunt the leader. Cutting through the carnage, they beelined straight for the main threat. There it was, massive compared to the grunts. Karak lunged, slamming his weapon into its skull. Nothing. The orc looked baffled. The thing was built like a tank. Shutra mentally facepalmed. Physical damage would not scratch that exoskeleton. It needed fire, but he had not unlocked those spells yet. The beast enraged, rushing Karak. "Use fire!" Shutra screamed. It was the only way to crack it. Karak looked panic-stricken. He did not have a lighter on him. Suddenly, a voice commanded Shutra to raise his blade. Whoosh! Flame on! His sword blazed with sudden magic. "Is that enough mana?" Caitlin cried out. Shutra gave a sharp nod, acknowledging the assist. His focus didn't waver. He was a predator, locking onto the boss, waiting for that perfect split-second opening. Then, he moved. A blur of motion, he danced around the beast, his blade trailing a lethal edge of scorching flames. The boss spider shrieked as the inferno consumed it, burning away its very existence. Ding! A brilliant golden light erupted from Shutra's body. "Welcome to level 9. Caitlin blinked against the radiance. "Are you all right?" Shutra remained calm, dismissing the phenomenon as a mere divine blessing. "A blessing from Gandharva?" She pressed. He nodded, another bluff to cover his tracks. But Caitlin narrowed her eyes, her suspicion growing. "Your reaction time. It is too perfect. Have you fought these monstrosities before?" Shutra lied without hesitation. "I merely read about them in the royal archives." The truth? He had slaughtered these mobs 1,000 times in the game. He knew every mechanic, every frame, inside and out. Before she could interrogate him further, Karak shouted, "Boss, look at that door!" They pushed inside, and Shutra's eyes went wide. A town portal. Karak gaped in awe, but his prince recognized the technology instantly. Just a hunch. Shutra shrugged, masking his knowledge. The architecture was unmistakably dwarven. In his Zephyr playthroughs, these were rare finds, but as a top-tier hero, he had encountered them countless times. "It just needs a mana injection to boot up." He turned to Caitlin. "Pretty sure that is a portal." Sierra stepped forward to inspect the ancient design. His assessment was spot on. "Where does it lead?" Caitlin asked, scanning the cold stone walls for clues. Suddenly, Karak flagged the prince, pointing to a carving. Shutra and Caitlin stepped closer to examine the glyphs. It was definitely not demon script. "It looks like ancient dwarven runes," Karak grunted, looking at Caitlin. "Can you read this?" She shook her head, baffled. "Why would I know dwarven?" Even Sierra was stumped. Then, a voice cut through the silence. Gishka Mountains portal number 2 linked to portal number 3. It was Shutra. He stood there, stunned that the words actually made sense to him. Ping. A system notification flashed in his peripheral vision. Ding, just like that. Dwarven language level 1. Unlocked. Honestly, he had no clue the system could just download entire languages directly into his brain. It was wild. Karak's eyes bulged. You can actually read these runes?" Shutra nodded, playing it cool. "But Caitlin?" She was giving him the ultimate side-eye. "Since when do you speak ancient dwarf?" Sierra cut in, pointing to the script at the bottom. "Translate that part." Shutra squinted at the glowing text. It says, "Infuse mana to jumpstart the mechanism." "Caitlin, would you do the honors?" he asked. She raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Why not do it yourself?" "Time for a little white lie. My mana control is still trash. I do not want to blow us all up." The truth? He had 0 mana. Nada. Buying the excuse, she stepped up. Whoosh! The orb flared to life, spilling blinding white light across the cavern. The light coalesced into a 3-dimensional tactical map of the Gishka Mountains. A pulsing dot showed their location, while a second marker blinked ominously at portal number 3. That confirmed it. These ancient tunnels ran all the way to the other side of the range. Karak grinned, his tusks gleaming. "Jackpot. The Scarlet Lightning Tribe's main army. They are camped right in front of those peaks." Shutra nodded, locking eyes with his loyal servant. "Which means we can flank them. A total surprise attack from the rear." Caitlin crossed her arms, her mind already racing. "Let us pause here. I need to strategize with my brother back at base before we make a move." Back at the tent, Chris was losing his mind. A portal. There? He looked at Shutra like he was a descended saint. "Shutra, you are literally a godsend for us right now." Then, his expression turned serious. "Name your price. Anything within my power. Consider it yours." "I need to reward you properly," Chris insisted. Refuse, and I will actually be offended, Shutra smirked. So, I can ask for something totally unreasonable? Chris leaned in, intrigued. Try me. Shutra dropped the bomb. Teach me the beast god fist art. The air instantly left the room. Chris stiffened, eyes wide with shock. Look, my level is too low to handle real weapons without fumbling, Shutra explained. But skills? That is a different loophole. The catch was massive. The beast god fist was the lycanthrope royal family's crown jewel. We are talking about an S-rank martial art. Absolute, devastating power. Asking for this? Yeah, it was borderline insane. I get it if you say no, Shutra added quickly, reading the tension. It is a big ask. Probably impossible. So done. Shutra's jaw nearly hit the floor. Chris nodded firmly. I cannot show you the forbidden techniques, obviously, but the core aura? That, I can teach. Chris looked anxious. Is that enough? Shutra stood there frozen in shock, which Chris totally misread as disappointment. You do not like it? No, it is perfect, Shutra stammered. More than enough. Chris's expression softened, shifting into something solemn. Shutra, from today on, can I call you my brother? Brother, that word carried heavy weight in this world. Shutra let it sink in. Honestly, he didn't hate it. Actually, he loved it. I would be honored, he said, gripping Chris's hand. The tent lit up with grins. Finally, things were clicking. Shutra was genuinely hyped to roll with this crew. Ping. A blue window popped up. Alliance established. Chris and Caitlin moonlight. Relationship status. Normal. For now. Cut to dusk at the Scarlet Lightning camp. The atmosphere was chaotic, as orcs scrambled inside. A massive brute loomed over their captive, knowing she wasn't just there for a fight. What is your real angle? She was bound tight, helpless. The orc sneered. Speak, princess. What business does royalty have in a wasteland like this? Enter Felicia Doomblade, the 6th princess of the Empire. While she made her entrance, I was fixated on my status window. Strength and agility had hit 21, but my charisma? It was stubbornly stuck at 17. Something was off. Usually, a level up boosted every stat by 2 points, yet lately, charisma was lagging behind, crawling up by only a single point. Why was I being nerfed? In the original Night Saga, appearance and charisma were completely different beasts. Appearance was merely superficial beauty. But charisma? That was the power of influence. It determined whether the world bowed to you or ignored you. Whatever. My growth stats were already broken, so I had no right to complain. More importantly, I was grinding my way to the brink of level 10. According to the lore, this was the turning point. When protagonists like Zephyr hit this milestone, their latent potential awakened. The Descendant of Darkness trait would evolve. My instincts screamed that a massive power-up was just around the corner. Karak's gruff voice snapped me back to reality. Hey, we are locked and loaded. Let us move out, I commanded. But the orc just squinted at me. You are in a scary good mood today. Did you strike gold? I kept my expression cold and unreadable. No, just focused. Satisfied, Karak marched to the center to rally the troops. Move out. We pierced the forest and dove deep into the cave system. But peace was short-lived. A wolf pack ambushed us instantly. We carved a bloody path straight to our objective. The elite squad assembled around me. Karak, Chris, Caitlin, and Sierra. The cloaked scouts were waiting. Report. Is the analysis complete? A lichened scout lowered his hood, revealing sharp eyes. Confirmed, Your Highness. The portal link is stable. Exit coordinates set for the Eska River, deep within the Gishka Mountains. Chris eyed the ancient stone warily. Is it safe? The scout nodded with absolute certainty. Solid as a rock, with zero magical fluctuations. That is dwarven engineering for you. Fire it up, Chris commanded. As the mages channeled their mana, the orb erupted with light. A holographic projection of the destination shimmered into existence. Karak and I stood there, slack-jawed. Seeing a warp gate in a game was one thing, but witnessing it in reality? It was mind-blowing. While I was geeking out over the magic, Chris and Sierra were already moving. Caitlin paused, glancing back with a playful smirk. You coming, or are you going to stare at it all day? I blinked, shaking off the trance. Right behind you. The robed lichen double-checked the coordinates one last time. Target locked, Eska River. Location, deep within the Gishka Mountains. Chris demanded a final status check. The verdict? Systems green. 0 glitches. The device was built like a tank. Satisfied, Chris signaled the advance. The wolfkin flipped the switch. Blinding light exploded from the orb, tearing open a spatial window. Shutra and Karak were visibly shaken by the sheer power. I was internally freaking out. To stand before a legendary gate in the flesh was a gamer's dream. Meanwhile, Chris and Sierra marched fearlessly into the vortex. Caitlin whipped around, impatient. Yo, you waiting for an invitation? That finally snapped me back to reality. Stepping through the dimensional gate, The squad vanished from the cave. We reappeared instantly on the other side, but the view from the cliff caught Chris off guard. A massive military encampment sprawled out beneath us. He scanned the perimeter, running the numbers. Roughly 5,000 troops, if we wanted to take down this beast. Hitting the supply lines was the only play. Chris mapped the battlefield instantly. If General Vandal brings the thunder at the front gate, our stealth unit can slip in the back and torch the food reserves. But Shutra sensed the atmosphere was wrong. The camp felt like a ghost town. There were way too few soldiers for a base of this magnitude. Once he pointed it out, the realization struck the squad. The main force was missing. Had the invasion already begun? Suddenly, Shutra's gaze locked onto movement on the horizon. A skirmish was breaking out. "Channel aura into your eyes," Chris commanded. Shutra focused his internal energy. The blurry distance snapped into high-definition clarity. A lone woman was tearing through a pack of orcs. Caitlin instantly recognized the attackers as the Lightning Tribe, but the victims remained a mystery. Chris shook his head. Those are not Vandal's men. No scheduled raids today, and the scale is far too small. Shutra zoomed in, analyzing the details. Brown skin, silver hair, distinct long ears. Dark elves, he realized. Caitlin needed a double take to confirm. Shutra pointed out their smaller builds and the drakes they were riding. Suddenly, Chris signaled a change. The unknown unit was breaking formation. Did their leader go down? Chris muttered, as he watched them retreat at breakneck speed. Karak scratched his head, completely lost. Is the show over already? Shutra's mind raced. Why the hell were dark elves in this sector? As the sun dipped below the horizon, they fell back to base to debrief. They patched a magical communication link to General Vandal. The big boss had already heard the intel about the dwarven portal. He was ready to heap praise on Chris. How did you pinpoint the location? Vandal asked, his voice booming. Chris didn't take the credit, immediately gesturing to Shutra. It was not me, General. It was the Ninth Prince. Shutra played the just got lucky card. But honestly, seeing Vandal's face again stirred something deep within his soul. Vandal grinned like a wolf, promising Shutra that a mountain of loot was waiting for them back at the Demon King's castle. Save the greed for later, Chris cut in, his voice ice-cold and professional. What is the situation with that clash outside the Lightning Tribe's base? Vandal's smirk vanished. Likely the Dark Elves. It looks like a rogue unit joined the fray uninvited. Chris narrowed his eyes dangerously. Why would they interfere? Are you certain they aren't reinforcements sent from headquarters? Vandal admitted the intel was fuzzy, but it looked like a scouting mission that went swiftly down the drain. Then, he dropped the bombshell. We have a major crisis. The leader of that independent Dark Elf unit got snatched by the Scarlet Lightning Tribe. Is that the reason for the conflict? Chris demanded answers. Shutra leaned in, needing a name. Who was leading them? Vandal's voice dropped an octave to a grave whisper. Someone I know, all too well. The Sixth Princess, Felicia Doomblade, your sister. The entire squad froze in shock. Felicia Doomblade, daughter of the Third Queen, Sylvia Doomblade, and the twin sister of the Fifth Prince, Sylvan. Shutra's internal database whirred to life. In the original game lore, Felicia and Sylvan were die-hard loyalists to the Fourth Princess Anastasia's faction. That meant only one thing to Shutra. Enemy. So why in the world was she here? His gut told him she was clout-chasing, trying to steal glory on the battlefield. Do those Scarlet Lightning scumbags even know who they caught? Chris demanded. Do they know it is Felicia? Vandal shook his head grimly. We haven't confirmed if her identity is blown yet. What is the play? Chris asked, eyes sharp as daggers. Vandal didn't hesitate. If she is breathing, we get her out. No negotiation? Chris pressed. Vandal scoffed with disdain. If we hit them first, we can dictate the terms. But I am not bowing down to trash. Vandal signed off to gather more intel, promising to ping them the second the situation shifted. The screen faded to black. Chris let out a cynical, dry laugh. So, our oh-so-brilliant sister got herself captured. Caitlin shot him a lethal glare. She is alive. We have to save her. Chris shrugged, his tone freezing cold. Ideally, sure. But let us be real. It is not going to be a walk in the park. A botched rescue could wipe us out. But Caitlin slammed her hand down, figuratively speaking. She is family. We go. Chris paused, weighing the tactical nightmare against the moral obligation. He knew she was right, but risking his crew for a rival princess? That was a tough sell. Shutra watched the gears turning in Chris's head. Back at the tent, Chris laid out the game plan. Vandal draws the main aggro, pulling the Scarlet Lightning main force away. That is our cue to hit the rear. He pointed to the map. I will dive straight into the center base and go full berserker to sow chaos. Caitlin, Shutra, you lead your squad and execute the objective. Shutra needed it spelled out clearly. By objective, you mean extracting our sister, right? Affirmative, Chris replied grimly. If it goes sideways, you bail immediately. No heroics. We cannot bleed out the whole squad just for Felicia. That hit a raw nerve with Caitlin. Chris cut her off cold. Zip it. He reminded her exactly who was wearing the commander's badge. Caitlin wasn't having it. Felicia is blood, she snapped back, refusing to let him talk about family like collateral damage. But Chris stood his ground. He wasn't about to let Felicia's reckless stunt tank the entire operation. Shutra caught the vibe instantly. Chris looked way too chill about leaving Felicia behind. It made him wonder, is there some bad blood there? Nightfall arrived. Go time. The warriors surged forward, ready to absolutely wreck those Scarlet Lightning scumbags. From the ridge, Chris and his squad scanned the scene. The camp looked quiet, but guards were crawling all over the place like ants. He held the line until… boom! Explosions ripped through the camp, sending orcs flying. That was General Vandal's cue to rush in. Wipe them out! Meanwhile, Shutra's unit hung back in the shadows. Carrick was itching to move, desperate for the fight to start. Why are we freezing? Hold for the signal, Shutra murmured. Suddenly, ogres smashed into the orc lines, catching them completely slipping. It was a total slaughter. The ogres dominated, while General Vandal watched the carnage unfold like a hawk, just observing until he signaled the retreat. Up on the cliff, Chris watched the chaos brew. Timing is everything. Gear up, he ordered. We stick to the plan. Move out. He, Shutra, and Caitlin launched their assault. The Scarlet Lightning tribe never saw it coming. Total ambush. They crushed the opposition instantly. Watch your six, Shutra, Caitlin yelled. You too, he shouted back. Mid-sprint, Shutra glanced at his mini-map interface. Hard left. We are making a beeline for the food storage, Carrick roared. Kill him. Carrack was leading the pack, but a massive orc swung a haymaker right at him. Carrack was wide open. Thwack. Shutra saved his hide, burying a dagger right in the orc's skull. Skill unlocked. Dagger throwing. Level 1. Bullseye. He smirked, pretty satisfied with that shot. Carrack looked at him, puzzled. Since when do you throw knives like that? Shutra just shrugged. No big deal. Truth is, he'd unlocked the skill by simply spamming throws all night. Suddenly, Carrick pointed. That tent. Looks like the storage. Torch it? Carrick asked. Light it up, Shutra confirmed. But then, a thought struck him like lightning. Felicia. If she's trapped in there, burning it down kills her. Hold up, he commanded Carrack. We need to secure Felicia first. Carrack grunted in confusion. Shutra pulled up his minimap. Felicia should show up as a neutral NPC. He was looking for a blue or purple blip. Gotcha. He dove into the tent. Bingo. The room looked empty. Until a voice called his name from the darkness. Deep in the shadows, there she was, chained to the floor inside a glowing magic circle. What are you doing here? She gasped. Save the chat for later, Felicia. Just hold still. Every second here was a gamble with death. He worked fast to cut her loose, honestly banking on her owing him a massive favor after this. Felicia kept quiet as they barely made it out. Move it! We need to link up with Chris and Caitlin. That stopped her cold. Chris and Caitlin? Came for me? Shutra frowned. Yeah? That surprises you? You act like they weren't supposed to save their own squadmate. With Shutra out of the succession game, maybe he missed some internal drama. Felicia opened her mouth to explain, but Carrack cut in. Hostiles incoming, Carrack barked. Shutra grabbed Felicia, guiding her. She blinked in shock. He actually used her name. Since when are we on a first-name basis? Suddenly, her eyes went wide. Shutra! Behind you! Thwack! Agony spiked through him. Then whoosh! Flames swallowed him whole. Carrack and Felicia froze, watching the fire rage. Panic set in for Felicia. An orc rushed her. She braced herself, annoyed, but then a flash caught her eye. Bam! A fireball blasted the orc right in the face. What the… She spun around, spotting a shadow in the smoke. Shutra walked out of the haze like a boss. System. Mana control level 1 acquired. Fire arrow level 1 acquired. He wore a grin that screamed pure confidence. He unleashed hell, spamming fire arrows like a maniac. He went into a frenzy, burning every orc in sight to a crisp. The rush was insane. Level 1 magic felt like God mode. Then he sensed it. Ice. A chill ran down his spine. An enemy archer was knocking a frost arrow, aiming straight for Felicia. Felicia ran to check on him. Get back, he roared, shoving her away. She stumbled back, shocked. Thwip! The arrow struck. But he didn't shove her to save her. He wanted to tank that hit. He looked almost manic. The ice slammed into him, kicking up a cloud of freezing mist. The mist cleared, revealing him standing tall. System. Ice arrow level 1 acquired. Just as planned. 0 expectations, 0 grace. He hit the dirt hard, landing right on his backside as his health points plummeted into the danger zone. We're talking critical condition here. His HP bar was flashing red, 13 out of 95. One more hit like that and it's game over. Out of nowhere, a voice sliced through the air, calling him a total idiot. It was Felicia bringing the attitude. She demanded to know who authorized this rescue mission. Her face flushed bright pink. She started chewing him out, but the vibe was off. In her eyes, he's still the runt of the litter, the weak sibling who needs protecting, not the other way around. She definitely got the wrong idea. Then, she noticed the tower enemy was already face-planted in the dirt. Eyes wide, she demanded to know when the heck he learned magic. He stood there, stunned. She actually one-shotted that mage. It clicked. She thought he took that hit on purpose to be her hero. Without warning, she yanked the ice shard from his chest. He let out a blood-curdling scream as vibrant green light erupted. Healing magic. He watched, mesmerized, as the gaping hole in his chest knitted itself back together. Ping. Skill acquired. Heal level 1. Just like that, the wound was erased. That's the genius mage Felicia Doomblade for you. She checked on him. Do your legs still work? He smirked. Thanks to that, my blood is fully topped off. Felicia tilted her head, totally lost. What blood? Their little moment got cut short by a deafening roar. The ground shook as a massive ogre came thundering toward them. Felicia panicked, demanding an ID on the beast. He clocked it immediately. A blood ogre, a nasty mutated variant. Her eyes widened. She realized the only exit was right behind that hulking monstrosity. Yup, he confirmed. The beast closed the gap and unleashed an ear-splitting scream, sending them scrambling for cover. Shutra's mind raced. How do you even damage a tank like that? The blood ogre lunged. For a giant, it moved with terrifying speed. Despite the size difference, it was on them instantly. Felicia shouted, "Buy me time. I'll blast it into orbit." He had zero clue how to stall a monster that big. Boom! The ground erupted. He sighed. Guess he's playing bait. He agreed to draw aggro while she charged her spell. She looked at him blankly. What? Ignoring her confusion, he yelled for Karak. Karak answered the call. He told the orc to run the same play as last time. Get ready to rumble, big guy. Inventory open. He needed the clutch item, the dwarven dagger. With lightning speed, he equips the artifact. Gritting his teeth, he drives the blade deep into the earth, triggering the activation command. A pillar of light explodes from the ground. The power of the king's banner takes effect. Torrential energy floods into Karak, wrapping the warrior in a suffocating aura of absolute dominance. The orc roars, intoxicated by the strength surging through his veins. The blood ogre falters, sensing the sudden shift in the food chain. Karak launches himself like a cannonball. The ogre towers over him, 3 times his size, but the orc doesn't flinch. He swings his axe with earth-shattering fury. The impact is cataclysmic. The massive blood ogre buckles under the sheer weight of the attack. Karak winds up instantly, burying his axe deep into the monster's gut. A guttural groan escapes the beast as it staggers backward, its defense crumbling. Opportunity strikes. A shimmering hologram of Felicia materializes inches from the beast's face. As the ogre blindly swipes at the illusion, the real Felicia darts in. She casts Grease, instantly transforming the battlefield into an ice rink. The giant loses its footing and crashes down with a tremor. Karak sees his moment. This is the end. Channeling every ounce of his buffed strength, he prepares the execution. The axe descends, connecting dead center with a sickening crunch. Bullseye. The blood ogre howls in agony before coughing up a fountain of crimson. Shutra watches from the sidelines as the raid boss collapses. Victory tastes sweet. Stragglers remain, but the main threat is dust. Suddenly, a golden level-up aura wraps around Shutra's body. A system window materializes. Sweet, succulent XP. Ding. Level 10 reached. But the real prize? His protagonist setting adjustment, just leveled up. He stares at the holographic screen, hype building in his chest. Thanks to the level 2 adjustment, a brand new passive skill has been unlocked. He cracks open the reward box. Item obtained. Battlefield Protection Level 1. The effect? Enemy projectile accuracy is severely nerfed. A grin splits his face. He knows exactly what this is. The Stormtrooper effect. Every movie fan knows the vibe. Thousands of bullets can fly, but the main character never catches a single stray. Attacks will miss by a single inch. With this skill, he can literally replicate plot armor. And not a moment too soon, the enemy horde is charging. Felicia screams for him to wake up as the swarm closes in. She's done playing nice. It is time to unleash her true rage. She casts Wind. A violent tornado rips through the battlefield, launching enemies into the stratosphere. Shutra analyzes the energy signature. To a layman, it looks like magic. But his gamer instincts scream otherwise. That isn't mana. That is a spirit. Corrupted or not, high elf blood doesn't lie. Felicia isn't just a mage, she is a born spirit summoner. A crazy thought crosses his mind. Could he tank a hit from that? A reckless, excited grin plays on his lips. Suddenly, the dark sky is illuminated by a yellow flare. The battlefield freezes. Karak asks what the signal means. Shutra knows the code instantly. Retreat. Karak is confused. But Shutra's brain goes into overdrive. A retreat flare? Someone important is in critical danger. The orc looks to his liege for orders. Shutra makes the call. Take the troops and fall back. I need to save Caitlin. Carrick doesn't hesitate to object. He moves to follow, but the prince shuts him down cold. Orders are absolute. There might be a 4D chess move behind this retreat, and he needs the army safe. Carrick tries to argue, but Felicia steps up to the plate. She volunteers to escort Shutra into the fire instead. She refuses to owe anyone a favor, seeing this as the perfect chance to wipe her ledger clean. Besides, she has unfinished business with these pig-faced freaks. Defeated, Karak decides to trust the plan and wait for the prince topside. Catch you in a bit, Shutra says, creating a sonic boom as he and Felicia blitz toward Caitlin's last known location. She grills him on the detour. Why risk it? He plays it cool. Better safe than sorry, he claims, citing the suspicious retreat command. Felicia's stomach drops. She realizes Caitlin might have been captured, just like she was. Shutra silently prays that isn't the case. The plan requires the entire squad making it out alive. She notices the genuine concern in his eyes. He shrugs. It's only natural. She is my sister. But internally, it is purely about preserving a vital political alliance. Felicia narrows her eyes. That natural comment feels suspicious. Meanwhile, the orcs launch a surprise ambush. Caitlin goes full beast mode. She liquefies the first wave with a single punch before unleashing a hellfire barrage from the rear. Another squad tries to flank her. Big mistake. She dances back, weaving through their clumsy strikes before unsheathing her weapon. With one clean horizontal swing, she decimates the entire group. A total wipeout in seconds. Shutra and Felicia arrive just in time to witness the carnage. Shutra relaxes. Looks like the damsel in distress is actually the monster. Caitlin spots Shutra, confused why he hasn't escaped yet. Came to rescue you, he admits, but it looks like you handled business. Caitlin tilts her head, trying to process his logic. Then, her gaze locks onto Felicia. Ignoring protocol, Caitlin launches herself at the dark elf, tackling her in a massive bear hug. The relief is palpable. Felicia turns beet red, mumbling about how Caitlin worries too much. Shutra notes the wholesome vibe, but his minimap pings a warning. Red dots flood the radar. The enemy is circling back for round 2. We need to move. Now. Shutra takes point, leading the charge while the girls watch their six. They sprint for the portal, barely slipping through the exit as the enemy horde crashes behind them. The golden trio, Shutra, Felicia, and Caitlin, had finally escaped the jaws of death. They were safe at last. Felicia turned to Caitlin, desperate to verify the impossible rumors. Did Shutra really locate the portal? Caitlin nodded with fierce enthusiasm, hailing him as the absolute MVP of the entire operation. Felicia stared at the prince, her mind reeling in shock. Since when did this guy level up so aggressively? While the girls whispered about his shocking transformation, Shutra went to report to Chris. Relief washed over the commander as he scanned the survivors, until Caitlin proudly displayed her prize, Felicia. Caitlin presented the dark elf like a spoil of war. It has been a long time, Felicia said to Chris. The silence stretched, heavy and painful, before Chris finally replied, Yeah, it has. The tension between them was so thick it could be cut with a blade. Pure, suffocating awkwardness. Later, in a secluded corner of the cave, Chris, Felicia, Caitlin, and Shutra gathered for a war council. Chris dropped the heavy intel. General Vandal had secured the victory. Apparently, the enemy commander Yakazan retreated in a fury after watching his camp burn to ash. Yakazan? Shutra asked, unfamiliar with the name. Caitlin jumped in with the lore drop, explaining that he was the chieftain of the Scarlet Lightning tribe. She looked at Shutra with disbelief, as if asking, Did you hit your head? Felicia cut straight to the chase. Did he surrender? No, Chris clarified grimly. It looks like a tactical retreat. If he links up with the scattered remnants, he could still trigger a boss-level battle. That is why I plan to strike Kiram's forces next. If Yakazan joins them, this situation is going to become a massive headache. Strategy talk concluded. Chris turned his icy glare onto Felicia. So, what brings you to my neck of the woods? She claimed she was merely exploring nearby ruins and got captured trying to play hero when the battle erupted. Chris drilled holes into her with a skeptical stare. Is that the truth? She shot back immediately, defiance in her eyes. Are you calling me a liar? Sparks practically flew between them. Chris sighed, deciding not to press his luck today. He ordered everyone to rest. The orcs feasted like kings while the wounded patched their injuries. Shutra took a moment to check his status window. The grind was paying off, but honestly, his combat equipment was trash, except for that one aura skill. Suddenly, a voice snapped him out of his thoughts. It was Felicia, looking refreshed in a brand new outfit. Can I come in? She asked. What is up? He replied, checking the time. She walked right up to him, whispered his name, and grabbed his arm. Shutra froze, especially when she dropped the bombshell. Take off your clothes. His face went nuclear red in an instant. Shutra panicked. Was this turning into some weird step-sibling drama? Felicia repeated the order firmly. Why, though? He stammered, his eyes accidentally taking a tour of her curves. Do you want treatment, or not? She snapped at him. Shutra blinked, feeling foolish. She explained that what she did earlier was just a quick patch-up. He needed deep healing for internal damage. As she started casting her magic, Shutra mentally slapped himself for being a pervert. Suddenly, she paused. Is there something wrong with your body? It was glowing earlier. Shutra played dumb immediately. Nah, just a glitch. It happens sometimes. Changing the subject, he asked for a favor, something only she could do. A few moments later, the system pinged. Acquired. Cure level 1, which fixes status effects. Cure poison level 1 for toxins. And cure disease level 1 for sickness. Shutra grinned. Thanks to Felicia being a willing test subject, his skill tree was looking juicy. 3 healing spells down. Check. But today was the main event he had been waiting for. Caitlin dropped the lore. Beast Fist art is not just one style. It is a massive skill tree. Finally, Shutra gets to unlock the werewolf branch. This is the raw, feral combat style that defines the lycanthropes. It is basically the original foundation for the legendary Beast God Fist. That had to be why Caitlin was drilling this specific set into him. Beast Fist harnesses both external power and internal flow. The mission today, master the basics of that internal energy. Close your eyes, she commanded. Zone in. He felt it instantly. Aura. The pulse of life itself. It was the soul's jagged edge. Push that energy to the limit, and it practically becomes soul power manifest. Flash. A blinding light engulfed him. A system window pinged. Passive skill acquired. Protagonist's physique level 1. Whoa, he did not see that coming. This skill was a cheat code that skyrocketed training efficiency for any physical stats. As the skill levels up, it unlocks hidden perks. Talk about a broken build. He was stacking the Protagonist physique level 1 for muscle gains, the Extreme Demon's body level 1 for magic buffs, and Hero's blood level 1 to juice up his divine power. He was not just keeping up with top tiers like Zephyr or Locke anymore. He was rivaling them. Since traits unlock per level, this system is going to evolve into something monstrous. A wicked grin spread across his face. This is it. This is what main character energy feels like. He was buzzing with adrenaline. Caitlin snapped him out of it. He was losing focus. Eyes on the prize, she scolded. My bad. He shook it off. Time to get serious and actually grind this skill. Boom. Beast Fist art level 1 secured. The kid is a natural. He executes the forms with terrifying speed, his movements blurring into a whirlwind. Even empty-handed, his strikes carve the air as if wielding invisible blades of death. Caitlin prepares her next combo, but a wolf scout bursts in, howling disaster. Chaos erupts in the tent as Prince Chris drops the bombshell. Kurum's unit has gone dark, vanishing without a trace. Kiram has definitely anticipated their strategy. Caitlin turns to the prince, demanding the next move. General Bandal's intelligence reports that the Yakuza and Kurum forces are converging at a specific map coordinate. The pieces are moving. The terrain screams trap, and Shutra knows it. But they have no choice but to roll the dice. Chris makes the heavy call. We merge forces. They are joining General Bandal's main host. This is no longer a skirmish. They are entering total warfare against the Scarlet Lightning tribe. The scene cuts to the strike force's main base. General Bandal stands immovable like a towering mountain, awaiting Prince Chris's arrival. Chris meets his gaze. The old warhorse hasn't changed a bit. Bandal offers a stoic nod to the princess. It has been too long since their last reunion. Felicia inquires about the troop's status. Solid, he rumbles. Shutra watches from the side, fighting to suppress a knowing smirk. This man was his absolute favorite character back in Night Saga. Even seeing that terrifying, stern face in person feels strangely nostalgic. Shutra steps forward, introducing himself and grasping the hand of a living legend. Later, as sleep takes him, the goddess returns in the dream realm. However, she is not alone. Beside the divine figure stands a warrior woman clad in heavy, impenetrable armor, golden curls, piercing blue eyes, and a face partially obscured by a mask. She is encased in full plate, wreathed in swirling, living flames. They lock eyes with Shutra, staring into his very soul. An overwhelming pressure crushes him as visions of conquest and blood-soaked war flood his mind. Gasp, he wakes in a cold sweat. He recognizes the heterochromatic goddess, but the armored flame wielder remains a total mystery. Carrick rips the tent flap open. Let's move. We're rolling out. The squad scrambles into action, adrenaline pumping. Shutra is assigned to the left flank for the impending bloodbath, while General Bandal anchors the center with iron resolve. Chris and Caitlin command the right wing, with the swift dark elves forming a Spec Ops rear guard. The march begins, and hours blur into agonizing minutes. Suddenly, he finds himself in the mosh pit of war, a lone figure surrounded by thousands of thundering soldiers. He is so small he is practically drowning in a sea of massive ogre soldiers. General Bandel roars the command. Battle formation. The morale skyrockets. Show these bastards the true meaning of pain. The army charges, but the enemy holds the line. Their leader smirking like, "Look at these fools." Boom. A massive explosion rocks the rear guard. Bandel freezes, his eyes going wide. It is a trap. A colossal beast rises from the smoke and chaos. A swamp mammoth. Boss fight initiated. Boom. The earth screams as explosions rip through the battlefield. It is an instant massacre. Allied troops are getting ragdolled left and right by the sheer force. There is absolutely zero time to react. Even seasoned veterans like Carrick and Shutra are rattled. Shutra's gut drops into the abyss. He realizes they have walked straight into a death pit. Those scumbags had the entire stage rigged from the very start. Then comes the heavy hitter, the swamp mammoth. Do not let the name fool you. This is no museum exhibit. It is a hulking kaiju, a true monstrosity. Suddenly, a massive, scaly crocodile claw stomps into view, shaking the world. Enemy reinforcements swarm from the void. The squad looks back to see lizardmen closing the net. Chris begins seeing red. They have been played like fiddles. Caitlin makes the call immediately. We need to bail, retreat and regroup, but Chris claps back instantly. If they botch this withdrawal now, they won't just lose the battle, it will be a total party wipe. Caitlin points to the battlefield. Bodies are stacking up fast, and the death count is climbing by the second. They need a snap decision. She pushes hard for the retreat, and Chris finally snaps into true commander mode. Mages, form a defensive wall at the rear. Buy us every second you can. The rest of the unit scrambles to fall back. It is pure chaos. The lizardmen are slicing through the ogres like hot knives through butter. One lunges straight for Shutra, but Carrick blindsides the beast, smashing it before it can land a hit. He screams, "Wake up, kid. One slip up here, and we're all dead meat." Shutra snaps out of it, realizing this is no longer a game simulation. This is real life. Chris is drowning in a sea of enemies, hacking away with desperation. He roars his final order, "Survive. I command you to come back alive. Don't you dare die on me." Back at base, the lucky few who survived the ambush are getting patched up in the triage tent. Meanwhile, the brass Chris, Caitlin, Felicia, Shutra, and General Bandal huddle for a high-stakes emergency meeting. Chris owns it immediately. "My bad. I should have seen it coming." General Bandal cuts him off sharply. No use crying over spilled milk now. They have two options left. Pack up and go home, or beg the Demon King's castle for backup. Chris nods grimly. He is not about to let his ego get the rest of his subordinates slaughtered for the sake of pointless pride. He is about to call it quits when Felicia slams the brakes. "Wait," she says, her eyes lighting up with a dangerous spark. "I've got an idea." She spills the tea. The only reason she is out here in the boonies is to raid a specific, legendary ruin. Her gaze locked onto the horizon, the tail end of the perilous Gishka Mountains. Felicia might hold the prestigious title of an S-tier mage, but in the brutal world of Night Saga, she was a scholar, not a warrior. Every ounce of her potential was poured into research and archaeology. With a heavy thud, she slammed a map onto the war table. For years, she had been consumed by an obsession. A lost ruin, rumored to have slept within those peaks for 1,500 years. The lair of the Earth Dragon, Enkidu. A beast born from the magma itself. Legend said he commissioned an entire army to guard his hoard. We are talking about the master smiths of legend, the dwarves of Gishka. Enkidu armed them with god-tier weaponry solely to protect his treasure. And hidden within lies the holy grail of artifacts, the Anvil of Thunderborn. This relic grants more than just dominion over the Chimera Guardians. It allows the wielder to cast magic capable of wiping out entire armies. Felicia struck the table again, her eyes burning with intensity. If we want to secure this victory, we have no choice. We must find that anvil. This had been her crusade from the very beginning. General Vandal narrowed his eyes, his voice cold. "Do you have the coordinates?" She hesitated. She had to admit the truth. She didn't. That was where her knowledge ended. Chris scoffed, shaking his head. Useless. This wasn't tactical intelligence, it was a fairy tale. With enemies closing in, he refused to gamble his men's lives on a fantasy. He dismissed the entire plan as a foolish treasure hunt. Felicia grit her teeth, her frustration boiling over. But then, Shutra dropped a bombshell. The anvil is there, 100%. Felicia blinked, completely stunned by his absolute certainty. He knew it for a fact. In his past life as the gamer Locke, he had raided this dungeon countless times. But aloud, he spun a convenient lie. "I read about it in the ancient dwarven archives." Then, he delivered the killing blow. And honestly, I trust Felicia. Her jaw dropped. She looked at him, visibly moved by his support. But for Shutra, this was calculated. He was simply farming relationship points. Chris, however, wasn't buying this power of friendship speech. I don't care about trust. I care about time. Shutra could feel his annoyance rising at Chris's stubbornness. Shutra doubled down, his voice firm. Even my tribe, the Gandharva, has legends about this location. There is a high probability the entrance is nearby. If I go scout it, I guarantee I will sniff it out. And if I screw up, put it on my tab. I take full responsibility. He looked Chris dead in the eye, his gaze unwavering. Trust me, just this once. Since Chris was being a brick wall, Shutra had to go all in. That night, they mounted up on Felicia's summon. The phantom steed took to the skies, soaring into the darkness. The elite squad consisted of Felicia, Caitlin, Shutra, Karak, and 2 extra soldiers. Shutra was vibing, mentally celebrating the success of the mission already. He was busy planning his next move when Karak let out a blood-curdling scream. The orc was freaking out, clinging to the phantom steed for dear life. Shutra shouted back over the wind, "Hang on tight, big guy, or you're gonna become roadkill." Shutra assured him he would survive. He had total confidence in this ride. Why? Because in his gaming days, he had tamed the legendary Zephyr himself. He glanced at his holographic minimap. Cruising at this velocity, they would hit the ruins entrance in exactly 1 hour. With his cheat code map, pinpointing the loot was the easy part. The real headache? Guiding the party there without blowing his cover as a transmigrator. He racked his brain for a plausible excuse but drew a blank. He decided to just procrastinate until they landed. Trusting his gut to wing it, they finally touched down. Immediately, he started spouting nonsense about magical mechanics. He pretended to analyze the geometry of the tunnel. You see, there is a consistent mana flow in these layouts. Combine the terrain with the tunnel signatures, and boom. I can basically triangulate the anvil's location. He peeked at the group to see if his technobabble landed. They just stared at him in total confusion. He prayed to the system that they wouldn't ask follow-up questions. Felicia sighed, rubbing her temples. Whatever. Just lead the way. I'm assuming you know your stuff. Take point. He couldn't believe that weak bluff actually worked on an S-tier mage. He marched forward, oblivious to Felicia's pouty expression behind him. They trailed the prince until they hit a dead end. Karak gave him the side-eye, skepticism written all over his face. Boss, you sure this is the spot? Looks like a solid wall to me. Shutra smirked. Who said anything about a door? Caitlin. Smash this open. Caitlin blinked, totally caught off guard by the order. Give it your best shot, he urged. Felicia's eyes widened in realization. The Thunderborn anvil must be buried deep inside the cliff face. This was Shutra's logic. If they busted through here, they would skip the annoying dungeon guardians entirely. Break the wall, Caitlin. Felicia snapped at him. Are you delusional? You expect her to punch through a mountain? She is a fighter, not a siege engine. Shutra froze. He realized too late that he had no backup plan for the wall. But then, Felicia summoned a swirling vortex in her palm. Rookie mistake. Every ruin explorer needs miners and explosives. She hurled a devastating wind blast at the cliff. Boom! The rock face crumbled into dust, revealing a hidden tunnel. She couldn't believe her eyes. Actual speedrun strategies. Is the anvil inside that? Shutra nodded. It's the final lock. The prize is inside. Karak cracked his knuckles. So, we break it. Shutra panicked. Do not smash. One wrong hit and the loot is toast. He frantically searched the surface for a hidden switch. Felicia watched him like a hawk. Then, the statues caught her attention. Something was suspicious. Of the 9 imposing figures before them, 3 held weapons, while 6 stood with empty hands. Caitlin spotted the discrepancy immediately. Perhaps we need to arm the rest, she suggested. Felicia's expression darkened. It is not that simple. Those statues grip authentic dwarven steel. To trigger them, we need 6 matching blades of the same legendary make. And where exactly do we find 6 legendary swords in this wasteland? Shutra fought back a smirk. Funny you should ask, he quipped. I happen to have 6 right here. With a thought, he pulled the weapons directly from his inventory. He claimed he stashed them ages ago when his level was too low to equip them, grabbing them as spares. A smooth lie. Karak's jaw practically hit the floor. You carried 6 massive broadswords in that tiny bag? The ogre asked. He was sharp. Too sharp. Shutra was beginning to loathe how perceptive this brute actually was. Shutra waved him off, dodging the interrogation. Here, hold this, Karak. He tossed a heavy blade. The ogre immediately whined about his supposedly frail back. As the final sword clicked into place, the statue's eyes erupted with light. A deafening mechanical grind echoed through the hall, and the massive half-dome began to split open. The suspense hung heavy in the air. Shutra gasped. It was real. The legendary Anvil of Thunder. But Felicia cut the celebration short. Wait, the records demand an activation ritual, she shouted, taking command. Shutra, hold your ground. Everyone else, take positions at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. On my signal, pour your mana into the disc. I will ignite the flow from the center. The mechanism began to rotate clockwise. They needed to ramp up the mana output, slow and steady. Every member stood locked in position, sweat forming on their brows. Focus, she screamed. As the energy surged, she ordered Shutra to dig deeper, to push his mana harder than ever before. When the energy hit the critical point, she commanded him to freeze. One slip in concentration now, and they would all be obliterated. They held the line against the torrent. Waves of raw mana slammed against the anvil. Shutra fought with every ounce of strength just to keep his footing. He was hitting his absolute limit when boom, a pillar of blinding light pierced the heavens. Thick, suffocating smoke instantly choked the entire chamber. Shutra blinked through the haze, disoriented. The world shifted. Suddenly, he stood surrounded by ancient warriors and a terrifying beast. Legions of creatures marched in perfect sync. He was lost in the chaos of war. Then, a voice boomed like thunder from above. My vassals, heed my words. Shutra snapped his gaze skyward. A massive shadow blotted out the sun. A winged titan descended. It commanded them with absolute authority. Defend the sacred nest of the great Enkidu. Their mission: stand as the ultimate gatekeepers between the demon realm and the human world. Then snap. Shutra was back in reality, heaving for air, his lungs burning. There was no doubt. That was a black dragon. It had to be the earth dragon, Enkidu. Felicia, pale as a ghost, asked the question on everyone's mind. Did you see the nightmare too? She described it perfectly. A colossus of obsidian scales with veins glowing like molten lava. Karak nodded grimly. He saw it too. Was it a shared hallucination? Felicia had a hunch. But the pieces of this puzzle were not fitting just yet. Her eyes locked onto the artifact. The anvil held the truth. She hesitated for a split second, then slapped her hand directly onto the cold metal. Blinding violet light erupted. Black mist coiled around her hand like a constricting viper. She was losing control. Shutra lunged to stop her, shock written all over his face. But it was too late. Felicia let out a blood-curdling scream. Caitlin and Karak watched in horror. Now Shutra was screaming too. A voice echoed inside his skull. Conquer the Earth Dragon, Enkidu, a monarch's trial for the unauthorized. To conquer means to dominate. No mercy. Caitlin and Karak froze in place. Shutra stood there, his body radiating ominous light. He gripped a pitch-black hammer, but he looked wrong, possessed. His right eye had become an abyss of pure black. Meanwhile, back at the base camp, an enemy scout peered over the cliff's edge. The camp sat like a duck between the canyon walls. The enemy smirked. Total amateurs, thinking they were safe in such a vulnerable spot. Please, an orc grunt asked for orders, waiting on Lord Yakuzan's signal. Yakuzan surveyed his troops with cold eyes. Gear up. We are wiping out the leftovers. Down in the camp, the ogre spotted a flare tearing through the night sky. But that was no star. It was a bombardment. Fireballs rained down like judgment, obliterating tents and soldiers instantly. Then came the ground assault. Enemy forces, led by a massive swamp mammoth, crashed into the lines. Chris was caught flat-footed. Panic set in. No, Caitlin. No, Felicia. They were staring down the barrel of total annihilation. Explosions rocked the valley, while Yakuzan watched from the ridge, satisfied. He laughed, mocking the defenders for their stupidity. They do not know their place. Destroy them all. Suddenly an enemy mage froze in terror. Down below, the swamp mammoth started glowing. Its eyes shifted color. It spun around and trampled its own masters. Yakuzan's smile vanished instantly. What is happening? Chris watched from a distance, jaw on the floor. The cause? That black hammer. They actually found the artifact. Shutra was wielding it. Chris stammered. What is that thing? Felicia, weak but conscious, whispered the answer. The thunder hammer, mate to the anvil. Enkidu has chosen his champion. An elf rushed to prop Felicia up as she spoke. Shutra stared at his hands in disbelief until Felicia shouted, Use it! He gazed at the weapon. The dragon's mana flooded his mind with instructions. The command echoed in his soul. Conquer, subjugate, obey. This was the anvil's true power, the birth of thunder. He raised the massive thunder hammer high, locking his sights on the swamp mammoth. A blinding violet beam erupted from the anvil, screaming across the battlefield. The beast was bathed in purple radiance and instantly went berserk. The orcs began losing their minds in confusion. Why was their own war machine attacking them? To make matters worse, they were completely encircled. General Vandal launched his counterattack, watching with satisfaction as the mammoth crushed the Scarlet Lightning tribe. A savage grin spread across his face. The prince and princess had actually pulled it off. He roared to his troops, his voice shaking the earth. This is our moment. Slaughter them all. Leave no survivors. The armies clashed in a chaotic frenzy of steel and blood. Commander Yakuzan watched in horror as his battle plan crumbled to dust. Why was the beast betraying them? His adjutant trembled beside him. Someone is controlling it with god-tier mana. Yakuzan gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his forehead. Pull back. We wait for the next opening. But Yakuzan wasn't having it. His face twisted in pure rage. But before he could make a move, boom! A massive explosion ripped through the air directly behind him. As the smoke cleared, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Chris. Chris stared him down with eyes as cold as ice. Game over, Yakuzan. Surrender now, and I will grant you a quick and painless death. Yakuzan refused to yield. He spat a curse and lunged forward, screaming like a maniac. Chris simply sighed, his brows knitting together in mild annoyance. Secret technique. Beast God Fist. He moved faster than a heartbeat, a blur of lethal motion that the eye couldn't follow. Squelch. Yakuzan's head hit the dirt before his body even realized it was dead. The silence that followed was deafening. The enemy adjutant and mage watched in frozen horror before scrambling away, screaming, "The chieftain is down! Run!" Absolute panic consumed the enemy ranks. Terror seized them all. Now, it was just cleanup duty for Chris's squad as they hunted down the stragglers. Chris exhaled slowly, the adrenaline finally fading from his system. He knew the truth. If it wasn't for those 2 royal reinforcements, his team would have been completely annihilated. He glanced up at the sky, praying the other front was holding the line. Meanwhile, a magical interface projected the battlefield's chaos in real time. Carrick watched, his jaw on the floor. He couldn't believe the point of view. They were seeing literally through the eyes of the swamp mammoths. Felicia, looking deathly pale, explained through ragged breaths. With the anvil, I am the puppet master. I can override every treasure guardian within range. She offered a weak smirk. With this kind of firepower, the Scarlet Lightning tribe is finished. But the mana drain hit her like a truck. Her knees buckled. Thump. Luckily, the elf had reflexes of steel and caught her mid-fall. Hey, are you good? Felicia waved it off, her voice trembling. Just battery low. I need a recharge. I will be fine. The soldiers looked around nervously, whispering suggestions. Maybe we find a safer spot to camp? But then, the atmosphere shifted. Someone realized there was a void in the group. Shutra had ghosted them. Cut to Shutra, chilling in a quiet corner, finally catching his breath. Ding. The system went crazy with notifications. Level up. His stats were skyrocketing at an impossible rate. It had to be the perks of controlling the Relic of Enkidu. That experience point gain was insane. Another ping flashed on his retina. Conquest skill. Leveled up. He swiped open the interface. Even his Under the King's Banner skill had ascended to the next tier. It seemed intrinsically linked to Conquest. He didn't have all the specs yet, but the synergy was undeniable. If his main skills were buffing each other, that was a massive victory. Then, he noticed a new entry. King's Knight. Huh? It sounded like a summoner class ability. Before he could theorycraft, a familiar voice snapped him out of his trance. Caitlin. Oh, right. He had dipped without saying a word. He opened his mouth to apologize. Whack! She delivered a solid knuckle sandwich right to his skull. You idiot! You don't just vanish like that, she hissed. He rubbed his throbbing head, muttering a quiet, my bad. Seeing he was in one piece, she sighed and let it slide. But the mission isn't over. We have to bounce back to the group, she said. Looks like we are camping here tonight. Shutra tilted his head in confusion. Thought we were heading straight back to base? Caitlin grimaced. Change of plans. We hit a snag. Shutra raised an eyebrow. The snag? Felicia is down for the count. Turns out, she just got out of prison. After being held by the Scarlet Lightning tribe, the magic overuse fried her circuits. She pushed past her red line. Caitlin looked genuinely worried. She claims she just needs sleep, but she is comatose right now. And no Felicia meant no Phantom Steed taxi service. They were grounded. All they could do was monitor her vitals and wait. Shutra felt a knot of worry tighten in his chest. That night, the whole camp was snoozing, but Shutra was wired. Maybe the level up refreshed his stamina pool, because strangely, he felt zero fatigue. He considered staring at the wall until sunrise, but then he remembered he was sitting inside an unexplored ruin. And ruins equaled loot. Dungeons meant hidden caches and elite gear. Sure, usually there were traps, but he gripped the thunderhammer tightly. This bad boy was the admin key. He was basically the landlord of this dungeon now. The anvil's power was absolute inside these walls. In other words, he had a VIP all-access pass. He glanced at Carrick, who was snoring peacefully on the stone floor. Shutra nudged him awake. Get up. We are going looting. They crept down a torch-lit corridor. Carrick was sweating bullets. Boss. Are we sure we should just walk in? He looked ready to bolt. Shutra just smirked, exuding pure main character energy. I own this place. Nothing to worry about. Shutra explained that since this was a ruin, legendary weapons were practically guaranteed to be stashed somewhere. That statement woke Karak up. He pushed open a heavy stone door, but instantly froze in his tracks. A sharp gasp escaped his lips. Standing there was a nightmare made of stone. Shutra waved a hand casually. Chill. It's just an arch-golem. Griffin model. Karak didn't chill. To him, that monster looked like a guaranteed one-way ticket to the afterlife. If they had stumbled in here blind without the admin key, they would have been splattered on the walls. Don't say stuff like that, Karak squeaked. Let's get out of here. He was terrified of the dormant giant. He wasn't about that boss fight life. Shutra just rolled his eyes. Don't be a chicken. I'm not a chicken. I'm strategic, Karak argued. They pushed deeper into the next chamber. Jackpot. The room glittered with treasure. Karak's eyes bugged out as he lifted a massive chest plate. Look at this beauty, Shutra nodded. Looks sick on you. I can feel the mana humming from here. That's high-tier magic armor. He looked at the orc. You want it? Karak stopped breathing. For real? Mine? Yeah, it's sized for a tank, not me. Take it. Karak looked like he might cry with joy. Then, something else caught the prince's eye. Ancient gold coins glinting in the torchlight. Shutra went full loot goblin mode, sweeping every useful item straight into his inventory. He barked at Karak to grab everything that wasn't nailed down. Then, a lone treasure chest caught his attention. Curiosity piqued. He cracked the lid. Click. Instead of gold, a hidden mechanism triggered. A secret door groaned open. A secret instance. His adrenaline spiked, heart pounding with anticipation. He stepped into the gloom. The narrow passage gave way to a massive, sprawling chamber. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind. A dense, familiar mana pulsed from the center of the room, beckoning him closer. He'd never laid eyes on it before, yet the name crashed into his consciousness. Enkidu, that was the legendary gauntlet, Earthquake. Shutra locked eyes with the artifact. It spoke directly to his soul, hailing him as the valiant knight of conquest. Drawn in by its call, he stepped forward. He reached out and grabbed it. BZZT. System red flags popped up immediately. Insufficient level, mana, and mental strength. He was way underleveled for this gear. He realized he wasn't worthy yet, but the gauntlet had other ideas. It flared with light, overriding the restrictions. Ping. The system confirmed. Earthquake had chosen him as its master. Ownership transferred to Shutra instantly. As he slipped it on, his hand erupted in light and searing pain tore through his nerves. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to endure the burn. It was worth it. The stats were insane. Strength, mana, and endurance all boosted by a solid 10 points. A 10-point jump just from equipping an item that was broken? He hadn't expected a buff that massive. Just imagine the power scaling once he actually leveled up. A satisfied smirk tugged at his lips. This loot was definitely S tier. What just happened? Karak's voice boomed from behind, nearly making Shutra jump out of his skin. How long have you been standing there? Shutra demanded. The ogre shrugged, admitting he'd seen the whole light show, including the gauntlet materializing out of thin air. Crap. He hadn't accounted for an audience. If word got out about his spatial inventory ability, it would be a massive headache. But Karak wasn't stupid. He knew that kind of power attracted the wrong kind of attention. He swore to keep his mouth shut just between bros. The ogre vowed to take the secret to his grave. Shutra felt a rare moment of genuine gratitude. We got what we came for, Karak grunted. Let's bounce. This place gives me the creeps, Karak muttered, scanning the shadows. Bad vibes all around. Shutra nodded in agreement. They started trekking back through the treasure room. But suddenly, something glittered in his peripheral vision. Hold up, Shutra commanded. The ogre groaned. What is it this time? Shutra just pointed silently toward a corner. Karak squinted, looking confused. Shutra smirked. That right there? That's exactly what we've been looking for. Cut to later. Shutra tipped a glowing potion into Felicia's mouth. Light enveloped her body as her eyes fluttered open. You with us? He asked, while Caitlin practically collapsed with relief. What happened? Felicia murmured. Caitlin explained. Shutra came through. He brought back a mana recovery potion. Where did you even find that? She asked weakly. Shutra raised an eyebrow. Did you guys forget where we are? They were in the ruins. And he was the ruler of the ruins, remember? He told her to chill and rest up. By the time you wake up, your mana will be topped off, he assured her. Felicia looked at him, eyes soft. Thank you. Shutra didn't catch it the first time. She repeated it louder, cheeks turning pink with embarrassment. Sunrise broke as they marched back into camp. Bandel threw his arms up, roaring, "They're back!" He was beaming, claiming he knew they'd crush it all along. While Bandel praised the squad, Chris awkwardly cleared his throat. Shutra caught the shift in the air immediately. The man was stammering, his face burning a bright crimson as he tried to form words. Chris turned to Felicia, his voice steady but warm. You did an impressive job. Felicia flipped her hair, feigning indifference to maintain her cool exterior. Naturally. But Shutra watched the sparks fly between them. A knowing smirk plastered across his face. Go get some rest. Chris told them, finally regaining his composure. We will handle the cleanup from here. Shutra blinked, confused. Wait, it is not over? Chris explained that remnants of the Scarlet Lightning tribe were still lurking in the shadows, waiting to be purged. Give us half a month, Chris stated. We will have this place fully secured by then. Shutra's eyes lit up with excitement. 2 weeks of downtime. Vacation time. But Caitlin leaned in, her voice dropping to a dark, dangerous whisper. Vacation? In your dreams, she murmured, invading his personal space. Shutra flushed, his cheeks turning red as she reminded him of their pact. You and I still have unfinished business. Cut to a beautiful sunny day and Shutra getting absolutely decked by Caitlin's fist. Focus, she yelled, her aura flaring. Get it together or you are going to get hurt. Get your ass up, now. He groaned on the ground, his muscles barely able to twitch. He knew mastering the beast fist art would be grueling, but this was pure torture. That unfinished business she mentioned? Yeah, it was just her beating the living hell out of him in the name of training. For the first 5 days, he was nothing more than a punching bag. It took a full week before his eyes could even track Caitlin's lightning-fast strikes. But by day 11, something changed. He squared up against her. This time, he was not just tanking hits, he was reacting. Caitlin noticed the shift immediately. Not bad, she thought, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Took me long enough, he panted, wiping a streak of blood from his lip. All those brutal beatings were finally clicking into lethal muscle memory. Thanks to the hellish daily grind, both his beast fist art and his aura had just hit level 5. Caitlin nodded, satisfied with his progress. You are ready. Time to learn the beast god fist art. Shutra's fatigue vanished instantly, replaced by pure, adrenaline-fueled hype. I am impressed, she admitted, her guard lowering slightly. I have never seen anyone learn this fast. A massive, proud grin spread across Shutra's face. He realized he had finally unlocked the ancestral secrets of the lycanthropes, the ultimate beast god fist art. It was time for Caitlin to show him a whole new way to channel aura. She gripped his hand tight, warning him to pay close attention and match her spiritual flow. You got this? She asked intently. Yeah. Boom. Their hands ignited, and a blinding blue energy swallowed him whole. He could feel Caitlin's energy surging through his veins, guiding the path like a roaring river. It felt familiar, like the beast fist, but evolved, different. He sensed the sheer depth of it, waves of aura, the raw pulse of life itself. But when you push that power to the absolute limit, it transforms into something spiritual, pure soul power. As his mind started to drift into the trance, his thoughts locked onto the concept of conquest, total domination. It meant forcing the world to kneel, a ferocious, overwhelming pressure. It felt like sinking into the crushing depths of the deep ocean. Was this the true nature of aura? The light around them flared brighter, turning a blinding white. Then, that familiar system ping chimed in. His beast fist proficiency and aura stats just spiked. Caitlin stared at him, totally shook that he actually pulled it off on the first try. Blue energy wreathed his hands as the system dropped the big news. Beast God Fist Art, level 1 acquired. With the concept of Earthshaker in his mind, he let the power rip. He dissipated the aura, and wham! A massive shockwave blasted outward, gouging a deep crater right into the earth. Level 14 unlocked. He smirked. This was not just training anymore. The real game had just begun, but he missed one detail. Someone was watching from the shadows. Vandal, and that man had a very satisfied, predatory look on his face. The next morning, Shutra and Caitlin grabbed some breakfast, but Shutra had business on his mind, specifically regarding Felicia. He had to know the deal with her and Chris. Shutra needed Felicia on his squad, just like he needed Chris. But if those two had beef, it was going to be a major headache for his master plan. He noticed they were not enemies, but the vibe between them was definitely icy. Caitlin admitted it was not due to specific drama, at least not directly. She was not 100% sure, but her gut said it involved Chris and Sylvan. The second Shutra dropped that name, Caitlin snapped. Even if Sylvan was not there, you do not just toss that name around casually. Shutra apologized, explaining he was just caught off guard. Felicia's twin, Sylvan Doomblade. Back when Shutra lived his past life as Zephyr, that guy was an absolute nightmare to deal with. Just as he pressed for details on the Chris and Sylvan drama, Chris burst into the tent out of nowhere. They jumped, startled. Caitlin asked why he was back so soon. Chris did not waste time. Pack it up. We are done here early. We move out this afternoon. Shutra asked where they were headed, and Chris gave him a look that said, "Are you for real? The job is done. So, we report back." Before they left, Vandal stepped up to shake Shutra's hand, giving props to the prince and princess for their grind. He looked the ninth prince in the eye and said he hoped their paths would cross again. "I will be waiting," Shutra shot back with a grin. Chris yelled, "We are ready." Yeah, next stop, the Demon King's castle. Meanwhile, back at the fortress, the vibes were straight up sinister. A colossal figure loomed upon the throne, clad in impenetrable plate armor, the Demon King himself. The journey back was theoretically simple. Phase 1. Activate the long-range teleportation circle. Phase 2. Warp magic directly into the heart of the Demon King's castle. Sounds easy on paper, but reaching that first circle was a brutal 3-day trek, and this was no luxury cruise. No rest, no breaks, just relentless momentum. It meant another night of sleeping under the unforgiving stars was locked in. They would breach the castle gates by tomorrow, and Shutra felt the crushing weight of reality. That place wasn't a home. It was a shark tank divided by 3 monstrous factions. First, there was the second prince, Zephyr Ragnaros, Shutra's ultimate nemesis. Then came the first prince, Baal Ragnaros, and the fourth princess, Anastasia Necron. In this battle royale for the throne, birth order meant absolutely zero. It was a pure meritocracy. Stack up achievements, display superior power, and you seize the crown. That was the iron law. Baal and Zephyr were full brothers, dead even in terrifying skill. They both carried the draconian bloodline from their mother's side, granting them insane physical might. If you had to bet on an heir right now, the composed, moderate eldest son, Baal, was the smart money. But Shutra knew the truth. None of that mattered. A day of reckoning was approaching that would flip the script entirely. That was why he had to prepare for every chaotic scenario. Priority number 1, power leveling. He needed to master the Earthshaker and maximize his new cheat skill, the King's Knight. He triggered the ability. Boom. Knight Order created. Shutra thought it was just a summon gimmick, but the system interface revealed something far deeper. Rank. Knight Commander. Current roster. 0 out of 2. Trainees. None. It was time to recruit. He checked his stats and realized he was sitting on a jagged gold mine. The Knight Order was at level 1, unlocking the Knight's Blessing, a massive passive buff to his total health pool. But the real game changer was the special ability, Summon. Even at level 1, it allowed him to call forth a Knight Commander once every 3 days. It was basically a full-blown guild system packed into a single skill slot. He couldn't believe how broken this mechanics was. It was already overpowered at level 1. Just imagining the god-tier potential in the late game set his blood on fire. Suddenly, Carrick stormed in, shattering his daydream. The ogre started nagging him again, barking at him to hit the sack if he wanted to survive the early morning departure. Carrick was impatient to get moving. Shutra just smirked at the beast. Actually, you're right on time. He invited the big guy to be a guinea pig for a little experiment. Karak actually flinched. What experiment? The ogre grunted, stepping back. Under the pale moonlight, Shutra raised his blade. His voice rang with absolute authority. Mighty ogre warrior, Carrick. He formally appointed the beast as his first knight. A blinding light engulfed the ogre's massive frame. Carrick felt a seismic shift deep in his gut. His loyalty stat was skyrocketing through the roof. Boom. Carrick, level 24, instantly evolved into a Knight Commander and a rank 1 soldier. The experiment was a total success. Shutra was beaming. Carrick flexed, confused by the sudden overflow of power, but he definitely wasn't complaining. Shutra grinned like a madman. Do you want to become the strongest ogre in history? Caught up in the adrenaline, Shutra started rambling about raising him into the legendary ogre emperor from the Night Saga lore. Carrick squinted at him with pure suspicion, wondering if his master was running a fever or just losing his mind. The next morning, beneath the towering spire, Chris and the squad approached the gate. He looked back at Shutra. You ready for this? Let's do it, Shutra replied, eyes steeled. They stepped into the magic circle and zap. A pillar of light blasted them straight into the heavens. Transition to the other side. Shutra felt his stomach drop into his shoes, terrified. He was free-falling face first into the abyss, but he stuck the landing perfectly. You good? Caitlin asked, checking his status. Yeah, I'm solid, he breathed, steadying his heart. Suddenly, a voice pierced the air. Lady Felicia. Her personal entourage had been camping out, desperate for her return. She dove into the crowd, soaking up the adulation. To Shutra, it looked like a literal fan club. He realized quickly those were her subordinates. Then, a delegation marched over to officially welcome Chris and Caitlin. Shutra looked around. Crickets. For Shutra, absolute silence. The dark elves whispered among themselves, snickering as they eyed the reject prince. The message was loud and clear. He was at the bottom of the food chain in the Demon King's castle. He shrugged it off. He knew the score anyway. He turned to his partner. You ready, Carrick? Because this was ground zero. From this moment on, they were going to flip the script on this entire castle, one move at a time. They were led to their new quarters, a dusty, glorified broom closet that looked more like a storage unit than a room. This was home base. Shutra was just grateful to have a roof over his head. Carrick started unpacking but paused, realizing something. The official event schedule didn't kick off until tomorrow. That meant free time. Shutra sighed. Doesn't feel like freedom when we're left to rot in a dump like this. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the room. It was Flora, the 7th ward from the castle's real estate management bureau. Shutra raised an eyebrow. Why would a high-ranking official descend to a dilapidated hole-in-the-wall like this? She offered a perfectly practiced, professional smile. Your public merit level has skyrocketed. You are now eligible for an immediate residence upgrade. Isabella from the Office of Public Merits strolled in with confident grace. Is it true? Shutra asked, hardly daring to believe it. Can I really move? You certainly came to the right place. She swiped open a shimmering holographic interface. Ding! Conquest complete. His merit level had officially hit level 5, racking up a staggering 15,000 points. The system began scrolling through his highlight reel, a testament to his rising legend. Discovered the dwarf's secret mine and portal? Check. Crushed the Scarlet Lightning Tribe's chief? Check. His elite unit executing the mission flawlessly? Done. Saving the 7th princess? A massive check. Rescuing Felicia Doomblade, leading the frontal assault, and claiming the legendary Thunderbird Anvil. Finally, bringing the entire Scarlet Lightning Tribe under his banner. The rewards were instantaneous. Restricted sections of the Demon King's castle were now unlocked, and his monthly allowance just went vertical. It jumped from a pathetic 5 gold to a staggering 500. He was the first prince in history to secure this much loot on a debut mission. Show me the mansions now. Later that day, Karak's jaw hit the floor. He couldn't believe this palace was their new base of operations. Flora bowed gracefully before them. We prepared this in advance for you, my lord. It is an honor to serve. Effective immediately, Flora was functioning as his head maid and butler. She was a devout follower of Camilla, the goddess of dreams and shadows. Karak scratched his head in confusion. Wait, didn't you say you worked in real estate? I hired her using merit points, Shutra explained. It was basically premium currency earned by being an absolute boss. He didn't bother explaining the complex mechanics. No need for Karak to get a headache over the fine print. You're speaking gibberish again, the orc grumbled. The next morning, the team was decked out in immaculate formal wear. Karak shifted uncomfortably in his suit. I keep feeling like I've got a leak. Is it just nerves? He asked. That is gross, dude. Shutra sighed. Just go handle it already. He ramped up the tension by announcing a sudden arrival, only to hit them with a massive compliment. You guys look fire. Turns out, Felicia had styled their entire aesthetic personally. Caitlin didn't miss a beat. I'm the best, aren't I? She chirped. The grind had finally paid off. She turned to Shutra, grinning mischievously. And look at you, sharp as hell. He got flustered, stammering out a thank you before shooting the compliment right back. You both look stunning. That got their cheeks flushed red instantly. Then, Chris rolled up to the scene. He clocked that this was Shutra's big debut at an audience ceremony. He clapped a heavy hand on his shoulder. Today, you're the main character. Go out there, Chris urged. Make everyone in the Demon King's castle acknowledge you. Shutra straightened his back. Count on it. He knew the whispers were already starting the doubters who chalked his wins up to dumb luck. As he scanned the room, the heavy gaze of the vassals bore down on him. But Shutra wasn't backing down. Watch me, he thought. Soon, you won't be able to look away. The doors groaned open, and the royal siblings strode in. He was ready to force them to reevaluate the worthless prince they had written off. In unison, the siblings dropped to one knee before the ultimate power. The Demon King sat on the throne, a looming shadow of absolute authority. Chris broke the silence, his voice booming as he introduced himself to the absolute ruler of the demon realm. Demon King Mitra peered down at them, golden eyes pierced through the gloom, framed by brown hair and a thick beard. Surprisingly, his features were almost human. Beside him, an aide stepped forward, ready to list the siblings' accolades one by one. This was the patriarch, the father of every demon, prince, and princess standing in that hall. Shutra had momentarily forgotten the golden rule. In this castle, Mitra was the one entity you never, ever underestimated. Kneeling there, the pressure was crushing. Physical. Heavy. Just existing in Mitra's presence felt like his body was being ground into dust. Then, the goddess's voice cut through the fear. Conquer. A warm, golden light ignited in his chest. Remember, she whispered. You are a king, too. She urged him to fight back, to take that suffocating gaze and crush it under his own will. The golden glow surged outward from his core, the power of conquest. Fueled by it, Shutra lifted his head, locking eyes with the monster on the throne. Mitra met his stare and spoke his name. The room went dead silent. Jaws hit the floor. Shutra didn't flinch, holding the gaze, even though his heart skipped a beat. Then, the unthinkable happened. I look forward to your future achievements, Mitra rumbled. Pandemonium in the throne room. Confusion rippled through the crowd. The Demon King never addressed the princes directly, not by name, not in a formal audience. So why him? Why the 9th prince, the invisible nobody? The words were basic, but coming from the Demon King, It was unprecedented, a historic anomaly that made the praise priceless. Shutra bowed low. I will do everything within my power to surpass your expectations. And with those words, Shutra Ignis crushed his debut audience, searing his image into the minds of every soul present. The crack of dawn broke the horizon. Shutra blinked awake, shaking off the haze of sleep, groggy and confused. Karak, what is going on? The sun was barely up. Karak held out a heavy envelope, a letter, from the Office of Public Merits. It just arrived. Shutra took it, his mind racing. Why now? He tore the seal open, and his eyes widened in shock. Karak leaned in, burning with curiosity. Well? Read it. Shutra hesitated. A turbulent mixture of dread and excitement settled in his gut. It was a direct order, a personal mission from the Demon King himself. Later, Shutra gathered Chris and Caitlin to debrief them. Subjugate the Cassius herd. Translation: Go exterminate a legion of monsters. Caitlin noted grimly. That means you are heading to the Anger Plains. Shutra nodded. The Centaur territory. Chris and I trained there once, she added, her voice carrying the weight of the memory. Apparently, wiping out the Cassius herd was practically an annual tradition for the royals. Chris looked ready to gear up, but they had their own grind to handle. Caitlin smiled warmly. Don't worry, Shutra has got this solo mission. But Chris frowned, his voice dropping to a serious whisper. People are watching you now. They are going to try to get close, or they will be watching for a single mistake. Watch your back. Shutra knew he was right. Even Zephyr had mentioned the anomaly. Being name-dropped by the king changed the entire game. If things get dangerous, come to me, Chris said, his eyes intense. Seriously. Shutra nodded, grateful. Thanks, brother. Oh, and see Felicia before you bounce. She has something for you. By the time Shutra packed his gear, the sky was still a cold gray. Felicia was waiting. She knew trekking through the Centaur lands was a nightmare, so she had hooked him up with top-tier mounts. Shutra thanked her, but she wasn't done. She held out a shimmering gem, a dark elf's tear. Shutra froze. She was handing over a sacred racial treasure. Under normal circumstances, you would have to kill a dark elf just to lay hands on one of these. We dark elves are proud, she murmured softly. We never forget a kindness. Or a grudge. Then she pulled him into a tight hug. Come back in one piece, okay? Shutra blinked, his face heating up. He hadn't expected the affection. He opened his mouth to reply, but she shoved him away hard. She looked aside, flustered, realizing she might have let her guard down too much. Shutra and Karak wasted no time loading the mounts onto the teleportation circle. As the magic hummed to life, he waved. Stay healthy, Felicia. See you soon. Then, a flash of light, and he was gone. Felicia watched the empty space, a soft smile on her lips. Meanwhile, at the Anger Plains, boom! Shutra, Karak, and their mounts materialized out of thin air. Karak scanned the horizon, making sure the teleportation actually stuck. Suddenly, a presence locked onto them from the 6 o'clock position. Greetings, Ninth Prince. It was Karma, the elite ranger assigned to be their GPS in this wild territory. Shutra took a second to process the visual. Human from the waist up, pure beast horsepower from the waist down. He kept his composure smooth. Pleasure to meet you, she bowed, dropping a humble brag about it being an honor, despite her monstrous form. Shutra just nodded. He knew the value of a centaur when he saw one. There was no time for small talk. They launched immediately, tearing across the plains at breakneck speed. Shutra and Karak were barely holding on. Mid-gallop, Karma dropped the ETA. It is going to be a grueling 2-day sprint to hit the main centaur settlement. Her plan was simple. Full throttle, minimal stops, pure endurance. Shutra didn't even blink. Lead the way. She glanced back, doing a quick head count. Where is the army? Shutra shrugged. Emergency deployment. Just us two for now. Karma didn't panic. We have the centaur tribes. We won't be outnumbered. Shutra's tactical brain started spinning. This was going to be a massive group brawl. And in a chaotic melee like that, weapon choice is everything. Mounted combat means range is king. He needed a spear. Stat. Snap. A noise cut through the wind. Shutra signaled. What was that? Karma held a hand up. Hold position. I'm on it. She blurred forward, skidding to a halt at the edge of a cliff. Her eyes went wide. What she saw down there made her blood run cold. The Cassius herd. They shouldn't be here. These wolf monsters were ferocious, and right now, they were hunting a lone centaur. Teeth bared, growling like chainsaws. The prey was paralyzed with fear. But Shutra? He didn't hesitate. He slammed his mount into the leaping wolf, knocking the beast out of the air like a wrecking ball. His ride stumbled, but found its footing. The rescued centaur stared at Shutra like he was a ghost. But the wolf pack wasn't running. They were swarming. Looks like the welcome party arrived early. Perfect. Shutra had been itching to throw hands anyway. Vroom! His gauntlet lit up with neon energy. Come get some, you mutts! The centaur gasped. Wait, are you the prince? The Alpha stepped up, a massive, scarred creature. It roared, shaking the ground, and charged straight for Shutra. No minions. Boss fight now. Karma and Karak screamed from the back line. Prince, pull back. Karak was losing his mind over the reckless charge. It was too dangerous. But Shutra ignored the warning. I've got this. Just watch. Shutra bails off his mount mid-stride, launching himself like a missile directly at the Alpha. Mid-air, he winds up the strike. He is betting everything on the Beast God Fist. The ultimate technique, he ground himself to dust to perfect. The energy output is absolutely insane. The Alpha roars, but Shutra roars louder. Explosive fist impact. The shockwave is so violent it nearly knocks Karak and Karma off their feet. Silence falls as the dust clears. The Alpha's body is still standing, but the head? Gone. Cleanly decapitated in a single hit. The rest of the pack freezes in pure terror. With tails tucked between their legs, they scramble away, running for their absolute lives. Even Shutra stares at his own hand. Stunned. Did I just do that? The gauntlet did not just hit, it amplified his aura like a natural disaster. This destruction was way above his pay grade. That felt like Caitlyn-level power. Karak rushes over, hyping him up. Boss, you blew its head off in one strike. That was legendary. Shutra smirks, finally feeling the adrenaline kick in. The rescued centaur bows low. I am Swift Wind. You saved my life. Turns out, he is a scout. I will take it from here, Prince. Swift Wind takes point, guiding them toward the settlement. They ride off into the Ankle Plains sunset, but the camera pans back to the fallen Alpha. The corpse begins glowing with an ominous light. Not good. Meanwhile, the party reaches their destination, the Centaur settlement, home to the Big Four tribes: Fierce Wind, Heavy Rain, Rough Night, and Raging Flame. Raging Flame runs the show here, and their leader holds the title of High Chieftain. He is the one calling the shots for everyone. Shutra walks in to meet the legend himself, Savage Eyes. The atmosphere is suffocating. If you played the Night Saga Demon Realm chapter, you know this guy. He is a hardcore boss encounter, never an ally, always a nightmare. Karak whispers, his voice trembling. Look at that glare. The rumors are true. He looks like he eats people for breakfast, but Shutra stands tall. He is the 9th prince, and he knows the script. Savage Eyes tries to intimidate him, but Shutra locks eyes fierce and unblinking. Report. The chieftain barks. No pleasantries. They step into the war tent, and Savage Eyes drops the bomb. The situation is critical. The Cassius herd should not be this far south. It is a total anomaly. They migrated months ahead of schedule. The scouts are confused. Is this a migration, or is it an invasion? Some think the beasts are just lost, but Savage Eyes does not deal in maybes. In the original game, this guy is an unrecruitable NPC, a scripted obstacle. He tells Shutra the plan. 3 days. We gather all 4 tribes. Once we unite, we crush them. Simple. It is a brute force strategy for a warrior race. But Shutra is hoping to rewrite the code. I will wait, he says calmly. Is that all? Savage Eyes narrows his gaze. 9th Prince. My scouts say you smashed Acacius Alpha's skull with a single punch. Verify. Shutra flashes a confident, dangerous grin. Every word is true. He is thinking big. He flipped Chris and Caitlyn. He can flip this guy too. If you do not believe me, Shutra says, casually checking his gauntlet, stick around. I will give you a live demo later. Savage Eyes sizes him up, a predatory grin spreading across his face. He was definitely down for whatever chaos was coming next. Stepping out of the tent, the vibe shifts instantly. Every centaur head turns. The camp is buzzing with gossip about Shutra crushing a Cassius warrior's skull with a single brutal hit. Karak clocks the atmosphere immediately. It is giving major General Vandal energy. Shutra is trending again. Soaking in the clout, Shutra boasts that it was just his natural charisma doing the heavy lifting. Karak rolls his eyes instantly, regretting he even brought it up. With a heavy sigh, he tells the prince to go crash. Later that night, Shutra is out cold, lost in the dream world. Suddenly, a neon glow pulses over him, snapping him awake. He checks his arm, expecting the earthquake gauntlet to be acting up. But then, a voice echoes through the tent, calling his name. He whips his head around. The green light was not an item. It was her. She drops the bomb immediately. She needs backup. Who are you? He demands. She reveals herself as a fragment of the Watcher Onkal, the entity known as the Green Wind. Shutra's gamer brain clicks instantly. Green Wind was not just some NPC. She was a top-tier nature spirit worshipped by the centaurs and satyrs in the deep lore of Night Saga. The only reason the Ankle Plains stayed lush and vibrant was because she was constantly buffing the land. Before he can process, the scenery glitch shifts. He has been teleported straight to her sanctuary, the hidden realm where the fragment of the creator, Watcher Onkal, lives. The name Ankal triggers a core memory from his gaming days. Watcher Ankal was one of the 6 Elder Dragons, literal god-tier beings that players could dream of seeing but never touch in Night Saga. He had just unlocked Enkidu's Earthquake, and now he is face-to-face with Watcher Ankal's legacy. The RNG feels rigged. It is too much of a coincidence. But Green Wind cuts through his suspicion. Time is running out. A horde of monsters from the north is blitzing toward her home, hungry to steal the plane's life force. If they breach the sanctuary, they will devour her spirit and leave nothing but a wasteland. She looked him dead in the eye, her gaze piercing his soul. He was the only tank capable of holding the line, yet Shutra hesitated, fully aware his level was far too low for a raid boss of this magnitude. She shut that doubt down instantly, pointing to the power of Enkidu sealed on his arm. She promised this fragment would buff his stats enough to match the encroaching threat. But first, he had to prove his authority to her children to get them on board. In the blink of an eye, he was back in his quarters. The proof was undeniable. His fist glowed with the radiant, overwhelming energy of the fragment he clutched. Armed with the promise that her children would lend him their strength, he wasted zero time. Shutra sprinted straight to Savage Eye's command tent. When the chieftain heard the news, he exploded with rage. The very idea that Green Wind was in danger sounded like utter madness. Shutra countered fast, explaining, "There is a hidden shrine to the northeast. If the intel is right, the Kashayas are about to raid it." Shutra snapped, cutting off the argument. "We don't have time to debate. Mobilize the warband right now." Savage Eyes scoffed, clearing his throat with disdain. "You want me to march my army into the dark based on a mere bedtime story?" He was about to shut the order down when a piercing green light caught his eye. The words died instantly in his throat. He recognized the artifact in Shutra's hand immediately, the divine relic of the Green Wind. His entire demeanor flipped in a heartbeat. "What are your orders?" he asked, voice deadly serious. By daybreak, the Centaur Legion was locked, and loaded spears sharpened, and bows strung tight. Shutra mounted up, riding boldly through the disciplined ranks. His internal minimap pinged like crazy, guiding him straight to the hidden objective, the Temple of the Green Wind. Without this system assist, they would have been wandering the wilderness aimlessly. The location was perfectly concealed by magic, but the enemy vanguard was already closing in. Shutra gritted his teeth. How the hell did the Cashews expose a spirit's secret location? There was a mole, or a hidden mechanic he was missing. Savage Eyes scanned the horizon, noting the massive enemy numbers. "That is a heavy mob," the chieftain grunted. "What is the play?" As if on cue, Green Wind's voice echoed in Shutra's mind. Sync with Enkidu's fragment. He could feel the power surging from the temple ahead. He turned to Savage Eyes. "I am rushing the objective. You guys draw aggro and keep them off my back." He signaled Karak and Karma to squad up on his flank. Savage Eyes roared to the army, commanding them to hold the line at all costs. Battle stations. The charge began. Archers rained death from the back line, dropping Cassia soldiers by the dozen. The swordsmen smashed into the enemy front, carving a bloody path through the chaos. While Shutra's strike team blitzed toward the temple entrance, Karak shouted over the din of battle to confirm the mission. "Get the prince inside, no matter what." "Exactly," Shutra yelled back. That was all the motivation Karak needed to go full berserker mode. He took point, his axe becoming a blur of steel as he hacked through the Cassius blockade. Karma was right there with him, her daggers flashing in deadly arcs. Shutra hyped them up, pushing the squad forward. They were mere feet from the entrance when a massive shadow swooped down from the sky. A giant bat creature smashed into them, sending Shutra and his mount flying. They crashed hard into the dirt. The beast-like centaur mutant let out a bone-chilling roar and charged for the kill. Shutra cursed his lack of awareness, but before the claws could connect, Karak drifted in and parried the blow. A wave of relief washed over Shutra. "You alive?" Karak grunted, muscles straining against the monster's crushing weight. He flashed a savage grin, telling the prince to get up. "Nap time is over, boss." The creature screeched again, launching a frenzy of attacks, but Karak stood like an iron wall, deflecting every strike. It was happening again. The struggle was real. The orc was barely holding on, and Shutra couldn't help but throw some shade about him acting tough earlier. But it looked like he was tapped out. Bam! Shutra activated the Under the King's Banner skill, flooding Karak with a massive strength buff. Time to flip the script. Karak went on the offensive, blitzing the creature before it could even react. The beast stumbled back, completely rattled by the sudden power spike. Karak did not let up. He chased it down, channeled every ounce of power, and slashed deep across its chest. The monster spewed black blood everywhere. Going for the kill shot, Karak smashed its head with everything he had, sending a shockwave of dust exploding into the air. He screamed at the prince to go. "Leave this mess to me." Shutra knew Karak had this handled, so he bolted, sprinting toward the temple like his life depended on it. He burst through the doors and heard a voice echoing, "Hurry, it is Green Wind." Her gauntlet pulsed with blinding light. She revealed that Enkidu's artifact was the compass. He felt the energy signature pulling him deeper into the temple's core. He followed the flow until he skidded to a dead stop in front of a colossal, ancient tree. Suddenly, the vines came alive. It jump-scared him for a second, but they gently lowered a glowing object toward him. Shutra's eyes went wide in disbelief. No way. It was a dragon heart, the ultimate mana source for every dragon species, a literal dragon heart. Everything finally falls into place. This is the legendary fragment of Enkidu that the world has been whispering about. The spirit of green wind manifests, her voice trembling as she reveals the ancient lore. For centuries, the Enkidu plains have known peace, sustained solely by the Watcher Enkidu's lingering magic. And this temple? It is the linchpin, holding it all together. The sanctuary was born from Enkidu's own fragment. If this location falls, the shard will shatter, and the protection will vanish instantly. She begs him with desperation in her eyes. Awaken the ancient magic. Stop this destruction before it's too late. Outside, the battlefield has descended into absolute chaos. The Savage Eyes unit is roaring commands, refusing to yield a single inch of ground. They cannot let the enemy breach the gates. Karak is fighting like a demon possessed, and Karma matches his ferocity step for step. Inside the sanctum, Green Wind pleads with the Ninth Prince, imploring him to save her children from the slaughter. Shutra seizes the dragon's heart. In an instant, his consciousness is pulled into the spirit realm. He reels, disoriented, as he finds himself staring down a literal dragon. It is the Watcher, Enkidu. Her eyes flare with celestial energy, and she begins to pour her essence directly into him. The temple erupts with blinding light, firing a massive beam straight into the heavens. The shockwave is so immense that even the centaurs freeze mid-battle, jaws dropping in disbelief. Karak looks up at the pillar of light and grins. That's my prince. Suddenly, massive vines burst from the earth, expanding and hardening by the second. They twist and knot into terrifying shapes. Boom! Giant bipedal wood golems rise from the soil. They lock onto the enemy Cassius forces and attack with zero hesitation. The Cassius troops never saw it coming. There is no time to dodge, no time to scream, no time to run. The wood golems begin mowing them down, thinning the herd with brutal efficiency. Green Wind senses Enkidu's magic fully activating and breathes a sigh of relief, thanking the prince. But wait, Shutra is still clutching the dragon's heart tight. Green Wind steps back, confusion clouding her face. The atmosphere violently shifts. Panic seizes her. Why is Enkidu's mana flooding into you? She demands to know if he has a death wish, trying to absorb such overwhelming power. Shutra's appearance begins to warp. She screams at him to let go. If he continues, his body will overload and self-destruct. Ding! A system notification flashes. Level up. A deep cut on his cheek seals shut instantly. Green Wind watches, frozen in horror. The system spams level up alerts as a dark, dominating voice echoes in Shutra's mind. Conquer. Subdue them. Make them kneel. Even the ghost of an elder dragon will bow before you. The dragon heart fuses directly into his chest, unleashing a supernova of blinding white light. Finally, the glare fades. Shutra stands there, panting heavily, hands resting on his knees as the smoke clears. As the glow dims, he looks up, eyes burning with new power. He has earned a new title, Knight of Conquest. He has unlocked the passive skill, Dragon Body Level 1, and acquired Dragon Blood, granting immunity to all poisons. And the kicker? He has unlocked a legendary hidden subclass, Dragonborn. He is a being who has awakened the dragon gene, wielding draconic magic despite being a draconian Asura hybrid. Zephyr's recessive genes allowed him to hotwire that dormant potential. Green Wind stares at him, stunned into silence. He now possesses both the body and spirit of a dragon. She can feel Enkidu's power radiating off him in waves. But strangely, she isn't angry. This power has been locked away for a millennium, untouched by unworthy hands. She bows her head in reverence. Successor of Watcher Enkidu. I have one wish. Protect the plains, and protect my children. Shutra flashes a confident, dangerous grin. You got it. Outside, the wood golems are cleaning house. Most of the Cassius forces are decimated, but suddenly the air grows heavy. Crack! A massive Cassius warrior cleaves a wood golem in half with a single strike. He roars like a chainsaw, the sound shaking the centaurs to their core. Shutra spots him from the roof. That's the boss unit. He dives from the temple, landing heavily next to Karak. It's go time. The commander of the Cassius is wrecking the golems, growling orders to his squad. The monster knows a real fight just showed up. Shutra wastes no time. He throws a punch out of nowhere. The beast counters instantly. Shutra is forced to backpedal, barely dodging a lethal swipe. For a hulking monstrosity, this thing moves with terrifying speed. The creature charges, closing the gap in a heartbeat. Shutra plants his feet, winding up for a haymaker. He unleashes the Fist of Explosion. Thwack! The recoil sends a tremor straight up his arm. Is this guy made of iron? Shutra grits his teeth as another massive claw comes swinging for his head. He realizes he underestimated this tank. If the fist of explosion bounces off like a pebble, he needs to take this to the next level. Time to bust out the new arsenal. He triggers the Dragonborn exclusive skill, Dragon Blood. The weapon, Earthquake, starts humming, finally unlocking a fraction of its true, devastating potential. He's gambling everything on this one strike. The commander winds up for a kill shot, but Shutra shouts, "Karak, you're up." Skill activated, King's Knight. Karak materializes right in the beast's blind spot and wham, smashes it directly in the temple. It barely makes the giant stumble, but the distraction buys a crucial split second. Shutra rushes in. The beast locks eyes with him, but it's too late. Shutra's aura has completely shifted. He unleashes Earthquake's secret art, pure, unadulterated destruction. He calls it the Gigantic Piston. Boom. The punch blasts a massive hole straight through the commander's chest. The Savage-Eyes troops are floored. Karak just smirks with pride. The giant falls dead, and that sweet, sweet notification hits. System alert. Boss Drake Ogre Mustafa defeated. New title acquired. Drake Ogre Slayer. Nice. He checks his stats. His aura is completely tanked. If that level up hadn't refilled his HP bar, he would have face-planted right there. However, unlocking the weapon's true potential requires a specific control skill, a mastery he currently lacks. This implies the colossal piston attack was merely a test run. He realizes Earthquake is concealing a technique far more broken than mere brute force. Karak signals the advance. The stragglers attempt to flee, but Savage Eyes is already upon them, a blur of steel slicing through the panicked mob. Shutra issues the final decree: hunt them down. Leaving survivors only invites the headache of revenge squads later. No loose ends. The slaughter begins. Zero mercy, zero escapees. By nightfall, the screams fade, leaving the battlefield in deathly silence. It is finished. Back at the camp, tension dissolves into celebration. Booze flows freely as Karak and Karma clink glasses in a toast to their overwhelming victory. Amidst the revelry, Green Wind drifts toward Shutra. Why approach him when the party is at its peak? She has serious business to discuss regarding the request he granted. Shutra, however, has burning questions of his own. She agrees to talk, but lays down a non-negotiable condition first. "Release me from your control," she demands. "Then, and only then, will we speak." She explains the mechanics. Because he absorbed Enkil's mana, and she is a being composed of that very energy, she has become accidentally soul-bound to him. She waits for him to sever the link. Seconds tick by in agonizing silence. They stare at each other. Nothing happens. Shutra realizes he has absolutely no clue how to undo the spell. When he asks how to proceed, she turns pale, stammering as she questions his sanity. Panic flickers in her eyes. "Wait. You seriously don't know how to release me?" Shutra admits he might have skipped that particular lecture. She is annoyed by his earlier confidence, but he waves it off, telling her to calm down while he analyzes the situation. "Okay, what is your current status?" he asks. Her reply is immediate and robotic. "I am yours," meaning absolute obedience. Shutra shakes his head. "No, I mean physically. Any glitches? Pain?" She pauses, checking her spiritual form. Abilities are stable. Stats are normal. But then she drops the caveat. "If I leave, the Enkel planes die." She is the living battery sustaining the life magic of this entire zone. Shutra shrugs, seeing an obvious solution. "Easy. Just stay here in the plains. You don't need to follow me." He doubles down on the logic, assuring her she doesn't need to tag along. Suddenly, her expression crumples. She looks devastated. To a spirit bound by soul pact, his words sound less like freedom and more like abandonment. Shutra realizes his mistake instantly. "Wait, do you want to come with me?" She snaps back, tears in her eyes. "You are the master." "Of course I go where you go," Shutra screams internally. He never expected her to be this intense about it. He really just stumbled into a high-level spirit contract by sheer accident. He pivots back to the problem of the planes, since she acts as the anchor for the grand spell. "Can you create a proxy? Something to stand in for you?" She nods slowly. "It will take time to construct, but it is theoretically possible." Shutra gives the green light immediately. "Build the replacement. Then, you join me." She pouts, warning him that splitting her essence will leave her combat useless for a while, as the bulk of her mana must remain to sustain the planes. "Not a problem," Shutra replies coolly. Inside, his mind is doing a victory lap. Total jackpot. He just secured a contract with a high-tier nature spirit. That is legendary-grade loot. Her eyes light up at his acceptance. The deal is sealed. Now, it is time for the interrogation. He drops the heavy question. How and when did Enkel die? The words hit her like a physical blow. She hesitates. She is merely a rebooted fragment of nature. She lacks the full database of Enkel's memories, but one file remains corrupted yet clear. 1,000 years ago, Enkel was murdered. The killer's identity is unknown, but she is 100% certain it was not another Elder Dragon. Shutra's mind races. Who possesses the damage per second required to slay a god-tier Elder Dragon? Before he can spiral into theories, Green Wind interrupts. You can drop the formalities, she says. The stiff language feels wrong now that he is officially the heir to Enkel's legacy. He cuts to the chase, asking the million-gold question. Can his mortal body withstand the raw energy of another Elder Dragon? Typically, such a feat is a suicide mission, but looking at him, she hesitates. If anyone can defy the laws of mana, it is him. He is already dual-wielding the essence of Enkel the Watcher and the great Enkidu, the beast who once stood against her. If he can juggle those two clashing titans without exploding, stacking another dragon's power is not just a fantasy. It is a distinct possibility. Shutra is impressed. He literally called it main character plot armor, but he has one final query regarding the dormant power within him. She shrugs helplessly. She is just a glitched memory fragment, lacking the complete access keys to Enkel's mind. Her intel is corrupted. Then, without warning, she goes supernova, erupting in a blinding flash of white light. Shutra shields his eyes against the glare. What the? Suddenly, the atmospheric pressure shifts. The air grows heavy. Something ancient hijacks Green Wind's voice. The entity proclaims him the king of conquest, a soul carved from the destiny of rulers. The command is absolute, vibrating through his very bones. He shall conquer and dominate all of creation. That is the king's authority, and it belongs to him. It is a direct transmission from Enkel himself. The vision fades, cutting sharply to sunrise at the temple. Shutra wakes up on the cold ground as the morning light slaps him across the face. He sits up, groggy and disoriented. What just happened? The last thing he remembers is the spirit's voice. She materialized from thin air, her spiritual form hovering to check his vital signs. The cause of his collapse was clear. The dormant consciousness of the previous owner had surged through her the night prior, triggering a system overload that blacked him out instantly. Memories of that commanding voice flooded his mind. Conquer and rule all creation. It was the authority of a true king. Suddenly, everything clicked. The Watcher Ankiel already knew the terrifying potential growing within Shutra. Green Wind dissolved her pledge. He was her master now, bound for eternity. With the pact sealed, she dropped some S-class intel. A holographic interface shimmered into existence, pinging a coordinate on the frozen edge of the Ankiel plains. There lies a relic of the Watcher. Similar to his Earthquake Gauntlet, this was an artifact surcharging with Elder Dragon energy, the Shield of Life. Rewind 1,000 years. The Watcher Ankiel bestowed this legendary aegis upon the most savage and righteous centaur warrior in history. This absolute unit of a warlord led his squad against the endless northern hordes. He stacked victory after victory, never suffering a single scratch. But he wasn't immortal. He had one fatal flaw: he never slept with his gear equipped. One fateful night, a rival warlord sent a honeypot assassin to warm his bed. Distracted and defenseless, the legend was assassinated in his sleep. The Shield of Life was soul-bound by the Watcher himself. That meant nobody but the true owner could ever wield it. His followers buried the epic loot alongside him in a tomb of ice. Centuries rolled by, and history faded into myth. The centaurs renamed the artifact after the fallen warrior himself, White Suri. Shutra's internal gamer brain screamed in recognition. He knew that name. It was a lore-exclusive item from the Night Saga backstory. Mythical gear that not even the sweatiest veteran players could locate. The server's ultimate shield, powered by the heart of an Elder Dragon. Green Wind asked if he recognized it. Recognizing it? He was ecstatic. Where is the dungeon? Drop the coordinates immediately. She pointed north, far north. She could track it. But first, she needed to craft a spiritual body double to guard the temple in her absence. Once this mission wrapped, she would begin the process. He checked the system timer. How long are we talking? She calculated the variables. Thanks to the mana boost from the protection spell, she would only need 2 days. 2 days? He could work with that. It was a trek, but completely doable. He clenched his fist, determination burning in his eyes. He was going there. No excuses. With White Suri in his inventory, the difficulty setting of his entire life would drop significantly. Shutra stepped out into the cold air to clear his head. He crafted a cover story. He was traveling north to hunt down the remaining Kashu monsters. But as always, there was a glitch in the plan. That massive protection spell likely lit up the Demon King's radar like a beacon in the dark. They would definitely dispatch a specialist to inspect the ruins. If the intel leaked today, the inspector would spawn in about a week. The only play was to ghost the area before the administration arrived. But just as he finalized the strategy, Savage Eyes dropped a bombshell. The Demon King's envoy was already here. Shutra froze. You have to be kidding me. They ducked into the tent. Felicia caught his panic instantly and teased him. Why the long face? You look like you've seen a phantom. Shutra stammered, his composure cracking. Why are you here? She shut him down instantly. Manners first, business later. Shutra was reeling, totally thrown off his game. Then, a new challenger approached. The woman bowed with elegant, lethal precision. Daphne, daughter of Echo, the fifth concubine. Shutra's eyes widened. A dragon-born druid. This was it. Fate had delivered an opportunity. He had to recruit one of the 3 half-siblings to his party, no matter the cost. Felicia dropped the intel that Daphne was a top-tier druid. Basically, a cheat code for this mission, considering the Ankiel Plains guardian spirit was involved. She hit him with the formal greeting. It is a pleasure to align with you. Honestly, he never expected to run into a character of her caliber out here in the wastelands. He tried to keep his cool and look capable, but then the realization hit him. Wasn't Felicia supposed to be trekking to the Gishka Mountains to study the Anvil of Thunder? That was the original plot. But Shutra had speedrun his mission too effectively. She leaned in close, whispering that his insane clear time was turning heads in the capital. She spilled the tea. The Kashu subjugation wasn't exactly god-tier difficulty, but wrapping it up in 2 days? That changed the whole narrative. Usually, that was a 2-week grind. With all the irregular events popping off lately, the leadership was losing their minds. If any other royal showed up, they would be interrogating him or spying from the shadows by now. He asked if she came just to play defense for him. She blushed, caught off guard, and admitted it wasn't just duty. She was genuinely geeking out over the temple's ancient magic and the Kashu's glitchy behavior. Shutra smirked. Beneath that Ice Queen exterior, she actually had a soft spot for magical theory. He thanked her for having his back. She pivoted instantly, asking for the next move on the chessboard. He told her, I'm scouting the northern region to hunt down stragglers. Internally, he was tracking the legendary White Suri. Savage Eyes stepped up to join the squad. Chieftain duty was non-negotiable. It wouldn't make sense for a warrior of his status to sit on the sidelines. Shutra nodded. That was logical enough, but then Felicia threw a curveball. She was tagging along too. Her logic was undeniable. Studying a living, breathing Kashu beats dissecting a corpse any day. He agreed on the surface, but internally, he was stressing out. The remnant hunt was supposed to be a solo cover story, Carrick grumbled, his voice rough with irritation, but a knot tightened in his stomach. His instincts screamed that things were about to get messy. A few days later, the battlefield erupts into total chaos. Carrick and the centaurs clash violently with the beastmen horde. In the heat of battle, Shutra spots a detail that proves his gut instincts dead right. While the centaurs engage the front line, the Kashu tribe attempts to flank Shutra from his blind spot. Where on earth did they spawn from? Shutra scowls, his irritation spiking. He was certain they had already cleared this level. Suddenly, ear-piercing shrieks tear through the sky above. Talk about a headache. But the ground forces aren't the only ones with aerial superiority. He triggers Blessing of the Wind, level 1. Instantly, his body becomes as light as a feather. He blasts forward at gale force speeds. Green Wind gasps, demanding to know how he hijacked her magic. Shutra doesn't answer, he just blitzes straight toward the ghasts. The monsters never see it coming. He unleashes Fist of Explosion, blasting them right out of the sky. Quit blocking my view and just vanish, he commands. Watching him dominate, Green Wind spirals into an existential crisis about her own usefulness. Cut to Daphne. She stands trapped in a circle of Kashu corpses, paralyzed by pure terror. A beast lunges in for the kill. Luckily, a massive hand grabs her, and a blade severs the monster's head in one clean motion. Carrick to the rescue. Nearby, Felicia dances through her own duel with elegant lethality. The ambush actually works in her favor. She needed test subjects anyway. By dusk, the fighting ceases. Bodies litter the plains. Felicia tells Shutra to focus on the faint violet haze clinging to the corpses. Now that she points it out, he can barely make it out. Her theory? It is a nasty type of curse magic. It buffs their strength, she explains. But the cost is their life force. It burns them out completely. Plus, their emotions look deleted, like they were severed entirely. It is definitely a curse, and someone is pulling the strings. Shutra frowns. They already fragged the commander who controlled them before. So, who is the new boss? Carrick signals him to hold up and points toward Daphne. She has been stiff as a board the whole fight. He suspects this was her first real taste of blood. Seeing her like that, Shutra realizes this is not the veteran Daphne he remembers from the future. She is a rookie, trembling as she whispers that she can feel the spirits screaming in fear. There is a dark, heavy power pulsing stronger the further north they go. Green Wind, floating as a tiny firefly, warns Shutra of a sinister vibe radiating from that direction. She suspects a powerful entity is acting as a beacon for that purple aura. Felicia suggests they will find answers at the northernmost point. Savage Eyes proposes checking the view from the northern border observation tower. Shutra's original plan was just to grab the White Suri. But the plot has officially thickened. He agrees to the detour. Night has fallen by the time they arrive. Felicia points into the darkness, aiming straight at the source of the bad vibes. They peer out and see a massive horde. Even at a glance, that is easily 200 or 300 units. The only thing capable of rallying an army that size is an undead. And these aren't grunts, she senses. High-ranking energy, at least a lich is here. Daphne's legs give out, and she collapses to the ground. Carrick asks what is wrong. She stammers that she is fine. Felicia shudders. This is not just a creepy vibe, it is personal. And Daphne, being a half-spirit, means she is taking that chilling aura straight to the heart. If they are dealing with a high-tier undead boss, their squad is toast. Felicia makes the executive call. We need to bail. Now. But then, her eyes go wide. Panic mode. Something is incoming. Who is it? Shutra starts to ask, but chaos cuts him off. Ping. The system UI screams, surrounded. Carrick points a shaky finger at the sky, screaming as a massive fireball hurtles straight for their faces. It's a trap. Shutra curses, realizing they have been played. Move. Get out. The tower groans, then crumbles into dust. Pure chaos erupts. Screams tear through the air as they sprint for their lives. Above the wreckage, dark silhouettes with nasty auras take to the skies. Felicia does not hesitate. She snaps her fingers. Wind control. Active. A gust sweeps everyone up, launching them clear of the inferno just as the tower blows. They hit the dirt hard but safe. She immediately scans Shutra for injuries while Sylvan gasps, "Thank you, sixth princess. That was close." Her magic was the only reason they are still breathing, but she waves off the praise, save the gratitude. She snaps. One look at the horizon tells her why. It is a sea of enemies. Endless. We have to run, Felicia urges, but Shutra's gut sinks. He can see the circle closing in. They are totally boxed in. Buy me a few seconds, she pleads. I will find an opening. Seeing her determination, Shutra feels a spark of respect. She isn't giving up. You got it, he grins. I will hold the line. He triggers under the king's banner. The centaurs roar as raw power floods their veins. Sylvan looks at his glowing hands. What is this magic? Green Wind hovers close, whispering urgently to her master. Are you seriously going to fight? She asks. Damn right, he replies. Their only play now was to bet everything on Felicia. Shutra clenched his fist until his knuckles turned white. Battle stations. The atmosphere transformed instantly. Fear evaporated, replaced by cold steel. He would not retreat a single inch. Beside him, Carrick and Sylvan dove headfirst into the slaughter. Shutra became a machine of destruction, blasting through ranks with his signature fist of explosion. Boom! Shattered bones flew everywhere, yet the skulls floated in midair, mocking him. His breath came in ragged gasps. But the nightmare was far from over as the bones clicked back together. Click, clack. They reformed, good as new. It was an endless cycle. Shutra realized the truth. To kill the snake, they had to cut off the head, find the summoner, break the spell. It was their only chance. Suddenly, blinding lights tore through the heavens, hammering the centaur lines with devastating precision. Carrick grabbed a zombie, using its rotting body as a meat shield. What the hell was that power? Suddenly, the mountain of corpses shifted. A groan echoed from the depths, deep and guttural. A massive skeleton hauled itself from the abyss, full plate armor and a rusted crown. Bingo. Shutra locked eyes with the boss of this dungeon. Sylvan lunged for a backstab, but he was blocked instantly. The boss swatted him away like a fly. Carrick swung next, his weapon clanging uselessly against the impervious armor. The impact sent agonizing shockwaves up Carrick's arms. The skeleton barely flinched before shoving him back with overwhelming force. Crunch. Carrick hit the dirt hard. My turn. Shutra leaped into the fray. He was actually relieved the main boss had finally stepped into the light. Time to end this. He unleashed a point-blank fist of explosion. But nothing. Not even a scratch on the armor. The boss casually tossed him aside like a rag doll. Shutra stared, stunned. This monster was a walking fortress. They were completely out of their league. Step back. Felicia's voice cut through the chaos. You have done enough. Even the Skeleton King tilted its head, curious about this new challenger. Shutra was confused, but Felicia stepped in front of him. I will handle this, she smirked, glaring fearlessly at the monster. Come get some, bonehead. Magic crackled violently in her palm. Boom! A direct hit. The Skeleton King actually groaned in pain. Now, it looked furious. It swung a massive fist, but Felicia was already gone. She danced away, riding the air currents with wind control. It tried to crush her, but zip! She triggered Blink, vanishing into thin air and reappearing right behind that oversized skull. 2 magical beams drilled into its back. The boss staggered under the assault. Shutra watched, jaw dropped. She was on another level entirely. He never imagined she would be soloing a boss that had just wiped the floor with the rest of them. Suddenly, a soft light bloomed behind Shutra. It was Daphne. "Are you okay?" she whispered, weaving her own wind control to buff the centaur army. Sylvan gasped as vitality returned to his body. Carrick shook off the dizziness, standing tall once more. Shutra grinned. This was the Dryad's domain buff. Finally, Daphne was pulling her weight, and the tide was about to turn. A system alert popped up. Boost level 1 is live. Suddenly, raw energy started spiraling around him like a hurricane. Boom! Pure power exploded outwards. He was totally confused. Why was he unlocking skills mid-fight? The screen flashed. Spirit Bloom acquired, level 1. It allowed a spirit to inhabit the user's body, jacking up every single stat. Adrenaline coursed through his veins like liquid fire. Now, according to Night Saga rules, a vessel could usually handle only one spirit at a time. But screw the rules. He was currently hosting the Spirit of Life and the Spirit of Wind at the exact same time. Just as he figured perks of having that broken protagonist build, nearby, Felicia unleashed hell on the undead leader. But her stamina was tanking fast. She took a heavy hit, panicked, and snapped Blink to teleport away. She was sick of this guy. Just die already. But the undead leader read her like a book, predicting exactly where she would materialize in the backline. He caught her completely flat-footed. Suddenly, Carrick felt a surge, rushing in to aggro the boss. It worked. The monster pivoted its attention. Out of nowhere, Shutra slid in next to Felicia. "Nice work. I will take it from here." She was stunned to see him. He told her to chill while he handled the finale, unleashing a devastating fist of explosion. The impact slammed the undead leader deep into the dirt. Carrick grinned, thinking this was the good game moment. Shutra joked that he did all the heavy lifting. Carrick decided to play along and went for the kill shot, aiming to decapitate the beast. But the second he got close, an ominous purple glow lit up the corpse. It was a trap. Carrick got swallowed by the energy. Shutra screamed his name as that cursed light started raining down on him too. A single drop hit his cheek. Instantly, a purple corruption spread across his skin like a virus. The pain was blinding, dropping him to his knees. Felicia watched in horror. The undead leader rose and started stalking toward a helpless Shutra. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, green wind was drifting around until something caught her eye. It was a grave. The tomb of the warrior she had been hunting for. Back at the fight, the undead leader raised its weapon to end Shutra. It was locked onto him. Felicia took it personally. How dare this thing ignore her? She fired a triple blast to grab its attention. The boss turned, vanished into thin air, and instantly teleported behind her. It mirrored her blink perfectly. A colossal blade descended like a guillotine, and she barely manifested a defensive barrier in time. She gritted her teeth against the overwhelming pressure, but the monster's force was absolute. The barrier shattered, crushing her into the earth. A roar of triumph shook the heavens. The undead tide surged toward Felicia, while Shutra lay motionless in the abyss of unconsciousness. Green Wind's voice pierced the void. "Wake up! The battlefield waits for no one. You must awaken Uncle's power immediately." "What power? How?" Desperation clawed at him. Green Wind erupted in blinding light. "Search your soul. The answer is already there." His eyes snapped open, blazing with realization. He whispered the incantation. Dragon blood. A pillar of emerald light tore the heavens asunder. Felicia, fighting on death's door, froze as the horizon ignited. It moved at the speed of light, vaporizing the mob around her in a single heartbeat. She turned her gaze to Shutra, face down in the dirt. Pure mana was swirling around him like a raging vortex. He raised his head, and his world stopped. Standing majestic before him was the legendary White Suri. How was this even possible? A gasp escaped his lips. Green Wind revealed the truth. She had scoured the battlefield for the warrior's tomb. Leaving him vulnerable was a gamble, but victory requires risk. She had subdued the beast and bound it to a new lord. Shutra smirked, genuinely impressed by her audacity. She silenced him cold. "Save the praise. Survive first." "Right. Boss raid time." The undead warlord charged, launching Shutra into the stratosphere with a single blow. That hit should have liquidated him. Instead, Shutra twisted midair, defying physics to stabilize like a veteran rancor. He locked eyes with the enemy. The creature was gathering mana in its maw for a devastating breath attack. The speed was impossible. He had milliseconds to react before the beam fired. Felicia screamed as smoke engulfed the impact zone. But a blinding radiance erupted from within. He could feel the surge. Green Wind's voice trembled with excitement. Ankle's fragment had triggered an evolution. He was now Dragonborn. But the transformation wasn't finished. A second reservoir of power unlocked. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. 5,000 years of Ankle's magic, preserved within the White Suri. His gauntlet hummed in resonance. "Oh yeah," he grinned savagely. The rush was intoxicating. Even the undead king recoiled at the shift in pressure. Shutra mocked the skeleton. "Keep posturing, bonehead. You're just dust waiting to happen." He gripped the White Suri shield and unleashed it. It carved a path of destruction through the mob, ricocheting like a meteor of death. Felicia watched, breathless. The boss roared in impotent fury as the shield defied gravity, arcing back to lock onto its true prey. The white Suri took the bait, wings unfurling like sails as it rocketed into the azure sky. The undead king was completely fooled by the aerial feint, a fatal mistake. Shutra struck from the blind spot, detonating an explosive fist directly against its spine. The earth trembled under the monster's pained roar. In retaliation, the sky rained a hellstorm of fireballs. Shutra became a phantom in the inferno, dodging the flames before hurling his shield with the force of a ballistic missile. Crack! Bone shattered. The white Suri descended like a hawk, unleashing a torrent of rapid-fire strikes on the staggered boss. Fury exploded from the monster, but Shutra stood immovable. He channeled every ounce of mana into his arm, forming a gigantic fist of concentrated destruction. The impact folded the undead leader in half like a cheap lawn chair. Checkmate. Shutra snapped his fingers downward. Gravity obeyed, driving the airborne shield straight onto the boss's skull. Splat. The head vaporized into violet mist. Instantly, the surrounding undead froze, leaking that same corrupted energy. Boom! A chain reaction obliterated the mob. The golden glow of the system interface appeared. Boss defeated. Skeleton King Valora. The celestial chime of a level up rang out. Shutra dusted off his hands with a scoff. All that arrogance for such a mediocre fight? Please. Achievement unlocked. Kingslayer, level 1. Felicia sprinted over, eyes wide with relief. The curse was officially cleansed. Let the trash mobs destroy themselves, she urged. Shutra didn't need to be told twice. They vanished into the chaos. Hours later, in the safety of the camp, while Shutra meticulously polished his shield, Felicia finally broke the silence regarding the massive white beast. Savage Eyes looked utterly shaken. He thought the legends were just campfire stories, not reality. Then Daphne interrupted with spiritual insight. The aura is terrifying, she whispered. And honestly, I think it's suppressing its own power. Realization struck Shutra. The white Suri was self-nerfing to match his current stats, exactly like the earthquake skill. The potential for growth was limitless. Felicia gave him a playful wink. This mount is your personal loot. The Demon King doesn't need to know. Just treat him right, she said softly. Shutra nodded with genuine gratitude before Savage Eyes stepped into the frame. The warrior bowed low. From this moment forward, the tribe acknowledges Shutra as the true successor to the great warrior. The White Suri's legacy is yours. Say the word, and we ride. Savage Eyes swore a blood vow. Shutra smirked. I'm counting on it. It felt like a perfect season finale, but reality hit hard. The grind never stops. He still had a harvest to reap. Raiding the great warrior's tomb was a blast, and the loot? Absolutely god tier. He turned to leave, thinking the quest was complete. Not so fast. Greenwind materialized, blocking his path. And oh, she was salty. He had forgotten the most crucial step. Praising her. She was fuming, indignation radiating off her like heat waves because he ignored her contribution. Carrick nearly jumped out of his greenskin, thinking he saw a vengeful specter. Shutra, realizing his mistake, hastily offered the tribute she craved. Head pats. Good job, he soothed, pouring on the charm. We literally couldn't have won without you. You are the real MVP. Blushing hard, she muttered. I will let it slide this time. But keep the compliments coming. Despite being a spirit, she had the soul of a needy puppy. He ruffled her hair vigorously, giving her the full, who's a good girl treatment. And just like that, it was a wrap on the Northern Region arc. But of course, victory always comes with a catch. A nagging suspicion clawed at Shutra's mind. Was Valkaroba truly the source of that purple death energy? It felt too easy. If he was the mastermind, why target the North? And how did a mere skeleton king stumble upon the temple's deepest secrets? The math simply wasn't mathing. Answers were scarce, but Shutra swore an oath right then. He would uncover the true origin of that corrupted energy, no matter how deep the rabbit hole went. Eventually, they returned from the boundary lines, and suddenly, life hit the fast-forward button. Weeks blurred into a montage of frantic preparation. Savage Eyes began mobilizing his tribe's elites, gearing up for a massive northern expedition. It was weirdly late in the game, but the operation to purge the Casius herd was finally a go. Shutra geared up, falling in line with Savage Eyes' crew. It took a solid 2-week grind of blood and steel to clear the Casius infestation from the teleportation site. Felicia sidled up to him, eyeing his physique. Are you getting buffed again? Shutra shrugged, a playful grin tugging at his lips. What can I say? I'm hitting a growth spurt. Changing the subject, he asked about the temple investigation. Felicia's eyes instantly lit up. She hadn't just checked it out. She struck gold. She dropped a massive bombshell. The magic signature, she geeked out, voice trembling. It belongs to Ankal. She was practically vibrating with excitement. We aren't talking about some random scrub's mana. This was Ankal, one of the 6 elder dragons. The Watcher. Shutra plastered on his best fake smile. Wow, that's crazy. Felicia narrowed her eyes, sensing the insincerity immediately. Wait, why do you look like you already knew that? News to me, he lied through his teeth. Greenwind floated by, whispering loud enough for only him to hear. You are a terrible actor. He pretended not to hear the spirit. We should probably report to the Demon King's castle. Like, right now. He deflected successfully. Upon arrival, Felicia got the royal red carpet treatment. Everyone swarmed the princess, desperate for the latest gossip. Meanwhile, Shutra stood there, completely invisible to the masses. Standard procedure, some things never change, huh? Karak grunted. Shutra just nodded. Suddenly, Greenwind clutched her chest. My heart. It is racing. Are we sure about leaving the Onkal Plains behind? She asked nervously. Shutra tuned her out, his mind already locked onto his next move. But then, the vibe shifted instantly. The moment those figures approached, the air grew suffocatingly heavy. Karak tensed, asking if Shutra had beef with them. It wasn't just paranoia. They were getting absolute death stares. Shutra clocked them immediately. Succubi. And not just any random dungeon mobs. Probably Anastasia's crew. These were elite agents belonging to a major faction led by none other than the fourth princess, Anastasia Nekrion. Back during the day of the massacre, her faction held the most terrifying power base in the entire realm. Even heavy hitters like Felicia and her twin, Sylvan, were technically under her banner. Shutra kept his cool. If they were eyeing him down, it meant the chaos at the Onkal Plains had already hit Anastasia's radar. He warned Karak to stay sharp from here on out. All eyes were on them. Later, at the Office of Public Merits, Isabella dropped some insane news. His merit rank hadn't just increased, it hit level 10. His monthly stipend skyrocketed from 500 to 900 gold, and his security clearance got a massive upgrade. Best of all, he unlocked access to the Royal Treasure Vault. Shutra grinned from ear to ear. Time to blow some cash. He marched straight to the armory. Since he was now a level 10 VIP, he was granted entry to the first treasure vault. Usually, you need merit points for this tier of gear, but his rank allowed him to pay straight gold. Igor, the armory supervisor, gave them the red carpet treatment. He ushered them inside, telling them to go wild. Shutra turned to Karak. Pick whatever you want. The orc looked visibly shook. Shutra explained the logic. Better gear on Karak meant a better meat shield for him. That was all the motivation the orc needed. Shutra, meanwhile, knew exactly what to look for. He snagged a top-tier piece of armor boasting resistance to every single elemental attack. Crucially, it was ultra-lightweight, perfect for flowing with the movements of the beast god fist art. With his base layer sorted, he needed one final piece to complete the build. He hit up Cater, the head blacksmith, demanding custom greaves. Since his fighting style relied on explosive footwork, standard heavy greaves were trash. He asked Cater for a lead time. The design was basic enough, so the smith promised to have them ready in 2 days. But when Shutra asked for material recommendations, Cater didn't hesitate. He suggested crafting them from literal dragon leather and scales. Shutra suspected the merchant was playing a cruel joke. There was simply no way a nobody like him could source divine-tier materials of this caliber. But then, the merchant revealed the truth. A fresh shipment had just arrived bearing Shutra's name, and he planned to use that very stash. The prince was left completely bewildered. He demanded answers immediately. Realizing the prince was oblivious, the merchant dropped the bombshell. Lord Ishgard himself had personally ordered these dragon parts for Shutra. Shutra froze in place. That name struck him like a physical blow. Ishgard was the Sword Lord, the deadliest blade in the entire demon realm, and an elder of the Asura race, the ultimate apex predators. This was the legendary warrior who had trained the Demon King, Mitra, in the supreme art of the sword. Outside, Karak asked the million-dollar question, why is a living legend helping a nobody like us? Shutra had zero answers. Karak was stunned by the silence but noted the upside. Having the Sword Lord in their corner was a massive safety net. Shutra agreed it was an incredible perk, but the logic refused to track. In the original storyline of Night Saga, the Asura clan had always remained strictly neutral. Was this a ripple effect caused by the Demon King's sudden interest in him? Suddenly, a runner sprinted toward them, panic written all over his face. Shutra braced himself for disaster. Gasping for air, the messenger dropped the urgent update. A mandatory audience ceremony was scheduled for tomorrow morning. Shutra was blindsided. Another ceremony? So soon? The messenger explained that Shutra's performance at Angel Plains was viral-worthy. The king wanted to personally commend the top 3 contributors. Hearing there were 3 honorees, Shutra asked who was joining him and Felicia. The answer sent a chill of pure terror down his spine. Second Prince Zephyr. Zephyr Ragnarok was back. In the game's lore, this man was the absolute strongest entity in the demon race, the destined successor to the throne. Karak watched as Shutra's face twisted into sheer horror. Zephyr wasn't just a rival. He was the monster who would slaughter everyone, Shutra included. The mere thought of facing him made Shutra look like he was about to vomit. The next morning in the waiting room, Karak checked on his master. Shutra had been a nervous wreck since the news dropped. He let out a shaky sigh, his hands trembling. He knew this meeting was inevitable, but the reality was hitting harder than a truck. Karak tried to distract him by mentioning the arrival of the other princes. Suddenly, an attendant cut in. He announced that the second prince had VIP clearance to bypass the waiting room entirely. Felicia swept into the room. She confirmed that Zephyr played by his own rules, but then she locked eyes with Shutra. She reminded him that his feats were nothing to scoff at either. She looked lethal in a sparkling black halter dress. Shutra nodded, forcing himself to ground his emotions. She told him to lock it in. They just needed to go out there and own the stage. The ceremony began. Demon King Mitra loomed on his obsidian throne. As Felicia and Shutra made their entrance, their names echoed through the grand hall. Shutra's pulse was already redlining. If he cracked now, he wouldn't stand a chance against the hellstorm waiting on the other side. He marched toward the throne, every step heavy with destiny. High above, on the second level, a silent figure loomed on the balcony. Her gaze locked on him like a sniper, staring right through our main character with dead eyes. Shutra dropped to one knee before the Demon King, crushing his fear down into the pit of his stomach. This was a boss fight he couldn't skip. Suddenly, the herald's voice boomed across the hall, announcing the next arrival. Enter the second prince, Zephyr Ragnarok. He strode in, radiating pure, suffocating intensity. Shutra locked eyes with him. Zephyr looked like stone-cold murder. There he was, the literal main character of the Night Saga Demon Realm arc. Then, Isabella took the floor, ready to drop the achievement receipts. She kicked things off with Zephyr, exactly as Shutra had predicted. Zephyr's stats were absolutely broken. The guy's highlight reel alone was reason enough to hold this entire ceremony. Next up, Shutra and Felicia. The room went dead silent when the northern border incident was mentioned. All eyes were glued to them. But the real drama hadn't even started yet. Demon King Mitra's voice thundered, calling out Shutra directly. It was quest time. Heads turned sharply. The other royals were visibly shook. This kind of direct order was unheard of. Shutra was left reeling. The king himself just dropped a personalized quest in the middle of the ceremony. The objective: infiltrate the Thunderdoom Fortress. Deep in the Dwarven Kingdom, miners had cracked open a forgotten tunnel leading straight to that cursed stronghold. His orders were crystal clear: secure the breach and map out the belly of the beast. Departure in 7 days. A chill ran down his spine. He knew this map. Back when he grinded Night Saga, it was a legendary Dwarven fortress. But here is the kicker. The 27th Exploration Unit had already tried to clear it. General Kospel led that charge. Spoiler alert: he died, and the mission failed miserably. The autopsy report: the whole squad was wiped out by toxic gas. Shutra needed a hazmat-level plan to survive. He let out a heavy sigh, trying to figure out why he was being set up. Kospel was a draconian, basically a living tank, and even he got folded. Why send Shutra into a meat grinder that killed a general? Why isn't Zephyr leading this mission? The man literally has dragon blood in his veins. Felicia immediately sensed something was wrong. The vibes were completely off. Did you anger father or something? She whispered, her voice laced with concern. Shutra stared back blankly, forcing her to spell out the grim reality. Zephyr usually handles the heavy lifting, Karak chimed in. The realization hit him hard. If a general could get wrecked here, this was nothing short of a suicide run. Felicia was convinced this mission was far above Shutra's pay grade. You realize this is absolute insanity, right? Before he could even respond, she made the executive decision. I am coming with you. We do this as a duo. She spun the offer like she was doing him a massive favor, despite her own overflowing schedule. Karak, ever the buzzkill, tried to interrupt, but the prince didn't ask for opinions. Felicia snapped at him instantly. Zip it. Shutra nodded, accepting the alliance. Thanks. I owe you one. Suddenly, a new player entered the chat, volunteering to join the party. Is there room for one more, ninth prince? Felicia's eyes widened in shock. It was Katarov. Shutra shut him down instantly. Sorry. The roster is full. Katarov took the hint and dipped. Once he was gone, Felicia turned on Shutra with blazing eyes. Are you crazy? Why did you bench him? He is a male siren with confidence to spare. We could use that firepower. Shutra knew she had a point. Katarov was an S-tier magic user. However, the man had just used Blink to teleport straight to his true master. Shutra already knew the hidden lore. Katarov was a secret spy for Anastasia, a total fanatic loyal only to her. His entire kit was built for espionage and infiltration. He reported everything back to Anastasia. The fact that she sent him meant only one thing. They were watching Shutra like hawks. Anastasia realized the ninth prince was playing four-dimensional chess, far more cautious than she had anticipated. Back at the base, the team huddled up for a strategy meeting. So, what is the intel on Thunderdoom Fortress? Shutra leaned back casually. All I know is that some hardcore dwarves used to fight dragons there. Karak scratched his head, looking completely confused. I thought dwarves were just treasure hoarders for Enkidu? Felicia sighed heavily. There is not just one dwarf faction. Genius. The High Kingdom built that fortress specifically to throw hands with dragons. They fought tooth and nail to protect their loot and their lives. They actually slaughtered a few dragons too. But keep in mind, a regular dragon and an elder dragon are in completely different weight classes. Karak grilled her with a serious expression. So, could you solo a dragon? Felicia smirked confidently. With enough prep time and mana. So that is a no, Karak grunted. Felicia bristled with indignation. Excuse me? Dragons aren't just high-level mobs you can farm. Look at the history books. Even the Dwarf High Kingdom got wiped off the map by them. Karak chuckled softly. You are like a walking encyclopedia. Felicia tossed her hair back, oozing charisma. It made total sense she was obsessing over it. The Thunderdoom Fortress was basically the holy grail of dwarf lore. We are talking about legendary relic duties here. If they excavated this right, they were looking at a lottery win of epic proportions. You could practically see the dollar signs reflecting in her eyes. Karak watched her virtually drool over the potential payout. Meanwhile, Shutra was deep in his own headspace, cross-referencing his game knowledge from the Night Saga. He knew the Thunderdoom Fortress was a notorious honeypot dungeon. It was famous because ancient battles with dragons had wrecked the place, leaving parts of the fortress in ruins. But inside, pristine, high-tier loot and treasures were just waiting to be claimed. However, Shutra was not there for gold. He was hunting a specific item he desperately needed, a weapon designed for one single purpose: slaughtering dragons. It was a specialized anti-dragon armament, absolutely fatal to anything with draconic lineage, the legendary Dragon Slayer sword. To stand a chance against Zephyr, who has dragon blood running through his veins, Shutra had to secure that blade at all costs. By the next day, the squad was geared up and ready to roll. Shutra equipped his A-rank Dragon Scale Greaves. The stats were insane. Fire Resistance level 3, Fire Absorption level 3, +5, Strength, and a % boost to kick technique damage. Add in plus 10% agility, and it even came with the Fire Enhancement skill. He did a final gear check with the team. The lineup included Felicia, Karak, Karma, Daphne, and their Dark Elf Navigator. Everyone masked up to hide their identities. Mission start. They breached the cave entrance, following the elf as she tracked their route on the map. Karak noticed the visibility dropping rapidly. The fog was getting dense. Felicia corrected him immediately. That was not fog. It was toxic gas leaking from the mines, and it was far nastier than she had predicted. Since there was no timer on the mission, she called for a slow, tactical advance. Shutra agreed. Better safe than sorry. But then, Karak spotted something off. The gas was shifting colors. It was supposed to be yellow. Before Shutra could even ask, "What?" the big guy started groaning in pain. In a split second, both Karak and Karma hit the floor. Shutra demanded an immediate sitrep. Felicia panicked and flared her magic. Realizing the chemical composition of the gas had suddenly mutated, she blasted wind magic to clear the area, but it backfired catastrophically. Her wind slammed into something unseen, triggering a violent explosion and sending a shockwave of concentrated toxin right at them. Shutra felt his strength evaporate in a heartbeat. He tried to call out to Felicia, but the toxic gas choked the words from his throat. His companions collapsed like puppets with cut strings. That was the signal. The trap snapped shut. Grotesque beasts slithered from the abyss, growling as they stalked toward the defenseless party. But then, a calm voice sliced through the gloom. It was Shutra. He hadn't fainted. He was lurking. He realized instantly that these weren't random monsters. They were the same assassins who hunted General Kashabal. The beasts focused entirely on their prey, blind to the white Suri stalking their rear flank. In a flash of silver, the beast tore through their lines, slicing torsos in half before the monsters could even scream. Green Wind floated nearby, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And the award for Best Actor goes to... Shutra silenced her with a look. The white Suri was on a rampage, bisecting enemies left and right. A creature shrieked, sensing its impending doom, but nothing could outrun the blade of the white beast. Silence fell. The white Suri returned to its master's side. The ambushers were annihilated. But these scumbags had used a legendary tier poison. Shutra stood tall. Thanks to his protagonist's physique level 2, he possessed level 1 immunity to all toxins. But the dungeon had more traps in store. A deafening crack echoed overhead. The ceiling came crashing down behind him. What kind of hell was this? The enemy's arsenal of dirty tricks seemed bottomless. He commanded Green Wind to shield the party. She obeyed without hesitation. Shutra didn't know the enemy's endgame, but priority 1 was clear. Get his team out of this death trap alive. He ignited his dragon blood ability. Power surged through his veins as he scooped up Felicia and the elf, sprinting toward the Thunderdoom Fortress entrance. Green Wind fought desperately to hold back the collapse. Using the white Suri for cover, Shutra doubled back into the danger zone. "Move it!" she screamed. "The structural integrity is failing." He grabbed Daphne and Karma next. "Hold on, Karak," he roared. "I'm coming back for you." Shutra moved with godlike speed. The floor disintegrated beneath his boots with every step. With a final leap, he dumped Daphne and Karma into the safe zone next to Felicia. He spun around to rescue Karak, but disaster struck. A bone-shaking boom echoed through the tunnel. The passage had caved in. Tons of rubble sealed the path. Shutra screamed Karak's name, but only silence answered. "Get a grip," Green Wind shouted. Panic clawed at his chest. Karak was trapped. Then, she reminded him of a spell from the Angel Plains. His eyes snapped open. The pieces clicked. He cast the spell immediately. Summon King's Knight. A tear in reality ripped open above him. Karak's massive head popped through the spatial rift, followed by his hulking body. He slammed onto the stone floor. Shutra rushed over, his heart hammering against his ribs. It was a miracle the big guy wasn't critically injured. Shutra exhaled a trembling breath. But this operation was a disaster. And those monsters. He was baffled. He knew the lore of the Night Saga inside out, yet he had never seen abominations like that before. Felicia began coughing violently. Shutra snapped back to reality. Priorities first. He had to purge the poison from his squad before the damage became permanent. But fate was cruel. The shadows coalesced once more, forming a new wave of twisted creatures. Shutra cursed under his breath. The swarm lunged. Rage flared in Shutra's eyes. He unleashed the Fist of Explosion, blasting the vanguard backward. He was officially pissed off. He had enough problems without these pests. In the distance, the monsters roared a guttural sound that shook the very air. He glared daggers at them. "Shut your traps!" he roared, charging headlong into the fray. No time for games. As they rushed him, he cocked his arm back. Knuckles cracked. Bam! He smashed the Fist of Explosion right into their ugly mugs. The white Suri became a whirlwind of death beside him, claws flashing. It carved through the beasts like a hot knife through butter. Anything within striking distance was erased instantly. Shutra had entered full berserker mode. Once the dust settled, he switched gears to medic, purging the toxins from the group. Felicia groaned, her eyes fluttering open. "You good?" he asked. She stared at the massacre, eyes wide with horror at the mountain of corpses. What just happened?" "Don't sweat it," he shrugged, his voice cool as ice. "Just a little warm-up." With the detox complete, they were back in business. Now for the main event. A full-scale raid on the fortress. Target locked, the Thunderdoom Fortress control room. But a choice lay before them. The left path, long, boring, and safe. The right path, a suicide shortcut paved with lethal traps. Felicia looked at him. "So, which way, boss?" Logic dictated the safe route. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the foundation. Shutra froze. Playing it safe was no longer an option. What in the blazes was that? Karak bellowed. The dark-haired elf turned ghost white. "An alarm! The ruin's core facility is under siege." Translation: "We have company. Someone else is trying to clear the dungeon right now. Who else would be mad enough to be here?" Felicia gasped. Shutra didn't waste a second. He signaled Karak to raise his shield. "Big guy, take point." Karak blinked, completely blindsided by the sudden command. "Say what?" Shutra gripped his shoulder firmly. "Just trust me. Do exactly as I say, and you won't get toasted." As they stepped forward, a dragon head mounted on the wall roared to life, spewing a hellish torrent of flames. Whoosh! Karak's massive shield devoured the fire, creating a safe shadow for the entire squad to hide behind. Next up was the spike pit. Karak squealed like a frightened pig, barely balancing on the precipice, right before spears launched from every conceivable angle. Clang! Clang! He deflected the deadly steel, sweating bullets as he danced with death. Meanwhile, the rest of the team strolled behind him, completely untouched. By the end of the gauntlet, Karak was wheezing, looking like a total wreck. "Good hustle," Shutra smirked. Karak shot him a death glare. "I almost died, man." Shutra just pointed ahead, unfazed. "Yeah, but look, we speedran the way to the control room." The elf frowned, her eyes scanning the area with suspicion. Something's wrong. The gargoyle guards were missing. It gave off serious ghost town vibes. They breached the main door. The room was an absolute disaster zone. Then, Shutra spotted a familiar tragedy amidst the rubble. He motioned for Felicia to look. Slumped against the far wall was a skeleton, the last lord of Thunderdoom Fortress. The man had stayed behind, going down with the ship so his people could escape the chaos. An absolute legend to the bitter end. "Hey, check this out," the elf called out, breaking the solemn silence. In the center of the room sat a massive, ominous black sphere. Felicia geeked out immediately, inspecting it. Dwarven technology. But it's dormant. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. "It needs a trigger." Shutra knelt by the fallen lord. I think our friend here has the answer. He snagged a key hanging from the skeleton's neck. Click. The black sphere hummed to life, crackling with raw blue electricity. BZZT, holographic screens popped up in midair. The squad stood there, jaws on the floor. Felicia shook her head in disbelief. These dwarves were living in the year 3030 while we're stuck in the Stone Age. The tech was insane. Suddenly, crash. Another explosion rocked the room. What now? Carrot grumbled. Daphne pulled up a live feed on the main screen. Look at this. It was live footage of a battle nearby. The missing gargoyles were in a violent mosh pit with those creepy shadow creatures from earlier. They were swarming like ants. Those pitch-black scumbags again, Shutra realized. They're the ones raiding the fortress. But what were they after? Then, Carrick squinted at the monitor. Is that a freaking dragon? Where? Shutra leaned in, his heart pounding against his ribs. His eyes widened. Sticking out of the beast's chest was a weapon glowing with blinding holy light. He couldn't believe it. Destiny was calling. It was the holy grail of weapons. The Dragon Slayer Spear Ascalon. Enter the Black Dragon, Partisan. Massive, greedy, and pure evil. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion in the ancient war against the Dwarf Kingdom. Partisan and his goons had hammered the Thunderdoom fortress relentlessly. Finally, they had smashed through the outer walls. The fortress was breached. Partisan, cocky as hell, led the charge, flexing his full, overwhelming power. But that ego, that was his fatal error. One moment of arrogance was all it took. Tiny Spark, the fortress's MVP, saw the opening. He didn't miss. Shunk, he drove the Dragon Slayer Spear, Ascalon, straight into Partisan's heart. But when the boss died, his minions went berserk. The dwarves had to bail, leaving the fortress to become a massive tomb for everyone involved. A graveyard for a dragon and an army. Carrick pointed at the screen, trembling. So that's Partisan. And that spear is Ascalon. We're entombed side by side with a legend. Carrick stared at the screen, confirming if that beast was indeed Partisan, and if the blade piercing it was the legendary Ascalon. Shutra confirmed the chaos unfolding before them. Yep, those gargoyles are throwing hands with the creatures. Seeing the brawl unfold, Felicia clocked that those pitch-black creeps were definitely hunting for Ascalon. Shutra was on the exact same page. The enemy's objective was clear. She was absolutely fuming at the audacity of these guys attacking and thinking they could just waltz in and snatch the ultimate treasure. Shutra turned to her, desperate. Is there any way to hijack control of that gargoyle? As much as it sucked, she shut it down. Zero chance. Suddenly, a massive tank of a guy started swinging his hammer, absolutely obliterating the black creatures. He's the boss of this dungeon right now. They watched the carnage from cover, awestruck by the display of raw power. It looked like right before the fortress fell, command was transferred to that dwarf golem, likely because he was the top-tier guardian unit. Felicia wanted to camp out and see how it played out. They came for Ascalon, sure, but the vibes were looking catastrophic. Shutra, however, wasn't having it. He saw a golden opportunity. She looked at him like he was insane, but he explained there were way too many variables to just sit there, away from keyboard, and wait. Shutra sprinted toward the kill zone. He told her to hold the line while he made a run for it, keeping his eyes glued to the map. The strategy was simple. Secure Ascalon first, and they profit no matter how the battle turns out. If the Dungeon Guardians clap back and win, Shutra's team doesn't even need to fight. They could just hunt down the leftovers of those pitch-black freaks. But if the enemies win, they assess the damage and either throw hands or bail. He pushed forward, spotting Partisan's corpse in the distance. The minimap was clutch, but it failed to scream the most vital warning. Death was already breathing down his neck. A massive shadow loomed. Bam! The dwarf golem smashed the earth, launching Shutra through the air like a rag doll. It didn't stop. Shutra tried to negotiate, but the construct answered with a lethal fist. The machine paused, its optical sensors scanning the dust cloud. Confusion set in. The splatter it expected was nowhere to be found. Instead, a blur zoomed past. Shutra surfed on his shield with effortless grace. Nice timing, Greenwin, he shouted over the wind. Greenwin snapped back instantly. Stop calling me that, he retorted, claiming abbreviations were the current meta. She screamed back. I do not care about your trends. We are almost at the target. Shutra vaulted off the shield, landing squarely in front of their prize. The artifact was even more majestic in reality. The legendary Dragon Slayer Spear, Ascalon. He reached out, thinking victory was in the bag. Surprise. Surprise, it refused to budge. The weight was absolute. Desperate, he dumped every single unspent stat point into strength. With a primal roar, he heaved again. Even the dwarf golem froze, alarmed by the human's sudden spike in power. Shutra screamed, pouring his very soul into the grip. Finally, pop! He tore the legendary weapon from its seal. A golden pillar of light pierced the heavens. It blinded the dark monsters while Felicia and the squad stood frozen, jaws hitting the floor. Even the viewers watching the screens lost their minds at the spectacle. But, unnoticed by all, a hooded figure lurked in the deepest shadows. Ascalon was not merely a weapon, it was the magnum opus of the entire Dragon Slayer series. This was the colossal lance that had once pierced the heart of the Black Dragon, Partisan. It pulsed with the grudge, determination, and pure rage of every dwarf from the Thunderdome fortress. Shutra felt the adrenaline surge, but then, the earth trembled. The hooded figure unleashed a dark art, forcing the fallen beast under his absolute command. The Black Dragon Partisan roared, tearing its way back from the abyss. An undead dragon had just joined the lobby. Shutra's mind reeled. Partisan died centuries ago. How was it moving? He locked eyes on the hooded stranger. Who the hell was that? Sudden gravity crushed down as the behemoth took flight. Energy crackled in its maw. Shutra recognized that nasty violet death aura instantly. Partisan unleashed a cataclysmic breath attack. The nuke-level blast vaporized the pitch-black creatures and shattered the earth itself. Shutra deployed White Suri just to survive the shockwave. Chaos reigned. He couldn't understand why Partisan was spewing that specific purple death energy. He flinched as the dwarf golem rushed him, but unexpectedly, the tank ignored him completely. Its target was Partisan. Smash! The construct slammed its hammer into the dragon. Shutra stood bewildered. Why were the bosses fighting each other? Felicia, Carrick, and Karma rushed to Shutra's side, screaming over the deafening noise. I thought that dragon was dead. What is happening? Shutra clocked it immediately. Someone had revived Partisan with forbidden dark sorcery. She demanded answers, but he was clueless about the culprit. The only certainty was that familiarity. It was the same purple death energy, the same power they faced on the angle planes. No time to chill. They had to speedrun this kill before the dragon reached full power. Felicia sensed the mana glitching out, but she had zero idea how to bring down a beast of that magnitude. Shutra locked in. It is a zombie dragon, he explained. There has to be a core controlling the mana flow. We smash that core, we win. Shutra barely finished his warning when the dragon's maw began to glow. A second nuke was charging. This was bad. Incoming breath, he screamed. The beam that erupted wasn't just an attack. It was a force of nature. It vaporized everything in its path, punching a clean hole through layer after layer of the adamantine fortress walls. Even the floor melted into slag. Karak, Felicia, and Shutra stared at the devastation, realizing they were inches away from becoming ash. Karak's jaw dropped. He looked at Shutra with disbelief. Bro, you called that incomplete? My bad. Shutra grimaced, realizing he totally underestimated the beast. This situation just went from bad to nightmare fuel. Every second wasted, the monster grew stronger. Shutra's mind raced desperately, hunting for a winning play. How do you kill a walking apocalypse? Suddenly, Ascalon responded to his call. Blinding golden runes swirled around the blade. The light engulfed the dragon and fused the weapon to Shutra's arm, morphing his right hand into a massive spinning drill. Everyone stared at the transformation, but Shutra didn't waste a millisecond. Felicia, draw aggro. I need an opening. He knew this form was the finisher. Boom. Multiple fireballs smashed into the dragon's face, snapping its attention away. Felicia didn't let up, raining down a hellstorm of magic. The dragon roared, absolutely furious at the pest. Shutra shadowed behind the beast, vibrating with Ascalon's will. One hit that was all he needed to end this raid. He lunged for the kill, but the dragon was smarter. A massive tail whipped around out of nowhere. Smack! Shutra flew across the room like a broken doll. As his team scrambled to help, he gritted his teeth, regretting his reckless charge. The dragon didn't wait. It stomped the ground, sending a devastating shockwave straight for him. Shutra braced for the end, muscles locked for impact, but the crushing blow never landed. He forced his eyes open, witnessing a miracle, the dwarf golem catching the dragon's claws mid-strike. The steel titan didn't just hold the line, it shoved the beast back, gripped its warhammer, and swung with earth-shattering force. Arcane lightning exploded from the impact, sending a shockwave through the dragon's massive frame. Partisan shrieked in fury, its maw glowing as it charged a retaliatory breath attack. The golem stood its ground, trading devastating blows with the monster, while green wind floated urgently toward Shutra. Master, status report. Felicia slid into the chaos, casting healing spells while screaming at him. I can end this, Shutra insisted, gritting his teeth as his HP bar refilled. Yeah? Look where that arrogance got you, she snapped, desperate to retreat before they were all slaughtered. This boss was a catastrophe waiting to happen, but Shutra refused to listen. Battered, bruised, and running on fumes, he still saw a singular path to victory. Stop playing hero, she screamed. Shutra nodded, his expression hardening. I know I rushed it. I made a mistake, but we've crossed the point of no return. I need you, Felicia. Just one more time. I won't miss. Before she could even finish her protest, he was already moving, diving straight back into the jaws of death. He leaped onto his shield, surfing through the battlefield's chaos, circling the dragon to exploit its blind spot. Green wind synced perfectly with his movements. Meanwhile, Partisan shattered the golem's arm, its jaw unhinging to unleash another apocalyptic blast. The golem took the full force of the beam, disintegrating into dust, but its sacrifice bought them a crucial split second. Felicia seized the opening and detonated a massive firestorm. Through the roaring flames, the dragon's slit pupils tracked a blur, tearing past its vision. Shutra became a streak of living light, striking from every angle, circling faster and faster to build up catastrophic kinetic energy. Partisan, exhausted and enraged, charged one final breath. Now, Green Wind signaled. While the dragon focused on a decoy, Shutra activated Dragon Blood, surging from the shadows below. He rocketed up from the blind spot, precise and deadly. No rushing this time. He had exactly one shot to end this nightmare. The dragon looked down, but fate was already sealed. Channeling the ancient technique Tiny Spark, Shutra unleashed everything he had. Boom! A violent pillar of energy erupted upwards, drilling straight through the dragon's torso like a lance of judgment. The beast shrieked as its insides were liquefied in an instant. The force didn't just kill it, it shattered the monster from the inside out. Ultimate move, gigantic piston. Felicia watched, jaw dropping in disbelief. He actually did it. The massive dragon crashed to the earth, lifeless. Ping! A golden system notification materialized. Target eliminated. Zombie Dragon Partisan. Experience points rained down on him like a golden shower. Shutra gripped the Dragon Slayer spear, breathless. Adrenaline coursing through his veins, he unlocked the legendary Dragon Slayer title. But the celebration was strangled in its crib. I can't believe it. A cold voice echoed. Shutra spun around. A mysterious figure stood amidst the ruin, coldly analyzing him. You actually killed it? Talk about a miscalculation. The stranger seemed visibly disappointed that the survivor wasn't the second prince. Shutra realized instantly this was the necromancer who raised the dragon. Whatever. The stranger scoffed, raising a spear wreathed in blue hellfire before flicking it casually at Shutra. Time to clean up the trash. Shutra barely had time to react before a tidal wave of azure destruction surged toward him. It slammed into the fortress, devouring stone and steel alike. The entire structure groaned in protest before collapsing into the abyss below. Yet, despite the crushing pressure of an attack meant to erase him, Shutra stood unbothered amidst the falling rubble. Dust swirled around him like a violent storm. He cracked his left eye open, trying to process the impossibility. As the smoke settled, his vision cleared, but confusion hit him like a truck. The incoming attack had just evaporated. And then came the gore. The mysterious assailant was sliced clean in two. As the bisected body hit the floor with a wet thud, Shutra froze in pure shock. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence, claiming his timing was impeccable. Shutra's eyes nearly popped out of his skull as he locked gazes with the newcomer. There was no mistake. That was the Sword Lord. The man flashed a grin, greeting the ninth prince casually, as if they were old drinking buddies. The ultimate shield of the Asura Sanctuary. Master to Demon King Mitra. Sword Lord Ishgard was an entity in Night Saga that rivaled Elder Dragons, a living legend. But because he was strictly background lore, players never got the chance to throw hands with him in the game. He was a ghost, a myth, an unscalable mountain. Even when Zephyr Ragnaros ascended to Demon King, or when Locke invaded, this monster stayed hidden in the shadows. Basically, he is the mysterious, game-breaking powerhouse of Night Saga, an anomaly so strong even the Demon King begged him for lessons. Ishgard noted the sixth princess had a glow-up, then suddenly hoisted her into the air by her collar, remarking she was just a tiny brat the last time they met. Humiliated and dangling like a kitten, she shrieked at him to put her down immediately. He just laughed at her tantrum, clearly enjoying the teasing, treating a royal princess like a toddler. Shutra stood paralyzed, his brain unable to process that Sword Lord Ishgard was standing there in the flesh. Meanwhile, Felicia was practically steaming with rage. Ishgard ignored her fumes, asking the ninth prince if he liked the present. Shutra clicked. He meant the dragon hide. He nodded, thanks, mentioning it crafted some god-tier gear. But distracted by the legend, he completely missed the monsters creeping up behind him. Mid-sentence, a blinding flash caught our boy's eye. Shock hit him as the energy spiked wildly. A chain of massive explosions ripped through the air, turning the conversation into a disaster zone. Carrick roared over the noise, demanding to know what the hell just exploded. Shutra was just as clueless, screaming for the squad to retreat immediately. The assassin's body had glowed white-hot before detonating. Total devastation. If Ishgard hadn't deployed a defensive barrier at the last second, they would be ash. Shutra scanned the smoke, checking his team. Thanks to the Sword Lord, they were alive. But Felicia stood frozen, baffled by the senseless destruction. It forced her to question everything. What was the enemy's real goal? Shutra's mind raced, recalling the assassin's cryptic words about the second prince. It didn't add up. The legendary weapon, Ascalon, wasn't touched. The enemy ignored the treasure completely. So, what were they actually hunting? Then, the realization struck like lightning. Shutra's face went stone cold. He turned to Felicia, his voice grim. Their actual mark might be the second prince. That threw her off completely. She blinked, confused, asking where that wild theory came from. Shutra explained quickly. The spear wielder mentioned they were watching, waiting. They attacked now specifically because the second prince didn't show up. Exactly half a month after General Kashaval failed, Shutra realized the truth. They were lying in wait for one specific target. Felicia's face fell as it clicked. They took out General Kashaval from the start just to use him as bait. A trap designed for the second prince. Felicia added that Zephyr was usually the kingdom's go-to hero for these missions. The assassins naturally assumed he would be the one responding. But why target Zephyr? And who has the power to do it? Shutra shivered. The enemy was terrifyingly thorough. They literally blew themselves up just to destroy any evidence. Ishgard chimed in, saying the plot was getting spicy. Felicia snapped, yelling that this wasn't a game. The Sword Lord shot back that he was dead serious. She let out a defeated sigh. Then, she pressed him on why a legend like him was even here. He revealed the dark truth. The Demon King was obsessed with the ninth prince. Ishgard had come to scope him out personally. Shutra was floored. The Sword Lord was here just to spectate him? Ishgard added that the Demon King never makes a move without a cause. If the king acted out of character at the ceremony, there was a major reason behind it. Fate was shifting. And now, standing face to face with Shutra, Ishgard could figure out exactly what the Demon King was thinking. Shutra felt the atmosphere grow heavy with power. Then Ishgard dropped a bomb. Want to learn a thing or two? Both Shutra and Felicia were shook to their cores. Ishgard clarified quickly. He wasn't taking him on as a formal disciple. He wasn't in a position to raise a student anyway. Besides, Shutra had already mastered the beast god fist art. Felicia's jaw dropped at that info. She demanded to know when Shutra picked up a secret technique. Shutra ignored her shock, asking Ishgard how he figured it out. Ishgard smirked, noting his body was a cocktail of different energies right alongside the beast god fist. He couldn't pinpoint every detail, but the aura was unmistakable. He could feel the sheer power radiating from the boy's core. It was raw and untamed. Instead of clashing and destroying him, the energies were vibing together, fusing into a state of total harmony. The Sword Lord saw the potential. He wanted to drop some personal wisdom on the ninth prince. He asked for Shutra's take. Shutra froze. This was absolutely unprecedented. Aside from Demon King Matira, the Sword Lord never offered free tutorials to anyone. Shutra immediately said yes. You don't ghost a legend. Ishgard looked hyped at the answer. The plan was to teach basic aura control, but he knew Shutra's talent would remix it into something entirely different. He placed a hand on the prince's shoulder, and boom! Shutra lit up like a golden flare. Class was in session. That golden glow was pure Ishgard-style aura. Shutra closed his eyes to lock in. This hit different than the beast god fist. The Sword Lord's power surged through every vein in his body like a tidal wave. Ding! The system signaled the arrival of the Asura cultivation technique. He was speedrunning the levels. Asura Wind God level 11, Great Mountain level 11, and Lightning level 11. Ishgard was shook. The kid was mastering skills faster than humanly possible. Suddenly, gold and blue energies collided, triggering a supernova of blinding light. Shutra vanished into the flash, leaving even the Sword Lord frozen in disbelief. Felicia and the crew were losing their minds. Terrified for Shutra, Ishgard stared blankly. This wasn't in the script. The blue and gold swirled together, fusing into a single radiant core. Then the system went wild. First, the Asura technique and Beast God Fist were syncing up perfectly. Second, the protagonist's physique stats skyrocketed. On top of that, immunity to 100 poisons leveled up. Once that resistance hits level 3, it could evolve into the legendary immunity to 1000 poisons. He unlocked Harmony, level 1, and the S-rank Beast God Fist evolved instantly. A massive golden beam shot into the sky, shaking the fortress foundation. Shutra emerged from the pillar of light, hovering like a deity as the energy coiled around him. Eyes closed, body steady. He had completely tamed the overwhelming power. When he finally opened his eyes, he had unlocked the SS-rank Asura Divine Fist. The light faded and thud. He collapsed on his butt. Carrick and Felicia scrambled over, demanding answers from the Sword Lord. Ishgard explained that he only meant to teach the basics, but Shutra accidentally remixed the Beast God Fist and the Asura cultivation into a brand new power. He did it on pure instinct. In the entire history of the Night Saga lore, only one technique ever reached the legendary SS rank, the hero's sword art. It was the signature move of the hero, Lock, a power unrivaled by mortals. But that history had just been rewritten. Shutra's beast god fist had mutated, evolving into the Asura divine fist strike. It now sat at the very pinnacle of power, matching the hero's own god-tier status. Ishgard could only stare in disbelief. The kid wasn't just talented, he was a monster far beyond anyone's estimation. He didn't even bother with an interrogation. No explanation could justify this level of strength. He simply stood in awe of Shutra's existence and asked if the new technique had a name. Shutra nodded calmly and dropped the title. Asura Divine Fist Strike. Simple, brutal, effective. However, Ishgard offered a grave warning. Keep this buried. Shutra was already trending too hard, and the royal court didn't need any more reasons to be paranoid. Shutra agreed instantly. Staying low-key was the only smart play in this political minefield. With the main quest finally complete, it was time to secure the bag and recover. Felicia stood frozen, looking completely lost on how to pack up such a massive hoard. Ishgard raised an eyebrow. Was she a rookie at raiding? He suggested stripping the dragon's corpse for parts before the scavengers arrived. The siblings looked on in horror at the grisly suggestion. Business is business, however. Ishgard proposed a three-way split of the loot before asking the million-gold question. Where exactly are we going to craft these god-tier materials? They planned to dump the raw materials at the Demon King's castle forge. Ishgard nodded slowly. Not a terrible plan, but materials of this caliber deserved better. He swore by a personal contact, a master smith with unmatched skill. He looked at them and asked, "Do you know the name Amita?" Felicia shook her head, blank. But Shutra's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. He screamed in pure geek-out mode, "Amita Ignacia, the legendary blacksmith of the demon realm who wields the last flame." Ishgard realized the prince knew his hidden lore. Shutra was practically buzzing with excitement. This wasn't just a contact. This was a true hidden gem. Even within Night Saga, Amita Ignacia was a total mystery. Sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. Rumors claimed they were a shape-shifting mage, or that Amita wasn't a person at all, but a code name for an entire secret clan. Meeting Amita was rarer than winning the lottery. In 10 full game clears, Shutra had only found them 3 times. Ishgard looked relieved to skip the long-winded backstory, cutting straight to the chase with the hideout's location. That news was music to Shutra's ears. But there was a catch. Ishgard warned that this blacksmith bounced around like a nomad. Shutra would have to move fast. The mystery figure was a total hermit who despised visitors. But dropping Ishgard's name? That was the golden ticket for a face-to-face meeting. Shutra was vibrating with adrenaline. Not only had he bagged a double S-rank martial art, but he also secured Amita's coordinates. Talk about an insane loot haul for such a short run. After a quick breather, the squad descended the spiraling staircase to the lower levels. With the treasure vault picked clean, the archives were next. Felicia practically dragged them down the hall, insisting that this detour was non-negotiable. But the moment they stepped inside, dust assaulted them. Shutra started hacking up a lung in the ancient trap. Felicia shot him a teasing look, asking if his legendary adventurer's curiosity was really being defeated by a little dirt. Karak scoffed from the back, pointing out that the Ninth Prince clearly didn't give a damn about dwarven culture. Inside the main chamber, however, Felicia was in heaven. Her eyes literally sparkled as she shoved a book toward Delia, the dark elf. She was geeking out over the pristine condition of the records, praising the dwarves' obsession with detail. Shutra just stood back, watching his sister live her absolute best life. While Delia hauled stacks of tomes and Karak passed out cold on the floor, Shutra wandered deeper into the shadows. Wondering just how ancient this place truly was, he spotted records carved into stone tablets. Suddenly, one of them clattered to the ground. He scooped it up and froze. The carving depicted a mysterious woman standing fearlessly before a gathering of dragons. It triggered instant déjà vu. That was definitely Enkidu, flanked by the 6 elder dragons. His eyes shifted to the other figure, and his blood ran cold. He knew that woman. She was the entity who commanded him to conquer, the one who promised the world would kneel. A chill ran down his spine. It was Conquest herself. But why was she depicted in a 1,000-year-old carving? The timeline was completely broken. This artifact was ancient. Yet, there she stood, one of 4 figures facing down 6 legendary beasts. What kind of twisted fate connected that specific group together? Suddenly, Green Wind popped into view, hanging upside down right in his face. "Why so serious?" she chirped, nearly giving him a heart attack. She demanded he follow her, claiming she'd found something epic. Shutra composed himself and glanced at the book lying on the nearby table. His eyes went wide. Green Wind puffed out her chest, proudly presenting her find. A detailed chronicle of the Elder Dragons. It listed their true monikers based on personality. Enkidu, the avatar of destruction, was branded the Tyrant. Ankal, the benevolent protector, was the gentle mother. Quinn, the intellectual, was the sage. Then there was Kelton, the warrior. But the text revealed a shocking twist. Despite his fiery intensity, his nature was closer to ice, a cold flame, a silent killer who kept his blade sheathed until the absolute last second. But the moment he drew steel, he'd burn the entire world to ash. Shutra noticed the bulk of the text focused on Kelton's legendary feats, and most importantly, the coordinates of his lair. Suddenly, a single detail on the map locked into focus. A hidden mark, floating right above the Lake of the Sunday. Who could have predicted it? A fire dragon, slumbering beneath the depths of a lake. No wonder the veteran hunters had spent decades chasing ghosts. The spirit green wind trembled with anticipation, desperate for praise. But Shutra ignored her, his tactical mind racing to connect the final dots. The lair was positioned perfectly, right next to Amida's hideout near the spider forest, exactly where the Sword Lord had directed them. Even better, it bordered the lycanthrope region. He could secure the dragon, rescue Amida, and check on Caitlin and Chris in a single, devastating sweep. Absolute efficiency. Finally, he gave Greenwind a solid head pat, praising her work. She beamed with spiritual energy. The path to victory was set. First, secure Amida. Then, claim Elder Dragon Kelton's legendary armament. This expedition was shaping up to be a treasure trove of mythical proportions. Preparations complete. The crew hunkered down at the Thunderdome Fortress for 4 days. And Felicia? Her stamina was nothing short of monstrous. Shutra was stunned. Right up until their departure, she buried herself in the archives, not showing a single ounce of fatigue. Shutra matched her pace, scouring the dusty shelves for any scrap of dark intelligence regarding the other Elder Dragons. Unfortunately, the well was dry. No intel existed on anyone but Kelton. But amidst the disappointment, a silver lining emerged. Karak had leveled up. Shutra triggered the King's Knight promotion system and turned to his loyal subordinate. How does the power feel? Like a beast. Karak grunted, throwing a punch that snapped the air with a sonic boom. He admitted the hellish training Shutra forced on him was worth every drop of sweat. He was no longer just a grunt. He was Knight Captain Karak, officially recognized as a barracks commander. The next morning, a fresh mission briefing from Felicia arrived at the Demon King's castle, but it carried a grim shadow. General Koshbol's death was no accident. It was a trap. A massive setup with the sun blazing overhead. The perfect bait designed to lure Zephyr into the jaws of death. Shutra was locked, loaded, and ready to mobilize. But Felicia slammed the brakes. She insisted on scouting the area longer before they vanished. She was suffering from major fear of missing out on the local sites. Shutra shut that down instantly. The Sword Lord's orders were absolute. Find Amida fast, or she disappears forever. With zero time to argue, he practically threw the princess into the carriage. Once the squad was embarked, he signaled Karak. The new commander hit the reins, and the wheels began to thunder down the road. Shutra glanced back at the fading fortress. He realized just how many times they had brushed fingertips with the Grim Reaper recently. But this wasn't just another mission. The potential rewards far outweighed the deadly risks lurking ahead. A smirk tugged at his lips. He was hyped to see Caitlin's face when he finally unleashed the legendary Asura Divine Fist. He was itching for that reveal. 3 days later, a new expedition team assembled to hunt the assassins targeting Zephyr. Shutra stepped up to take the helm. Meanwhile, Zephyr infiltrated the archives. Deeply focused, he spotted the ancient stone tablet Shutra had acquired earlier. His eyes narrowed. He recognized the symbol for famine instantly. Death was there too, alongside war. But the woman leading them remained a total mystery. This was the figure Shutra identified as Conquest. The scene shifted to a magma chamber, where a dragon came face to face with a mysterious woman. The dragon bowed its head, signaling the start of the end. He addressed her reverently as the Knight of Conquest. This was the same warrior from our protagonist's nightmare. In that memory, he had fired an arrow, but it fizzled into a pathetic spark before reflecting back to scorch him alive. Back in the present, Karak watched in baffled horror. He had never witnessed a training regimen this brutal. Shutra was systematically destroying his own body. Felicia, however, revealed the shocking truth. He wasn't dying, he was evolving. Shutra regenerated the burns instantly. His fire resistance, healing factor, and mana control were skyrocketing with every injury. Shutra gasped for air, skin smoking, but his eyes were manic with excitement. One more rep. Karak muttered that the kid was a freak of nature, but since the magical gains were undeniable, Felicia suggested they let him cook. They embraced the grind by night and traveled by day, aiming straight for the heart of the spider forest. The target, the hideout of Amita Ignatia. To speedrun the journey, they decided to slice directly through lycanthrope territory. Suddenly, a screeching halt. The road ahead was on total lockdown. Karak barked out, demanding to know the holdup. The guards claimed it was official lycanthrope royal business and ordered them to beat it. Royal business? Out here in the boonies? Felicia smelled a rat. The guard doubled down, hand on his weapon, ordering them to leave. That was the last straw. Felicia demanded the gate be opened, insisting on speaking to their commander. The guard sneered, asking if she thought she was some kind of princess. She simply replied, "Yes." The guard blinked. "Wait. What?" She repeated it, her face deadpan. Sweat began to bead on the guard's forehead as his brain tried to process the information. She hit him with an icy glare and dropped the yes for a third time. Cut to the camp interior. Those same guards were now paying the price, kneeling in the dirt with their hands reaching for the sky. Caitlin's face lit up with a radiant smile when she spotted Felicia and Shutra sprinting over, with Chris shadowing close behind. She asked what they were doing here. Felicia smirked, pulling the ultimate Uno reverse card on destiny. "What are you doing in a godforsaken wasteland like this?" Caitlin hesitated, eyeing the road blockades. But Chris stepped forward, ready to spill the truth behind the rumors. Word on the street was that Shutra had turned the Demon King's castle upside down. Chris had to know. What kind of chaos had he actually unleashed? Shutra smirked, his eyes gleaming. Perfect timing. He was just about to stage a live demonstration. He ordered everyone to fall back and clear a safe zone around the tents. A deafening explosion ripped through the air. Shutra and Caitlin were locked in a sparring match, and neither one was holding back a single ounce of strength. Their eyes were dead serious. Shutra channeled raw, destructive power into his fist. When their attacks collided, the resulting shockwave was nothing short of seismic. The earth beneath them shattered instantly. Nearby trees were obliterated, reduced to nothing but splinters in the wake of their clash. Caitlin recoiled, sensing immediately that this wasn't the standard beast god fist art. She demanded to know the technique. Shutra revealed the name, the Asura Divine Fist Strike. Felicia stepped in to explain the lore. It was a monstrous hybrid technique, fusing the beast god fist with the Asura cultivation method personally taught by the Sword Lord. Chris was floored. The fusion was insane enough, but the fact that the legendary Sword Lord was his personal tutor, that was unheard of. Why would he teach him? Felicia shrugged, though her pride was evident. Because he's a prodigy, obviously. Caitlin stood awestruck, asking if she could learn it too. Shutra apologized with a shake of his head. This wasn't a technique you could learn from a textbook. He couldn't just teach it. It was a lost art, something even the original creator couldn't pass down. Chris muttered that Shutra's very existence was becoming absurdly broken. Shutra took it as a compliment. But deep down, Chris was terrified by that terrifying growth rate. If he didn't train like a maniac, he would be left in the dust forever. With the display of dominance complete, the atmosphere shifted. It was time to get down to business. They ducked inside the command tent to talk strategy. Chris dropped a disclaimer heavy enough to crush the mood in an instant. Everything from this point on was strictly classified, top secret intel. The shift in his aura was so intense that Felicia knew this wasn't idle chatter. He dropped the bomb. A prisoner from the Grey Tower's basement level had broken out. Shutra's gut tightened. Everyone knew the Grey Tower was a hellhole, designed to hold the most depraved lycanthrope monsters in history. And if this escapee crawled out of the lowest floor, Shutra didn't need a name to know the threat level was catastrophic. Then Chris said it anyway. Gerard Moonlight. And the kicker? He is their maternal uncle. Felicia was completely blindsided. She had no idea that branch of the family tree even existed. Chris broke it down, his voice grim. Gerard was thrown into the abyss 20 years ago, long before her time. Legend says he was once the lycanthrope royal family's MVP, a warrior without equal. If he hadn't gone completely unhinged, he would be sitting on the throne right now instead of their mother. But the man was thirsty for power, possessing an obsession that rivaled a bottomless pit. Mastering the beast god fist wasn't enough. He started dabbling in forbidden, heretical dark arts. Predictably, his mind snapped. Gerard's madness wasn't just a mental breakdown, it was a natural disaster. We are talking hundreds of lycanthropes sacrificed just to put a leash on him. The only silver lining was that the carnage was contained within the palace, allowing the royals to cover up the bloodbath. Felicia needed to double-check, her voice trembling. Was he saying that a walking nuke was currently loose? Caitlin chipped in with the intel report. Looks like Gerard booked it toward the east. Chris tried to downplay the panic, claiming Gerard lost half his aura during the escape battle. He's basically nerfed right now. Plus, the east was the total opposite direction from their current location. Shutra pressed for details on the jailbreak. Chris admitted it was sketchy, but all signs pointed to an inside job. This triggered a memory for Shutra, a specific side quest from the game Night Saga involving Zephyr Ragnaros. The objective was to bust Gerard out to destabilize the lycanthrope faction. Shutra's mind raced. Had that plotline actually been triggered? That night, the scene shifted. A man gasped for air, a hand crushing his windpipe. A rugged figure gave him a simple choice: talk or die. This man had already slaughtered the rest of the squad. He demanded the location of the Moonlight Herb. Shutra watched the dream unfold, confused and disoriented. Suddenly, the entity known as Conquest manifested before him. He demanded answers. She didn't speak, simply pointing to a void of absolute blackness behind him. Squinting into the abyss, he saw a figure lurking inside. Recognition hit him like a truck. It was Famine. Shutra snapped awake, cold sweat drenching his skin, lungs burning for air. That visual of the black aura wouldn't fade. The malice radiating from it felt physical, leaving him rattled to his core. And why the hell did the name Famine keep echoing in his brain? Before he could spiral further, chaos struck. Karak crashed into the tent, absolute panic written all over his features. He screamed that he had bad news. Shutra barked at him to spit it out. Karak frantically reported a breach. An enemy was tearing through the camp like paper. He described the intruder, a long, jagged scar slicing down his left cheek. The man was radiating a weird black energy and slaughtering soldiers with nothing but his bare hands. Shutra froze. That description was all he needed. The final puzzle pieces snapped into place with terrifying clarity. It was Gerard Moonlight. Chris and Caitlin stood frozen, witnessing the absolute carnage firsthand. Shutra and Karak sprinted toward the epicenter of chaos. Shutra's mind raced. According to the intel, Gerard was supposed to be heading east, so why is he standing right here? The variables refused to align. Desperate for answers, Shutra demanded the truth about their real agenda immediately. Under the pressure, Caitlin finally cracked. It was all about the Moonlight Herb. Chris looked at her with betrayal in his eyes, but she spilled everything. Their true main quest had always been securing that elusive herb. They only learned of Gerard's prison break after departing. This wasn't just a plant. It was a botanical miracle that bloomed only once every 100 years. It is an S-tier consumable, possessing a truly game-breaking effect. It packs enough spiritual energy to snatch a soul back from death's door. For anyone who played Night Saga, this was the legendary loot awarded for defeating Chris or Caitlin. Now Gerard's presence made terrifying sense. He was hunting the Moonlight Herb to recharge his depleted core. He sought to recover the 50% of his aura he had lost. Suddenly, the sky erupted in golden light. It was Felicia's magic. The far side of the camp had already dissolved into a war zone. Felicia raised her staff, summoning a massive firewall to halt the enemy advance. She was running on magical fumes, yet she held the line. But it didn't matter. Gerard walked through the searing flames as if they were nothing more than a breeze. Felicia froze, certain her end had arrived. But then, clutch timing, Shutra slid in, hurling his shield straight at Gerard's face. He checked on Felicia while keeping his guard impenetrable. The heavy impact knocked the brute back a single step. Chris and Caitlin seized the opening, launching a coordinated assault. Gerard recognized them instantly. They were Elaine Moonlight's children. He planted his feet and raised an arm, completely unbothered. Caitlin screamed for him to surrender immediately. He just smirked, claiming he was the one who truly inherited their mother's will. She hesitated. That was a fatal mistake. His punch connected with devastating force, sending her ragdolling through the air. Chris screamed, rushing toward his sister in blind panic. Suddenly, a wolf soldier tried to ambush Gerard from behind. Rookie mistake. Gerard snatched the beast by the throat and drained it dry in seconds. Thick, inky mist was violently ripped from the wolf's body as its very life force was consumed. Shutra felt actual ice form in his veins. The wolf's eyes shifted to absolute void, black as pure darkness hemorrhaged from its body. That was when the horror clicked for Shutra. That was not just dark magic. That was Famine incarnate. The second Gerard finished, his wolf soldier glitch vanished into thin air. Gerard hammered his fist into the earth, cratering the ground and throwing Chris off balance. The black mist surged like a tsunami, smashing Chris dead on. Shutra could not process the visuals. In the original Night Saga lore, Gerard was never this overpowered. After rotting in prison for that long, his stats should have been trash. Gerard caught Shutra spacing out and sneered. "You have guts, kid." Then he snatched Shutra up by the throat. Shutra thrashed, burning every ounce of stamina to break the chokehold. Gerard just smothered him in that suffocating noir fog, whispering for him to wither and die. Suddenly, a blur of motion cut through the darkness. It was Chris blindsiding Gerard from the rear, forcing him to drop Shutra. Shutra screamed as agony shredded his nerves. Gerard whipped around to clap back, but Chris cut him off, barking. "Eyes on me, old man!" Chris launched himself forward, engulfed in a raging blue aura. He slammed into Gerard like a freight train, burying him into the dirt. The impact shook the whole zone. Gerard tanked the combo and laughed, asking why he didn't say hello to his uncle first. "Shut your trap," Chris roared. To him, Gerard Moonlight, the lycanthrope royal, died 20 years ago. This thing right here was just a washed-up convict. Shutra popped a golden dagger and cast under the king's banner on Chris, catching him totally unawares. Chris felt a massive dopamine spike. Raw power flooded his system, leaving him wondering if this god-tier strength was really just Shutra's buff. He was overflowing with explosive energy. Gerard clocked the speed boost immediately, but he was too slow. Caitlin, also riding that king's banner high, ghosted behind him, and landed a heavy haymaker. Gerard actually grunted as the hit connected. Chris doubled down instantly with another devastating strike. Felicia and Shutra watched from the sidelines, but the fight was moving so fast, it was literally just streaks of light. I can't track any of this, Felicia admitted. What's the play? We're winning, Shutra said, cool as ice. The twins were syncing perfectly, forcing Gerard to turtle up behind his forearms. Gerard finally admitted it. These kids were definitely Elaine's spawn. Realizing that, he decided to quit holding back. Full release. Wolf mode activated. With claws the size of dinner plates, he palmed Caitlin's head. He weaved past Chris's hook while dragging her along and slammed her skull into the earth. Chris went pale. Caitlin was in critical condition. Snapping, Chris swore to end him. Gerard just backhanded him aside like a fly. The blow launched Chris through a line of trees before he finally skidded to a halt. Gerard moved with blinding speed. Instantly, the white Suri shield roared to life, erupting in a brilliant flash of defensive light. Shutra tanked the impact head-on. Gritting his teeth, he roared a command that shook the battlefield. Karak King's Knights, assemble! Gerard spun, catching Karak's axe mid-swing with terrifying ease. But Shutra was ready. He compressed golden monotite into his fist, locking onto his target with lethal precision. He brought the hammer down, like a gigantic piston. Gerard ate the damage, face twisting, before retaliating with the devastating beast god's secret art. Wild Wolf Fist. The impact launched Shutra across the clearing like a rag doll. The shockwave alone nearly swept Karak off his feet. Panic clawed at the orc's throat as he scrambled to check on his prince. Gerard's raging aura settled. A smirk curled his lip, a look of pure arrogance. He was certain Shutra would never rise from that crater. But Shutra hacked up a mouthful of blood and swayed to his feet. Gerard stepped forward, murder burning in his gaze. Yet Shutra refused to yield an inch. My turn. Shutra unleashed the impossible, the exact same technique. Beast God Fist secret art. Gerard froze, his mind unable to process the sight. The copycat strike slammed into Gerard dead center. A system window flashed before Shutra's eyes. Skill acquired. Beast God Fist. Wild Wolf style. It was time to feed Gerard a taste of his own bitter medicine. Gerard groaned, reeling back in confusion. How did this punk master the Wolf Fist instantly? Shutra cocked his arm back again. Round 2. Fist of Explosion. The heat became scorching, but Gerard snarled, launching a counterattack with animalistic reflexes. Shutra was blasted backward again. He clicked his tongue in frustration. Damn it. He had been aiming to blow the bastard's head clean off his shoulders. Suddenly, Gerard spewed a massive wave of black fog. It locked onto Shutra like a homing missile. With a split second to spare, Shutra summoned the White Suri. Milliseconds later, the mist nuked the entire area. What the actual hell, was Shutra's last thought. But when the smoke finally cleared, Gerard had ghosted. Did he bail? A crisp system ping confirmed a level up. Shutra exhaled, his breath shaky. He was battered, but he was alive. Threat neutralized. For now. He turned to Felicia, asking about Caitlin. Felicia's expression was grim. It is bad. Catastrophic. The damage is too deep. I do not think magic can fix this. Suddenly, Shutra buckled. His fingers clawed at his chest as a guttural groan tore from his throat. Felicia was at his side in a heartbeat, panic flashing wildly in her eyes. Even as agony shredded his insides, his mind remained locked on Caitlin. Her skin looked flawless, but beneath the surface, her internal organs were absolutely decimated. She had likely burned through her very life force by overdrawing her aura in the battle. Seeing Shutra deteriorate by the second, Felicia desperately demanded to know what was happening to him. He waved her off, gasping that he would be fine after a nap. He barked at her to prioritize saving Caitlin's life instead of his. Chris materialized from the shadows, shoving an ornate box toward Felicia. His orders were absolute. Use it on both of them immediately. What is this? She asked, cracking the lid. She froze dead. Resting inside was a solitary, glowing blossom. The legendary moonlight herb. Felicia quickly arranged their unconscious bodies side by side, placing the sacred artifact between them. She began the ancient ritual, while Chris and Karak stood watch like stone sentinels. With surgical precision, she lifted the herb and snapped it in two. She hovered one radiant half over Shutra, and the other over Caitlin. The petals disintegrated into pure light, drifting into their mouths. Caitlin began to shine with a brilliant aura, but Felicia's brow furrowed in concern. Confusion exploded into terror as Shutra actually started floating off the bed. Chris's jaw hit the floor. He had never seen a reaction like this. Then, the old myths flooded back to him. The legend of the primordial Wolf King. Ages ago, that king united the fractured lycanthrope tribes into one mighty empire, but peace was fleeting. A red dragon named Castion descended upon their lands. For 7 days and 7 nights they clashed, until the Wolf King finally tore the beast down and claimed victory. But the cost was absolute. His pack, his family, everything was wiped out, and death was knocking at his own door. In that final, desperate moment, he stumbled upon a pristine white flower. On pure instinct, he devoured it. That bloom, containing the essence of moonlight itself, did not just heal him, it became his heart. Resurrected with a core of lunar energy, the king swore his existence to the night sky and adopted the name Moonlight. He guarded his realm for an impossible number of centuries. But lightning never struck twice. Generations of lycanthropes chased that power, consuming the herb. Yet, none could handle the raw lunar energy like the Wolf King. No one ever gained a second heart again. That was the myth. Until now. That ancient legend was manifesting right in front of Chris's face. And crazily enough, it was happening to Shutra, someone not even of their bloodline. His chest erupted with blinding light, sending a massive beam piercing into the night sky. Ding! The system flagged a protagonist setting adjustment, boosting the enchanted encounter trait. His protagonist physiology was forcing his body to absorb the moonlight herb perfectly. He now rocked 2 hearts. Double the potential. Double the power. Finally, Shutra's eyelids fluttered open, greeted by golden sunlight. Then, he felt a presence. Caitlin was sleeping right next to him. He bolted upright, his face burning red. Disoriented, he looked around fancy decor, royal vibes. Before he can even process his thoughts, a sharp knock shatters the silence. The door swings open. Troops march in with disciplined precision, flanking a woman whose very presence radiates an overwhelming, crushing aura. Did you sleep well? Her voice is smooth like velvet, yet commands absolute obedience. She addresses him directly, piercing through any pretense. Ninth, Prince Shutra Ignis. The recognition hits him like a lightning bolt. Of course, he has seen that face 1,000 times within the game. Ela Moonlight, the 4th queen, the absolute ruler of the lycanthropes, and more importantly, the biological mother of Chris and Caitlin. My children are alive because of you, she states, her tone unreadable. She asks the heavy question, how can a queen possibly repay such a life debt? Shutra keeps it humble, insisting it was merely the right thing to do. Do not sell yourself short, she counters sharply. You earned this. He nods his thanks, but instantly, the atmosphere in the room shifts. Dropping all pleasantries, she locks eyes with him. Her gaze pierces his soul as she goes straight for the jugular. Do you plan to become the Demon King? Shutra blinks, completely thrown off guard. She reads his stunned expression in an instant. The ambition hadn't even existed in his mind. Considering he was a powerless prince just yesterday, his hesitation makes sense. The board has changed, she warns him ominously. You need to start thinking like a player. She commands him to calculate every single move from this moment forward, to weigh every option with cold logic. To play to win, he must ask only one question: what benefits him? Later, Greenwind drops a revelation that shakes his world. He has been unconscious for 4 full days. I never left your side, she adds, as if such devotion is trivial. Shutra presses for the details. It turns out they are recovering in a high-security villa reserved for lycanthrope royalty. And sharing the bed? That was a calculated move. It was necessary to sync their energies and turbocharge the healing process for both of them. Excuse me? Shutra asks, bewildered. Greenwind just tilts her head innocently. You really don't remember consuming the moonlight herb? Shutra freezes. He ate it? He immediately checks his status window. Confirmed. And there it is, a sensation he has never felt before. A foreign power humming violently over his own aura. It is undeniable. A second heart has formed inside him. Chris told me everything, Greenwind whispers. The proximity to them was the trigger. The closer they got, the more his internal engine roared to life. He reaches out, grabbing Caitlin's hand to test the theory. The confirmation is instant. Pure, raw energy electrifies his veins. It is a rush so intense it almost knocks the wind out of him. Greenwind drops the lore. The moonlight herb has fused their souls. They are tethered now. Later, the mood in the hallway turns heavy. Shutra gets the situation report. Gerard is officially missing in action. Chris does not sugarcoat it. The battlefield was a slaughterhouse. During the hunt, they found pieces of Gerard legs here, a chunk of torso there. Gruesome sights. But Chris is not calling off the search dogs until he sees a face and a corpse with his own eyes. Shutra nods grimly. Better safe than sorry with a monster of that caliber. Then Chris pivots to the real topic. The offer his mother put on the table. Shutra connects the dots in his mind. They are talking about the endgame. The Demon King's throne. Chris keeps it real. He is strong, sure, but he is not top tier. At best, he is scraping by at Sylvan's level. 10 years of grinding, and he still couldn't touch the first prince. The skill gap is simply too wide. And the second prince? That guy is a literal anomaly. A monster wearing human skin. Comparing them is a waste of breath. But Chris sees something else in Shutra. He is betting on the dark horse to surpass all of them and snatch the crown. Shutra is visibly shaken. Chris breaks down the stats. Unlike the rest of them, Shutra has the charisma to unite the fractured races. Plus, he has the Sword Lord in his corner. If he keeps stacking these public victories, he could even pull off a pardon for the imprisoned Gandharvas. That is when the light bulb goes on. Shutra finally understands why the Gandharvas have been ghosting everyone. He had always wondered what kind of crime warranted that level of lockdown. Chris clarifies the vibe. He is not demanding an answer right this second. He just wants the gears to start turning in Shutra's head. Because there is a massive difference between maybe and never. Shutra gazes out the window, letting the weight of that ambition settle in. He stands there silently, visualizing the treacherous path to the throne. Miles away, a carriage slices through the darkness. Ludwig Moonlight, head of the Bloodwolf squad, finally pops the question to Queen Ela. Does she actually believe the Ninth Prince has the necessary power to rule? Her answer is cold and precise. The Demon King does not do random. Every move is calculated. He is not the type to break protocol and intervene twice, especially at a public ceremony, without playing four-dimensional chess. She is convinced he saw potential in the Ninth Prince that everyone else slept on. Game recognizes game, after all. Ludwig looks a bit lost, admitting the stakes feel overly dramatic. Ela just smirks, calling him naive. She lays out the truth about the Demon King. Being killed by his own son is not a tragedy to him. It is the ultimate victory. It means a successor stronger than himself has finally arrived. That is the kind of savage logic he operates on. Yes, it is a high-stakes gamble. But a timeline where the Ninth Prince takes the crown is their best-case scenario. Ludwig finally understands. In the demon world, might makes right. The universe bends only to the will of the strongest. Elaine admitted the concept gave her chills, but in a twisted way, she loved it. Deep in the wilderness, the hunt reached its fever pitch. Gerard was broken, his body wrecked as the relentless wolf pack closed in. There was nowhere left to run. Suddenly, a scout signaled cold and clear, target acquired. The jaws of the trap had snapped shut, but a sinister voice whispered in Gerard's ear. It taunted his failure, while a shadowy silhouette loomed over him, offering a deal with the devil. Desperation fueled his resolve. Gerard slammed his palm into the dirt. Boom! A torrent of abyssal mist exploded outward. It washed over the charging wolves, draining their life force until they were nothing but withered husks. In a single heartbeat, he annihilated the entire squad. Cornered and desperate, he had taken the bait. The mysterious entity grinned, rows of razor-sharp teeth glinting maliciously in the dark. It announced that the true sequel was starting. It was time to rewrite the ending of this tragedy. Days later, Caitlin finally emerged from her coma. With the immediate crisis managed, Chris returned to headquarters, but there is no rest for the wicked. By dawn, the team rolled out to the Spider Forest to track down Amita. Their guide was Robin. He laid out the grim reality. Once they crossed the twin bridges, their mounts would be useless dead weight. The journey ahead demanded boots on the ground. Robin was a boarkin, a sturdy anthropomorph that Chris had personally vouched for. Shutra grilled him on the tactical situation. Robin shrugged, admitting his knowledge of the terrain was 6 months out of date. He described a memory of a serene paradise, chill, quiet, and peaceful. So peaceful, in fact, that it was empty. No beasts, no monsters. But to Shutra, that silence was a screaming red flag. After everything they had survived, such tranquility felt unnatural. When they breached the tree line, the gruesome reality hit them. Bones carpeted the earth. Robin panicked at the sight, but Shutra didn't even blink. He knew the peace had been a lie. The only question remained, what kind of nightmare boss is waiting for us this time? The squad instantly fanned out, standing back to back. Weapons drawn, their eyes locked onto the shifting shadows. The terrain wasn't a forest, it was a graveyard. The ground was a tapestry of snapped timber and bleached bones. Green Wind attempted to sync with the Forest Guardian signal, but the connection was drowning in static. The local spirits were in a state of absolute terror. Whatever rules these woods is knocking on death's door. Shutra turned to Rowan, demanding answers. Is there actually a guardian here? Rowan nodded, citing ancient lore about a colossus, a titanic spider that nested in the forest's dead center. Shutra processed the intel and barked a command to Karma, warning the lycanthropes to stay sharp. Karma surged forward like a streak of light. Suddenly, Greenwind's radar spiked. Massive magical energy exploded at the forest's core, then was instantly snuffed out. She felt the tremor in her soul. Something catastrophic was about to go down. As darkness devoured the canopy, the team established a perimeter. Shutra dropped the bad news. The Guardian is fading out. He looked around the campfire fire. What happens if it actually dies? Felicia took the floor, outlining 2 scenarios for a spirit wipeout. Scenario 1. Someone physically destroys the entity. Scenario 2. The battery dies. If the source protecting it is deleted, the spirit vanishes with it. Basically, kill the origin, kill the ghost. Now, Green Wind might look pint-sized, but she is an S-tier existence. Even if her source vanished, she would only suffer a debuff, not total deletion. But most spirits? They fade to black instantly. Shutra had witnessed this mechanic 100 times with artificial mobs in the dungeons. The conclusion was inescapable. The Spider Forest Guardian wasn't just sick, it was dying because its core had taken a massive hit. Suddenly, Felicia froze, eyes glued to the sky. The moon. It's wrong. Before anyone could process, Caitlin lunged. Shutra's survival instincts flared. He tackled her to the dirt instantly. What the hell do you think you're doing? He shook her violently, trying to shatter her trance. Then he realized it wasn't just her. The eyes of the other lycanthropes glazed over, locking onto a new target, Karak. The orc scrambled back. Yo, it's me. Why are you looking at me like I'm dinner? Felicia triggered a flashbang spell, blinding the wolves in a burst of white light to buy them a second. Even she looked totally lost. It's the spirit of madness, Daphne screamed, weaving a rapid purification spell. A sinister purple haze was ripped violently from the lycanthropes. They dropped like puppets with severed strings. Shutra rushed to Caitlin, checking her vitals. Pulse steady. She was back. Care to explain that nightmare? Karak wheezed. Daphne shook her head grimly. I repelled the spirits, but it's only a temporary patch. We need to find the source fast. Boom! The ground lurched violently beneath them. What now? Karak shouted. The barrier just shattered, Daphne whispered, terror flooding her face. Something huge is coming. Green Wind's voice trembled. Master, reality is glitching. The illusion and the physical world are forcibly merging. The energy pressure became suffocating, blurring the lines of existence. Shutra muttered a curse as the shadows began to move. Monsters, everywhere. Battle stations, Shutra roared. No time to think, just kill. A bear charged him, and he met it with a devastating explosion fist. Karma and Delia held the line, shredding the front wave, while Felicia rained down area of effect spells, nuking clusters of enemies in glorious destruction. The battlefield had become a meat grinder, swarming with too many hostiles to count. Shutra abruptly severed his mental link to Green Wind. Green Wind, get up top. I need eyes in the sky, she scoffed, her voice echoing in his mind. My name is not GW. Yet she obeyed instantly, rocketing skyward like a reverse meteor. She was a streak of emerald light slicing through the gloom. Suddenly, a massive pillar of blue energy erupted from the earth, shattering the darkness. Green clashed with blue, illuminating the roiling clouds. And there, bathed in the radiance, stood a titan. Green Wind froze in midair. The thing was colossal. The earth itself quaked under its weight. Shutra gritted his teeth, adrenaline spiking. What level of boss fight is this? Captain Moore. Incoming! Karak yelled, bracing for impact. But then, silence. The horror simply turned tail and ran. The team stood there, bloodied and confused, but they certainly weren't complaining about the reprieve. Shutra's senses flared. Danger not yet past. Show yourself, twak. Thwack! A projectile beamed Karak right in the forehead before he could react. As the object rolled to a stop, Shutra blinked, dumbfounded. A raccoon? The trash panda stood up on two legs, dusting itself off before clearing its throat with immense dignity. Do you have eyes? It snapped, looking thoroughly insulted by their staring. Can you not bask in my magnificent Daphne? Shutra and Karak just stood there, jaws on the floor. The raccoon puffed up its chest, radiating an aura of absolute superiority.